strong counting. Yeah. So honestly, like, my goal here is just to bring a couple of my esteemed No Jumper hosts on board with Destiny, an oracle, a shining light of information here on the No Jumper platform. People seem to really like it last time when we had Flakko just bludgeoning you with truth bombs over and over and over.
Is that what you call them, truth bombs?
That's what it felt like. Flakko dog walked your ass.
Did he? Okay. That's good. I know where you stand now. Okay.
Oh shit!
But I realize how much Destiny have you consumed? Pause. T Rell, I know you fuck with it. You become a fan. How much of it have you seen?
I've seen. I mean, my first video was when you were conversating about college and how important it was for a human being to go to school, you know what I'm saying, and get their degree. And then after that, then I just went into this rabbit hole. And you're one of the smartest human beings on this fucking YouTube planet Earth right now.
Damn.
Wow.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're literally the only person of this genre of commentators that I actually will consume your content. And, like, I fuck with it.
Okay. Wow. This is a big ego build up for me. Thanks.
It's going to be a little bit different than when it was you and Flakko. Like,
okay.
You know when you, like, go out on a date with a girl and you have, like, a little fan experience while you're out, like, trying to make a good impression on her?
Oh, my
or
God.
whatever?
That's the best thing ever.
I just took Destiny to Panda Express, and like 3 young African-American gentlemen who were operating a moving truck were all very excited to see me in the parking lot. So that was kind of a little version of that.
I was shocking for Destiny to be like, okay, black people like a white man.
Well, I'm not trying to characterize that as a date either, but it's just, I had a little bit of that moment.
If they were white, would you have said 3 white men?
Yes.
Why are
Why'd
we
you
saying
specify that?
Yeah.
Why are we saying African American all of a sudden? Where's that?
I feel like it's an important detail.
Yeah, fuck out of here, nigga.
It tells you something about my constitution. My
fuck out of here, nigga.
What's the word?
You
My
trying
constitution.
to do it up now because Destiny on you
Yeah,
trying to be all fucking political and shit.
You weird.
I don't want to hear
and
that.
that's not
shit.
even politically correct. That sounds
Yeah.
worse. What if there's
The first question you would have asked is what race they were.
Really?
I would have been like, what, but if you just say African American, what if they're Jamaican? What if they're another type of black that's not from Africa, but they're American?
I believe
now
one
they're
of them-
African American.
I think one of them had dreads and a Band-Aid on his face.
Okay.
I'm just saying, they were tight.
So he's from St. Louis.
He's just doing his thing. I don't know. I just felt like it was notable.
Actually close. Yeah.
All right, well, fuck all of that. I just want to ask Destiny, you were having this debate with ABBA, and you was having this debate with Gideon. You guys were talking about voting. And I just want to, from my perspective, like in the community, just growing up, like the system is broken, and we know the system is broken, and we know the system is not like behind us. You know what I'm saying? As far as the black community, and you were like really going hard at them. So I just really want to know that take on it, like, because why would my community be so, inclined to vote? You know what I'm saying? And just inclined to go out there and take those steps.
What is this show? What are we on right now?
It just says the Destiny interview, which honestly is not a great title. It should be just called
what is the
Destiny,
level of
Adam,
seriousness and humor? Or, where are we at?
We're trying to get educated.
I mean,
are we doing okay?
It sounds like a sincere question. I don't know. Take it
no,
however you
it
want.
did sound sincere. But if this is like a humor podcast,
No,
and you bring me
before.
on, and okay,
Sledgelords before where we were eating candy was
Yeah,
like the
gotcha,
funny.
okay.
Let's not do serious. This we can do whatever the fuck we want here.
gotcha.
We could even take phone calls.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Not me.
There's a reason why people fought so hard to get the right to vote. The problem with the question is that the intersection of how all of our institutions work and how what we vote on, how that comes out into policy, is all very complicated, and it's a little hard to see. So I understand I can empathize with the feeling that no matter how we vote, nothing is going to change. But I mean, it's that mentality exactly that is why things don't change. If you try to look at how cities are comprised and what policies get passed and what politicians pay attention to, sometimes you look at the composition of a city and you're like, okay, this city has these problems. There are this many people here. Stuff isn't getting fixed. Therefore, it seems like the system is broken because we have the same problems over and over and over and over again, right? Look at LA. Fuck, I lived in this area for 3 years. Look at the homeless population, right? Nothing gets done. But then if you stop looking at the people that live there, because that's not important, and you look at the voters, the people that go out and vote, you start to understand a lot more why things are taken care of the way that they are taken care of. So for BLM, it was cops that they talked about a lot. But think about like who's more likely to vote. A young black man that might be in his like mischief years, right? Because, you know, like teens to late 20s is when you're up to no good generally. When I say up to no good, that can be like smoke weed, right? Or like a 50, 60, 70-year-old, decently wealthy white guy who probably never sees a cop in his life. Right? When you start to look at the composition of who's actually voting, it starts to make sense why only some issues are taken care of and other issues are pushed to the side. And I wish that more people would recognize that. Like if everybody starts voting, the ways that politicians are going to act is going to change a lot because now they're not just trying to appease like the older white people that are wealthy that are voting. Now they're trying to appease like the entire city.
And if you were to like have believed your whole life that when you look at like just the presidential election, which let's be real, that a large percentage of Americans, that's the only election that they ever pay attention to. And if you were to be like, well, Republicans and Democrats, things seem like they're basically the same, regardless of who gets elected or whatever. But then in recent memory, if you look at the Trump thing, I mean, you do have an example of somebody who is like a total outsider politically who was able to get elected. Now, probably everybody sitting here is not a big fan of Trump. Actually, you are a fan of Trump, so let's erase that from the record. But, you know, like you have an example right there of how this sort of like fringe candidate that probably nobody establishment-wise wanted elected was able to get elected, and that kind of just shows the power of the people, that regardless of how we feel about the MAGA crowd, they were able to get their guy in office just by like mobilizing around him. And I mean, you could kind of look at Trump and say like, well, Trump didn't really do all that much that really was, you know, all that different from what every other Republican candidate did. But I mean, I'm sure Destiny could rattle off a whole bunch of shit that Biden has done that has been in favor of, you know, policies he supports.
But do we
and
actually
stuff.
think the black vote is going to change anything, especially with us being like what, like 3 to 5% of the actual like
More than that, right?
I think
existence
I think
out
that
here?
the black vote is actually incredibly important. I think it's a very important strategic shaping of like the Democratic primary process, right? Like you saw coming out of fucking Iowa, and I think it's New Hampshire, right, where you've got like Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg are in this like, you know, neck and neck race, and who knows what's going to happen, and you know they're the only two candidates anybody's talking about. And then as soon as we roll around to those southern states, where you start to see a lot of black voters come out, that really shapes and changes the nature of what the Democratic candidate will ultimately end up being. So yeah, I mean, I think there are times where the black vote is like pretty important. It's been strategically used in the past. Yeah.
I think though, beyond like the racial dynamics of it all, there's a sense of futility, and this isn't mutually exclusive to you know, black people or any specific demographic, but just I would say anyone under 45 years old, let's just say, this sense of futility, and it's not limited to either party, because not only is there a feeling of, okay, our vote doesn't matter, but then you got people on both sides of the spectrum, the right and the left, claiming that there's voter fraud, and we don't even know, like, is this all predetermined? And I think that kind of discourages a vast majority of the people that don't vote from even doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of voter discouragement. So there's a couple things that play into it. So here's the first part. Our system is designed to be slow, right? The idea is you don't want one party coming in and having like a cascade of new laws and everything passed. So our system is pretty cumbersome by design, by intention. And I think a lot of people are frustrated because it seems like there's not a lot of stuff changing right now in the system. But I think that people will point to the system and they'll say, well, it's not working. But I think it actually is working, because the reason why we're not seeing much change coming from like our legislative bodies, right, from Congress and everything, is because the people are historically divided. Like, yeah, Congress sucks and they're not getting anything done. But if you go out and you talk to people, people are also like completely at odds with each other. Like we're more divided now, it feels, than I think we've ever been, at least in my lifetime, in terms of like people disagreeing over just fundamental aspects of reality. Like you bring up the voter fraud thing.
Media, there's no consensus in media, because if it's media that favors the right, the left is going to say this is not accurate, this is fake, this is fraudulent, and vice versa. So it's really like, thus, like, what do we believe? What do we listen to? Where do we get our information? What's trustworthy?
I mean, like, so here's the challenge. A lot of the new like information age that we live in is predicated on a super wrong idea. And that idea is that humans are fundamentally like truth-seeking creatures. We're not. We don't really go for truth. Usually we seek things that like make us feel good, that reaffirm what we want to know, or that what we feel, and then things that like already kind of comport with our view of reality. That's what people are generally predisposed to viewing. And so people will throw the internet at us and go like, oh my God, look, you have access to all the information in the world at your fingertips. You can go and research anything. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go and find 20 things that agree with me, and that's all I'm going to look at.
Right.
And that's kind of what ends up happening there. So there's a lot of like, you kind of have to be aware of all these pitfalls that like the human brain will fall into. You know, like if we go back to, you know, when we lived in jungles and shit, if there's a bush shaking, you know, and your two friends run away and you go and investigate because you're curious and you get eaten by a fucking tiger, you're not really rewarded much for natural curiosity. You're more rewarded for quickly identifying and creating patterns, stereotyping, and then doing things that keep you safe. Once you kind of have that understanding, I think, of human nature, that we're not fundamentally equipped to discern fact from fiction, and instead we just kind of like the things that make us feel good, a lot of the internet landscape and the political landscape starts to make more sense, I think.
What is the outrage? Why is there so much outrage with Nick fucking with Ye? Because I mean, I know the association is crazy, but the association with a let's say a celebrity, you know, the association with celebrities versus, you know what I'm saying, fucking with Jeffrey Epstein and then Ye fucking with Nick. I mean, why is there so much outrage with Kanye doing this shit? You know what I'm saying?
Well, because Ye is arguably still probably, what would you say, the most popular musician alive right now?
Well, he's up there.
He's
Drake,
up there, right?
Drake's a lot
He's
bigger, maybe Taylor
insanely-
Swift, but his music is not really like what it once was
Sure,
for
that's
people.
true, that's true.
But in terms of
In terms of
celebrity,
name, celebrity status,
he's one
fashion,
of the biggest,
yeah, for sure.
especially in hip hop. Yeah,
One of the
top
most
5, yeah.
influential people
Yeah.
in pop culture of the past 15, 20 years.
For sure.
So when this guy who has a platform and is talking to, you know, people of all ages and is starting to connect to somebody that's like arguably like a white nationalist, I can understand the concern, right?
But if I was to run for president and then I was like, you know what, well, let me hire Destiny, because Destiny, if I go up to debate and I go for these interviews, there's no fucking way you can belittle me, because I have Destiny right behind me that can intervene and you know, change the course of this fucking interview. So I feel like
is
that's
Nick
the-
Fuentes just the right wing Destiny?
Jesus, that's nice. Now.
That's how he's being characterized.
It's important that it's not
I
just
mean,
about
is he?
It's not just about debate skills, though. It's about the values of like what you stand for, right? So if you've got a guy like Fuentes who is like anti fucking interracial marriage, who is like pro like white majorities in the United States in terms of like composition, wants to see less immigration from brown people, wants to return us to some like, I think he says what, like Catholic, is it Catholic theocracy or whatever in the United States?
Because that's what he says ultimately, is he doesn't claim he's a white nationalist. He says he's a Catholic nationalist.
Yeah, sure. But with a heavy focus on race, right? A lot of Jewish question stuff that comes up, a lot of race realism and IQ baked into your skin color that comes up. Like these are all kind of like underlying beliefs that are part of his community and part of his system.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially, and that was my whole thoughts on it. That it's like thinly veiled white supremacy, but he's so good at debating and just thwarting those points when they come up. Like he'll say, "I'm not against interracial marriage or mingling. I'm just against it for myself."
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, "I'm actually part Mexican and part all these different things." So,
But what was your opinion of the debate, quote unquote, that occurred on this channel with Nick, where we appeared powerless to really like corner him on him being a racist at all? Like what did you think when you watched that? And what are the main things that we could have said that would have made that better?
I think there were.
I was asking Destiny.
Oh,
but
okay,
feel free to weigh in.
Okay, but
as well, yeah.
the glasses get me every time.
Sorry.
Oh, fuck. I thought you were talking to him. I heard your question. What were some of the things you could have done well? I think I actually watched this full interview on stream.
Yeah, I did not watch that. So I actually, even though I said in the thing that I was going to watch it.
Yeah, I've consumed so much crazy content over the past month. I don't even know if I remember I don't remember the particular talking points. If I had to guess, it's like usually the issues are going to come down where, so if you call him a white supremacist, that's not going to work, because he's going to say, I don't believe that white people are superior. I believe that all people are different.
Right.
That'll be like one thing. Typically, you get lost in the weeds because a lot of people don't spend a lot of time arguing against people that have those types of beliefs, so they don't even know what to say.
And this is all he argues about for the most part.
Exactly,
so he's
yeah.
so ready for it.
Exactly, yeah. It's like if you can be pretty confident about your view of the planet, but if you're arguing against the world's smartest flat earther, you're going to lose that debate. I would lose that debate 10 out of 10 times. You know?
Right.
So yeah, it's usually like his normal talking points are really hard to argue against if you're not really well versed in those arguments related to like race realism and stuff. And then a lot of his other talking points are becoming more popular because there's like this anti-establishment trend, and he's
Right.
very big on questioning the elites and talking about how the institutions have failed you, and there needs to be like an alternative option to that. So yeah.
no, and that's a perfect segue to a question I had for you. When did we experience this major shift with conspiracy theories being a left-wing phenomenon for, the past however many decades going back to now, it's like this neoconservative right-wing ideology fueled by distrust of the powers that be. Like, when did that fucking paradigm shift occur?
I think Trump pushed a lot of this. There's this underlying sentiment of anti-establishmentarianism or I think that's a forward.
Disestablishmentarianism.
That's or you're like opposed to establishments, right? You saw it in like this crowd that had a lot of energy for Bernie Sanders, and you saw this crowd that had a lot of energy for Donald Trump. And I think that when you position yourself as this populist, fascist really figure who's like, the government is evil, the institutions are evil, the corporations are evil, everybody's evil, but I'm going to be your savior, right? Through me, all things are possible. I'm going to lead you into the light. When you have that sort of mentality, then it becomes very easy to very quickly say like, vaccines are dangerous, the voting is rigged, BLM is all lies, like abortion is evil. Like you'll go down whatever road kind of like everybody wants to, and there's not going to be much trust for like fact checkers or anything like that in that area, I think.
And then obviously QAnon perpetuates the narrative, and at a certain point, it becomes like this anti-quote-unquote Zionist rhetoric. But when people say Zionist, what are they really saying?
That's a tricky one. The best faith interpretation of anti-Zionist means you're in opposition to somebody that's in favor of like the state of Israel, at least as it currently exists.
Right.
But some people will argue that people will be anti-Zionist, but that's a guise for their anti-Semitism.
And there's a thin line between that, right?
I mean, I think you can be solidly anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic, but it's very, 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 very hard to find it's hard to find out what, yeah. There's like the joke that I make is like if you want to argue with the libertarian and they feel strong about libertarianism and they have like the age of consent memorized for every single fucking state, it's hard to like why are we talking about this right now, right? You kind of wonder like what's going on. So when somebody's like very ultra critical of like Israel in like a million different ways and Jewish support in the United States, like okay, you could, but like sometimes the focus gets weird. It's hard to figure out what people really think sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, talking about all this, I'm just you guys being white. Do you guys really think that white people are the superior race?
No. Obviously. No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I hate to ruin your act there, but
I just want to really know. I mean,
I said no and he said yes at the same time.
So, okay, we going to get on him because he said no. You said yes. Why are white people the superior race?
No, I was just kidding.
So you guys don't think the white people are the superior race?
No, and really, like and that's part of why Nick's whole little routine works is because he'll say like Asian people test better for this and that, and so
black
it kind
people
of
are better at music.
Yeah.
White people are better at creating architecture, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Like, but how do you feel when you see him doing that little number?
The problem is that it's like different people and groups of people seem to do different things for different reasons. It's just really hard to find out like why. And like I can understand if you show somebody enough of a pattern, like it seems like okay, well maybe black people do this particular thing because all across the United States these trends pop up, or maybe Jewish people are gifted the Ashkenazi or whatever Jews are gifted towards a certain way because they do this. But it's so hard to separate out like the culture from the people and to figure out why people do the things they do. The example that I always give actually for this is something it's just interesting to look at is like when it comes to music, it seems like boys play in rock bands and that's it. Like girls don't play guitars and drums generally, right?
Very rarely. Yeah.
Very, 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 very rare, right?
Except for the riot girl movement of the early 90s.
That's exactly what I thought of too.
There's like when you look
lunatics.
at and you might be able to even think of like some biological reasons why when you look at a guy play guitar, like maybe the level of coordination is like that athleticism or whatever, that finger dexterity, like women just can't do that. And I guess it kind of makes sense from a biological, okay. And you can justify that. You can build that all out and it makes sense. Okay. There's real biological differences between like men and women here. But if you step away from like the rock world and you go into the classical world, you'll see women playing like violin concertos and piano. You're like, holy fucking shit. If you can play piano or violin or viola or cello or whatever this well, you could definitely play guitar. So that's like a difference that is stark, right? There's like 0.1% of all rock guitar players are women, and that's driven entirely by culture. And I think if you see things like that, you can kind of look at like, well, what is the state of like black people in the U.S. versus like certain types of Asian people versus certain Hispanic, certain white people. It's tempting to say like, it's all because of race, look at the race. But like, damn, our culture and the environments we're born in can drive a fuck ton of behavior. And it can drive huge differences in behavior as well.
Because that's one of the things Nick says.
Amazing point.
But Nick says, Destiny agrees with me. He just disagrees about why, in the sense of like IQ differences between races or in terms of performance or whatever. Like
that's because liberals fuck themselves, mainly progressives, because they'll get into this world where they don't want to agree with any fact ever. You'll say something like, why are black people in prison so often more than white people? The real answer is because they commit a lot more crime. And there are other answers around their edges, but the crime answer is the real one. But a lot of progressives are like, no, it's all racism from the cops. All of it is racism. There's no reason why. They probably all commit crimes the same way, but it's just because cops are in the neighborhoods. It's just because cops are being racist and judges are racist. It's like, that's bullshit. If you won't even acknowledge that the problem is there,
Right.
then it's like, then you're, yeah, of course you're going to look
Well,
crazy
whether or
then.
not that's true, all those external things are true or not, that is like the base.
Yeah, that's
reason.
the base. That's the base thing. But when you refuse to engage with that, you're going to look insane, and then people are going to look at Nick like, "Oh, well, at least he acknowledges the problem." And then, yeah.
With that being said, I mean, would you guys agree that defunding Israel, you know what I'm saying, to, you know, give black people reparations, would you guys agree with that?
Sure.
Fuck
You know what I'm
no.
saying?
There's two huge problems with that. Number one,
I'm sorry about black people. I'm not meant to laugh. I'm just laughing at Adam because he's crazy.
I was just laughing at the fact that he was so upfront
That's
about
just
it.
great.
Most
Okay.
people would try to dance around it a little bit.
No. Number one, our budget doesn't come from areas, right? Like if we want to do some social program that says we don't take from our military budget and then take from this and then spend here. Like we create the budgets for what we want and then we go to the treasury and we figure that stuff out figure it out afterwards. So we're not borrowing from one area to do the other. So we can do both if we wanted to. But then two, there's a whole side conversation around reparations. It's like very complicated to figure out. But mainly for reason one, like we don't have to defund one thing to give money to another thing. If we wanted to do reparations, we wouldn't have to take that money from like our foreign aid to Israel or whatever.
But do you agree with reparations? And it's just in general.
Well, reparations not really. No, I don't think so. What do you mean when you say reparations?
Well,
That's the
just
question.
reparations for black people. I mean, because, you know, we need that. I mean, reparations, we're owed that. I mean, we built this country. I mean, we helped build this country. And I think we're owed that. I mean, and that's where the vote, that's another thing. We go back to where I was talking about with the vote. We're voting. We're trying to get this thing going. We're forming these things for reparations, and nothing's getting done. Our people see nothing improving. So it's just like, what do we vote? Like, we're definitely discouraged here. So, you know, and I definitely think, you know, reparations is owed for our community. So, I mean, you don't.
If you want to talk about like certain types of okay, so here's the problem with reparations. I think that if there are past agreements that are made, so people talk about like the 40 acres and a meal thing. If there are past agreements that are made, we know who those were made to, and we can find their descendants and pay them back, I'd probably be okay with that to some extent. But the problem is, it just gets so absurdly complicated. Like, how do you reparation to like mixed race people, or people that have outmarried and come back, or people that are like 1/18th or whatever? Or like, I feel like you get into weird areas where even trying to qualify for that would be a nightmare. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if it would help that much. Like just giving people money, I don't know if that would do much. But then like kind of on a third related point, if people want to talk about like making big investments into black communities, I'm always a fan of that. In terms of like schools or, you know, housing or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, the reparations thing, I don't think it would be very effective. I think it'd be really hard to figure out like who gets the money. This seems like it would be challenging.
Yeah, it definitely will be hard. I think that it will be hard, but I think it's definitely But isn't it other races that, you know, that got reparations, like or the Native American people or Asian people, other races, you know what I'm saying, in this country, you know, it seems like we're just left out.
Well, also on top of that, although slavery, you know, ended 1866, right? 1864 or something like that.
18 something.
Yeah. Segregation didn't end but 2 generations ago. And there are still, you know, and like the long lasting effects of the systemic oppression still exist to this day. So
Yeah, I think to fix those problems, there has to be like a really complicated intersectional approach to it. It's not just going to be giving out money to a community. It's not going to be just rebuilding a school. Like there's going to be a whole host of things related to like housing, policing, education, family structure that has to go into like fixing those problems for it to ever get fixed, which makes it seem impossible to fix, but it's possible. It's just, it's a lot of work.
Something that Nick said that I also want to point out too was he was talking about like the question about genetics, which I think you made a really good point, is like, yes, this is the result, but what we're seeing is the statistics do indicate that certain races are superior in certain aspects and others, you know, excel in other areas. But then he was talking about, look at Africa. It wasn't until like they still weren't capable of building structures more than 1 story high up to a certain point. But like what I was thinking instantly when he said that, and I wish I was there to rebuttal it, was, I mean, colonialism. Like, how do we even know the reality of that? Because the history books are written by those who won wars. And then you got Then you got the Egyptian pyramids, and there's a lot of literature that indicates that it's not just people of North African descent, but also sub-Saharan Africans as well that were, rulers in Egypt at that time.
So so there's two things here. The first part is that studying intelligence is incredibly complicated because intelligence in and of itself is already really hard to measure. Although there are a lot of decent proxies for it, education level IQ, but it's still kind of hard to measure, number one. And number two, figuring out where it comes from. Like we know that it's highly influenced by genes, but what activates those genes or what environmental factors play into it is also really complicated, right? So if an honest conversation about intelligence, anybody that tells you that I know for a fact that the differences between races of people's IQ, that's like largely driven by genetics, they're fucking lying to you. But anybody that's saying that, like, I know for a fact it's not driven by genes is also lying to you. We really don't know. It might be the case that due to widespread adaptive pressures over time that, like one common thing is people say, well, in Europe you had to be smarter to survive because of the winters and everything, so it's selected for higher IQ or whatever. But then other people say like, well, the pressures of living, especially in sub-Saharan Africa where it's very dry, very hot, there's also like different types of intelligences that develop around using tools and surviving in these conditions. That's a mess of a conversation. I think it's worth exploring. I think it's really interesting, but we don't have solid answers there yet, number one. But number two, and I think this is the most important thing, is like, well, what the fuck do you want to do about it? Because this is like always the question, and this is why I hate this fucking topic. I hate it when somebody argues with me and I don't feel like they're honest about what they think. If somebody comes up to me and they say, I want to export black people from the United States, and I'm like, why? And like, 'cause I just fucking hate black people. I'm like, okay. We can have that conversation at least. But here's the issue I have with the IQ people and the people talk about race realism. People say, I don't want low IQ people in my country, so we need to get rid of like black, brown people, whatever. It's like, okay, why not just keep the high IQ ones and export all low IQ people, including low IQ whites? And they never go for that. Why?
Because they're not being genuine.
Yeah, because they don't give a fuck about IQ. That's bullshit, right? And then no offense, but like, look at the majority of the people online, right? Like, I'm going to be honest, I've looked at my YouTube comment section, okay? The race realist people, not a bunch of fucking Einsteins and Bachs, okay? These aren't the best and the brightest of the white race that they have to offer, These are probably people that aren't doing the best on their IQ tests. But like, yeah, I don't know. So I feel like that IQ argument is just a bullshit proxy for other things. But like, let's like figure out like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we're all here in the United States, but we're not about to export races of people. So like, let's figure out like, how do we make society work for who we have, and then continue to do the research in the meantime to figure out how to deal with whatever.
Yeah, like, aren't we supposed to be judging our society by how we treat children and animals? Like I've heard that before. So I mean, by the same logic, if you were able to say that there was a race that was less intelligent, wouldn't you then as a society consider it extremely important that you were taking care of that race and like helping to their needs or whatever? Now, I'm not saying I agree with that at all, but I'm just saying that like, if you do think that certain people have lower IQs, how does that in any way then make you feel like it's okay to dehumanize them more? Like, I don't get that, like how that logic leads you to there.
Sure,
if you did think that black people were stupid, clearly the answer isn't to just expel them from your country. It would be, I don't know.
Well, the solution they say is that like, well, you don't want to bring them in then because they're just going to bring the country down, basically.
Yeah.
Did you hear any racist remarks when you was growing up within your family, like as far as like black people are inferior?
Because, okay, let me just interrupt for a second to say that to T Rell, white people are a bit foreign. Like he has admitted as much that on the podcast and stuff that maybe working here for the last year or two has been like the most interaction that he's had with white people in his life. So he is coming from like a very interesting perspective where there just was not a lot of white people around, and at least he didn't really feel the need to be engaging with them, besides whooping their asses on Fig.
Hey, hold on.
Okay.
I mean, but besides you and Josh, this is like the third like intelligent white man I've ever spoke to.
Jesus.
I like how Lush doesn't make the list.
I mean, he said so many times not white, so we're not putting him in the white category.
Exactly. Nah,
I love this here.
But the thing is this. It's beyond. It's beyond T Rell. There's a general consensus amongst a lot of black and brown people that all white people are racist. And
yes, I mean, I believe to a certain extent, I believed probably up until like 2 or 3 years ago that every white person that I seen, including their kids, were racist as fuck.
Well, okay, and on the inverse of that,
I'm not even lying to you.
The inverse of that, like in your home growing up, were white people held in high regard?
No,
exactly.
We didn't speak about white people. But
when they came up,
I mean, but if segregation was ended in 1965 or some
Right.
shit, then I'm doing the math and I see, okay, he's 70 years old or whatever the case may be. He just went through that shit. Like, he doesn't fuck with me, and his kids probably don't fuck with me, and then there's just a long line going down there. So they just smile, and you get that, you get this,
lot
at
of
Target,
white-
you get this at Target.
A lot of
I'm like,
white
you don't
people
fuck
weren't
with me,
hyped
you know what I
on
mean?
segregation.
I mean,
Probably, right? Like,
I
even
have
the
no
ones who
idea.
kind of lived through it, like, probably at least half of them weren't
That's why I'm
all that
asking
in
you.
favor of
You're
it,
from
right?
New Hampshire. I
Right.
mean, he's from LA. He's a.
I'm from
No, he's
Omaha,
from
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Oh, you from Nebraska? You're for
from
sure
Nebraska.
racist.
Hey,
as
and
fuck.
for the record,
Destiny's racist as
no,
fuck.
I just want to say before we let him answer, though, is that I
I argue
remember
against Nick because I see myself in him. If I could destroy the racist part of his soul, that's
my
like my last
parents
Horcrux.
grew up in New Hampshire, and I remember asking them as a kid, like, how much racism did you really see when you were kids and stuff? Did you see separate water fountains, et cetera? And I remember my parents kind of telling me no, that like, up in the Northeast, that even in, when my parents were growing up in like the 60s and 70s, that wasn't really
I mean,
a
because
thing.
we were
I don't
trying
know.
to travel up north, right, to get freedom.
I don't know. I feel like the South and the Northeast were probably like very different culturally. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Or my mom is just conveniently forgetting.
So in North Dakota, you didn't experience racism at all.
I think Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh,
So
Omaha, Nebraska. Sorry, I just gave you a whole nother thing.
no, yeah, you're good.
I believe Nebraska
Both
is
racist
a,
look.
I believe that is a liberal state. That's a blue state,
no,
right?
no, absolutely not. The
But
city is bluish.
Omaha's
Every
blue,
city is
yeah.
bluish in the United States and the
Yeah.
world, really. But I think that a lot of the racism has to do basically with socialization. If you don't see a lot of a certain type of person, you just kind of start to develop opinions about them. I don't think I ever grew up racist per se. My mom is a Cuban immigrant, so we've got like a big Hispanic side to our family, so maybe that helped. And then my dad, we never, like, my mom was very Catholic Christian growing up. Like, we love all people. Like, that racism shit was never acceptable. But like, even into my early 20s, I think 2021, like, I would have this idea in my head first, like, I could never date a black woman. I just couldn't. We would never like be similar in anything. But that's because I think I don't know if I'd ever seen, I probably saw one black woman my age from age like 0 to 18, probably. Maybe one or maybe two. But then I traveled down to Miami once and I went to a casino. That opinion changed in like 2 fucking minutes.
So you went to the strip club.
No, not a strip club, casino. And
That
there
fool
was
saw one King magazine and was like, Black Lives Matter.
it was a casino and it was a dealer. It was a dealer in a Miami casino. And I was like, oh shit, this woman is cool as fuck. But it was literally just a matter of like
He saw Maya
socialization.
and was like, it's good.
But think about that. Think about how easily he, without trying, was able to grow up with the assumption that he would never have anything to do with a black woman sexually just because he wasn't around it, wasn't exposed to it. And that's like,
But I had
that's
the
pretty
same.
interesting.
But I had the same experiences, and I feel I had the same thoughts. Like, I could never date a white woman. Like, I could never date a Hispanic woman, an Asian woman. Like, it could only be black. But I feel like some of that shit is learned behavior.
I feel like most of it is because we know this. I don't want to do like the whole studies or whatever, but like when kids are socialized around other kids, you just grow up like with a way more neutral opinion. Like, here's something that pisses me off a lot. And people like Nick will say this all the time. We're very tribalist. That's true, but your tribe can grow to include a huge range of people. Like, people in San Francisco are just as tribalist as people in the most redneck part of Louisiana, but the tribe in San Francisco, it like branches out to like BLM people, to like blue dudes with septum piercings that go to Starbucks all the time. Like, their tribe is just way bigger in terms of like the different types of people, or at least the way they look in their group. And yeah, like, the more you like, dude, I've been to events where I'll have like trans fans that will show up. There was one that I went to, a really conservative area, and we'll go out to like a restaurant and eat. And just by talking to this like one trans girl for like an hour, like all of these guys that are like, these are not like friendly conservative. These are like ride or die, like MAGA people, like Trump people. They're like way more chilled out talking to her by the end of like 2 or 3 hours, just because they've gotten to see a trans person in real life. That's not an insane fucking lunatic from Twitter and everything. So
They was trying to hit that, be honest.
sure, but I'm just saying that, like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but like, I'm just saying that like the socialization thing is fucking huge. And to white people, like, black people are, if you grow up like in areas like I do, like, you guys are in gangs all the time, you got guns, you, I guess, rap at every free moment of the day, and it's just in general a very scary experience to like an average white person that's never seen a black person before.
I mean, that's
like,
what you think about me. Like, I rap every fucking moment of the day.
I don't. But I'm saying that, like,
truth.
if you get like a white person in like some like fucking suburban community or like rural community, like, that's what they think, because that's all you see on TV, and that's like the impression. And then I'm sure, yeah, for black people, like, they probably think like white people close the door, they get their glass of milk, and then we just talk about like how much like black people are fucking the country up constantly for hours and hours on end. Like, yeah, when you don't socialize with other people, that's just what happens. We're not around the groups.
What's your views on Nick saying the Holocaust was like non-existent? are not even non-existent, kind of like exaggerated to a point to
Yeah.
where that shit like
He just
kind
kind
of
of questions the stats.
Yeah, he kind of questions.
It wasn't
the
no
stats
6 billion,
because-
more like 30,000. Blah blah blah
Yeah,
blah
because
blah.
the
like,
because the Nazi party, you know, or well, the Nazi, you know, army or whatever, just didn't have they didn't have the money, you know what I'm saying, to actually do those things.
Okay, this is something that this is like I always move through life assuming that people are smarter than me. I don't know if you guys do this when it comes to scams. Anytime somebody reaches out to me, it's like, I've got the best business idea ever. I can fucking 10x your money. The first thing I always think of when a too good to be true opportunity pops up is like, why the fuck are you coming to me with this first?
Facts.
Right? Something is fucking off here whenever I see some shit. So when somebody starts saying some shit about World War II, like, and they'll bring up like, oh, like the Nazis didn't even have enough space. They didn't even have enough places to put Jews in that many gas chambers. My first thought is like, World War II is the most studied fucking war in all of human history. The Holocaust is one of the most studied events in all of human history. You're telling me that not a single motherfucker thought that there wasn't enough room in the fucking showers to gas that many Jews? I don't believe it. No shot did nobody think that. But you, like the 22-year-old Nazi warrior on the internet, you know, white right 6969. You're the first guy that's thought that you calculated the space and there weren't enough Jews to fit in the showers. Like most of the claims that like, oh, the Holocaust didn't happen. Where are the Jews at? Where are the birth certificates? Like, if you really do want to dig through like all of the historical evidence and read authors from the time period, like people have explanations for all of these particular things. But the thing is, nobody really wants to do that reading. It's boring. And instead we get like the clips from a podcast or from a show, and it's like, oh my God, that's a good question. There weren't enough ovens to bake that many Jews. Holy shit. And then you just walk away from that thinking like the whole Holocaust has been disproven, I think.
That's so crazy because, you know, on another subject, I was thinking the same thing about slavery ships. I was like, I kind of questioned that, you know, a little bit. I was like, how the fuck do you bring, not like that, not putting it in those words, but I'm going to put it in those words. How do you bring your stock over here and kill 80% of it? You know what I'm saying? You rather kill 80% of it, you know what I'm saying, bringing it over here, boom, and then you have slavery. I don't think slavery ships like kind of actually existed as much as people say they did. You know what I'm saying? So you have those younger people like questioning the history and history books saying, you know, some of those things did not happen. You know what I'm saying? I think black people are already over here. So
you don't believe in continental displacement?
I mean, you know, to a certain extent. I mean, but I have to question it, right? I mean, just like, you know, some people question God.
Wait, are you a believer of ADOS?
I don't know what it is, but that sounded like a yes as soon as you said that.
What's it mean again?
American descendants of slaves.
Right.
So basically, essentially that
They were here.
Wait,
Right.
so you're saying
We
you
were
think
here.
that black people were already here before?
I think black people were already here before.
Have you
know
heard
what I'm
this?
saying?
this is
one
a
of
I
them.
mean,
this is a
yeah, I think black
widely
people were
held-
here before, you know what I'm saying? That's where you have the Mayan ruins, you have the different things like that, you know what I'm saying? Different culture. I think they just came over here, conquered, and then brought, you know, a few more people over here, a few more slaves
There's
over here,
definitely
but
a
not that
commonality.
not that crazy.
There is a commonality between indigenous people across the world, whether it be Aboriginals in Australia to the, you know, tribal people of
and Bahamas.
I mean, we're all
Correct.
human. I hope there's some commonalities, right?
Right. No, but as far as like the customs and the lifestyles of indigenous people across the world.
This is something that I'm always worried about, okay? If I'm talking to somebody in an area that I'm uneducated in, they could spin any tale they want for me, and they will be able to convince me of it, because I don't know the area, right? Somebody could come in here and tell me all sorts of historical facts about pre-history, pre-indigenous people in, like, South America, and I guess I would believe them, because I don't know anything about it. The thing I always try to be careful of is, like, I know that somebody could craft a narrative. If somebody's telling me something that seems to be contrary to what people commonly believe, I think at that point you kind of owe it to yourself. You really want to know the truth. You have to start diving into, like, different shows or podcasts or fucking Wikipedia things or libraries or whatever the fuck, because you have to be able to do the research. The one thing that I think, I'm not accusing you of doing this, maybe you do this, but I don't know, is somebody will tell me that, like, there's a popular event and I actually don't know if I believe, like, the official story. And I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. I don't know if I believe what happened in the Holocaust. Damn. Well, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, I don't know. I've done, like, a lot of research and it seems like the facts are questionable. And I'm like, well, what kind of research have you done? And then what they'll end up essentially doing is they'll name like 5 or 6 shows that are all in the business of selling that particular narrative. And it's like, well, yeah, of course they're all saying that. This is how they make their money. Why wouldn't they do that? I always get really irritated when people look at the mainstream media and they say, oh, those guys are just trying to make money selling you a narrative. And then they'll look at somebody like Tim Pool or Joe Rogan or whatever else, and it's like, not these guys. It's like, why wouldn't they be making money selling you like the opposite, right? People do that. So, yeah, I don't know. Anytime somebody gives me crazy ahistorical facts, I like, if there's a reason why they disagree, or if they disagree with like the vast majority of historians, I would be interested in exploring like how they disagree, not just listening to podcasts of people that say outlandish shit.
Yeah, because I definitely got that off Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Who was he interviewing that said that?
He was interviewing some black guy. I don't know his exact name.
Come
but I
on, T
definitely
Rell,
got that
bro.
shit. But it made it. It was like Nick. He was making an assumption. I mean, the history books sometimes are wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Hey.
Especially in schools right now, they're teaching us a bunch of bullshit.
I got
to
a
my
good one.
kids.
T Rell, tell Destiny about why you aren't vaccinated and refuse to get your kids vaccinated.
Oh no.
I refuse to have a vaccination just because I just think it's just, I don't know, because it's the history behind it, you know. And then I heard you talking about the Tuskegee thing and just the history behind black people being tested for different things and, you know, being the test dummy for different vaccinations and different experiments like that. We're just kind of hesitant on being vaccinated and being just the, you know, the experiment monkey out here. So, I mean, I think that's just me. I don't think that shit is real. I don't think it has enough information. I don't think you guys can formulate a vaccination that fucking fast and, you know what I'm saying, and have that much information on it to whether or not it's going to have any side effects for it or anything like that. I'm just weary of that shit.
Would you give your kids other vaccinations, or you just don't fuck with none of that shit?
And when I go to the hospital, when I've just recently, just for my last two kids, being in a hospital and them asking me, do I want these vaccinations? And then me asking what these vaccinations are for. I'm literally asking the nurses what these vaccinations are for. I'm like, what is this shit? What is it? What are you finna do? What does it cause? What is it keeping away? And some of the nurses literally don't know. Some of the doctors literally don't know. So, and then some of them say, okay, this is for hepatitis. This is hepatitis C. This is for this. And I'm like, okay, so does that like prevent them from getting hepatitis? No. I'm like, well, they don't need it. So it's just like so at this point, I'm just weary of the shit. So I'm like, I don't need it, you know, because I feel like it's just causing harm.
Oh man. Okay. So you think vaccines are not very effective? On a scale from 1 to 10, how strong is that opinion? Like, how confident are you that like vaccines are bullshit?
I'm gonna go at least an 8.
An 8. Okay. So you have a very strong feeling that vaccines are bullshit.
Yeah.
So then my question to you would be, well, firstly, do you feel like you have a reasonable opinion on it? Like you have a sound mind. It's not just an emotional reaction, but you've like thought through it and you're like, yeah, this is bullshit.
I haven't thought through it all the way, but I just
But
for some reason,
but you're still at an 8.
For some reason, I just feel like
He's just suspicious. This is kind
I'm
of like
just- yeah,
this
when you
is
feel
kind of his
suspicious-
answer to every question we're gonna ask him. Honestly, is that he's just kind of suspicious.
I mean, but if you take the vaccine and the vaccine is okay, we have the vaccine in America, and then they give you the vaccine, and then people are still dying, like okay, then I'm weary. You know, I'm just worried about it. Like I don't want to.
Would you not wear a seatbelt if people were still dying in car accidents?
I mean, the percentage of people wearing seatbelts, they die like they still
Significantly
die.
less,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but the percentage of people with vaccinations that have like serious complications have to go to the hospital or die is also way lower than the unvaccinated.
But actually, I don't know if those numbers are being exaggerated.
And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about us not knowing what to trust in the media, and there's just like this.
Sure,
I
but
don't
then so then here's like the next question that I have then, if we want to go that deep, right? So if you don't trust the media, why do you trust the people that show up on Joe Rogan?
I don't, but I questioned it though.
Yeah, but so you guys are all entrepreneurs, right? So there's a lie that people don't know until they get into the business world, right? Inaction or indecision is an action or is a decision, right? So when it comes to making a statement on something, you can't really be on the fence. For vaccinations, you either are or you aren't, right? So you've made a decision to be against it, right? So I feel like you can't just go through life being like, I'm undecided on all these things, because you have to make a decision, right? You can't be undecided on whether or not you want to wear a seatbelt or not. You either wear it or you don't. I feel like you have to do the same for like vaccines.
But hasn't facts come out that the vaccination or vaccines, they're proven not to help, you know what I'm saying? And there weren't like studies that were proven to like help our community, you know what I'm saying? But
here's the thing, it's kind of like what he said earlier. You could find data to support that theory, and you could find data to support the contrary. So that makes
what's the best argument for why getting vaccinated is a good idea for people who have this like suspicious attitude about it?
Well,
Because
Go hard, Destiny.
I feel like I have kind of maybe at certain points even like radicalized them more by being kind of a dick when we were having the
Yeah, I mean, you
argument
shouldn't
about
be a dick,
vaccines
right?
early on, which I regret. I wish that I had been a little bit more open to their concerns or whatever, and I never really know where exactly to go in terms of making the argument.
Well, the question comes from where the belief comes from, right? So, like, the belief comes from. So now that we've talked a little bit, right? If a belief comes from a distrust of the institutions, if I sit here and I'm like, well, this study says that, and that study says that, and Fauci said, like, they're not going to care because they mistrust the institutions, right?
Right.
So, but then the question that I always have for people that have a distrust in the institutions is, well, then who do you trust and why, right? Because if I look at like, here's like a little game that I can play kind of. This is a game that I play. When competing interests are recommending me the same thing, I usually think like, that's probably a really good idea because people that are totally different are recommending this, right? But when somebody's recommending something and then everybody else is like recommending against it, or I see like where the motivations are, it's like, okay, I can kind of understand, you know, what's going on. Like ExxonMobil, for instance, I believe they acknowledge anthropogenic climate change. So they believe that climate change is happening and it's human driven. And that's a fossil fuel company, ExxonMobil. If they're saying it, it's probably true.
Because
right?
it goes fundamentally against
Yeah,
their
I'm like,
business
holy shit.
model.
As a black man, I do not trust the white man for any information at all. And this
Well, but who
test,
is-
and this,
See,
and
this is a big hump to get past.
This is true for 600, 700 years. I do not trust you guys to give me any information for anything that you think is right for my community at all.
Yeah, but the guy that got you sold on the anti-vax talking points on Joe Rogan, was it a white man or a black man?
It was a black guy.
It
for
was
sure.
both.
no white.
I mean, but
'Cause I
Joe
think usually
Rogan, but
the
Joe
anti-vaxxers are
Rogan,
white.
but I mean,
black
but Joe
guy.
Rogan was kind of
Really?
like agreeing with him, and then and he was, the points were it was black and white. But
Okay.
if a white man comes to me and sells me something and tells me this is good for me, and comes to our community, and you guys are 4 white men, we like hell no, and it's been like that for so fucking long. Like, you can give me a list of facts of what you think is great for me. Like, well, you fucking take it. I'm not taking it. You know what I'm saying? You guys test it out first because you the test dummy. Because you don't have me in shackles now. I don't have to be the test
I had
dummy.
it, like,
You be the test dummy.
The week it came out.
But that's the thing. Yeah, the vaccine.
You had it the week it came out and your ass got sick.
Yeah, I got COVID, but I'm actually a great example because my girl got COVID when I had COVID. She wasn't vaccinated because she was breastfeeding or pregnant or whatever, and my COVID was like very minimal in comparison to her, where she still like has a hard time tasting food. Like
I had a
over
similar
year.
experience, too.
I actually know some people that got the vaccine and died.
Well, yeah,
I
that's.
know multiple people that got the vaccine and died.
Were they like old people in poor health, or are these?
Okay,
like,
so here we go with the old people.
I'm asking
Well,
you.
here,
Yeah,
well, no. This
I
is
just-
the easiest. That's
I
the
just
easiest
asked
one
you,
in the world.
were they?
Well,
yes.
I mean, yes, they were.
Okay.
I don't know if they were in poor health, but they were older.
Okay, so
if this vaccine has been given out billions of times, that's a big number, right? We don't deal with in the billions very often when it comes to people. Very rarely. Usually it's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds, maybe millions or hundreds of millions for large countries. But billions of people have gotten this vaccine. If it was causing people to drop dead, you wouldn't have to go to www.esotericvaccineinformation.com to find out. That shit would be headlining every fucking major story everywhere. And more importantly, what I said about the incentives earlier, if those vaccines were fucking people over, China and Russia, right, enemies of the United States, they'd be screaming that from the rooftops, right? They'd be talking about how the evil Americans have created these horrible vaccines that are killing people, but they aren't saying shit about it, right? When so many people in society, academia, government institutions, private company, other countries have come together and like, yeah, these vaccines are probably okay. I just can't imagine that information being, I mean, it might be wrong in the future, but it's not misleading. They're not lying.
it's definitely not part of a conspiracy to kill black people, right?
Well,
Yeah.
do you-
Which I feel like that's what you're suspicious of.
But
I
like,
mean,
do you
yeah.
feel like they were specifically targeting black people with that? Because it was kind of.
I mean, yeah, they were targeting black people because they said black people had the virus out of the most of any race.
because of
Well, 'cause weren't they
systematic conditions, like
There was
living
that,
in
and they were
worse
also not
areas
getting
and-
vaccinated a lot. Too.
Right, because there was such a cultural
Fuck outta
thing
here.
against it.
I'm gonna get the fuck out of here on y'all, man.
No, because there was like a big cultural thing against vaccination, and that's why you had people spending money on having fucking Juvenile do a pro-vaccination version of Back That Thing Up and shit like that.
How many are you vaccinated?
3 times.
How many times have you got COVID?
1 time.
How many times have you got COVID?
Once.
And you the fuck.
Perhaps twice. We don't know about that other time. I never tested positive, but I was pretty fucking sick.
And my one COVID was one day was like pretty shitty, like a bad cold, and then I had kind of like a dumb cough for like a week, but then I was fine. It was
What
just
about
like a
you?
1 day thing.
He got hit.
Yeah, I got hit for sure.
Bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Whole family.
Damn, what the fuck?
Whole family.
All non-vaccinated.
But it wasn't no vaccination out, dog. Like,
Oh, this is back in the
Oh,
day.
was
yeah,
it
this
back?
is
Okay.
back when it first
So
happened.
you were like first wave COVID.
yeah, it was first wave. After that, I was good. I mean,
But you could get it again.
it's very likely. Even if I'm vaccinated, you can get it.
Should I go get boosted?
Maybe.
Would your advice be to
I
go
can't
get
tell who
boosted?
the fuck you're looking at. Those sunglasses.
You, motherfucker.
Okay.
No,
Tell
I'll
him
take them off.
you too fucking cool for
Why
the
do you have
sunglasses.
why do you have sunglasses on
I'm
inside?
on
Where the
camera
fuck
all
is
day.
it?
These lights are bright as fuck.
Jesus
Fine.
Christ.
All
Well, why
right.
don't you look at us instead of the fucking lights?
All
then?
right,
Yeah,
all right.
be plugged in to your
God
fucking
damn it.
members.
I have to go, you guys.
He's getting too comfortable. He's reprimanding me.
Yeah,
Jesus,
All right.
I love you guys.
Oh,
It was
love you
nice
too,
talking
man.
to you.
Good luck,
you.
man.
Glad we
Use
were
the
able to
left.
get that in.
My hands fucked up, so use the left.
It's all
I love you
good,
guys.
T Rell.
Yes.
I'll hold it down for
This
the
was
for the
great.
black people.
I
In
might
your
get
absence.
educated a little bit more. I've never been to college. You know what I'm
The
saying?
fact that I'm going to get to
But,
read
yeah.
about you in the Destiny subreddit is going to be a wonderful experience. I cannot
no.
wait.
Y'all get me, man. I hung
jeez.
with Destiny just a little bit. He was looking at me crazy, like this nigga don't know what the fuck he talking about. But that's okay, man. I love you to
You
death,
might get
man.
some
I
girls
love
through
you.
this.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Hey, much love, dog. Appreciate you. All right. So next up on the panel.
Should I move?
No, you're good there. So basically, there's a YouTuber who I've seen make a couple of different videos with me in the thumbnail. He's a Christian YouTuber, and I was just watching a video he made about me and Abba's podcast last night, and it just dawned on me. It would be great to finally give this dude a chance to convert me to Christianity live on air with Destiny. So is it Ruslan or Ruslan? He's coming on down now. Ruslan. So everybody, we will link to his channel at some point. He's going to tell you what it is right now if you want to check out
Good to meet you, bro.
his catalog. But what's your channel called again?
Ruslan KD. If you
Right.
just search my name.
Okay. And so, yeah, he has very strong religious feelings. And
Well,
today
and-
he's going to help me find the Lord.
And I'll preface this by saying I'm Christian myself.
Ooh, I
and
didn't even know that.
Yeah, we've gotten into this
Oh,
before,
okay.
but I don't trust those Jordans very much to be honest, at all. Like,
They're
What?
real. They're real. I promise.
yeah, I just don't trust them. Like, what are those like Jordan 38s? Like,
Oh, my God. This isn't a
It's the
roast
14.
lush.
It's the 14.
I was just saying. All right.
Holy
14.
shit. Wow.
I
all
got
right.
the. I got
That was
the
an
goat
insult.
receipt.
I don't know anything about shoes. He's
See,
very
I don't
cool.
either.
Okay.
So, like, when they talk shit about Jordans and stuff, I'm kind of fucking lost. But there are, like, different levels to Jordans. I don't know. man.
You cutting it close with them 14s.
I watched a video of a dude that he's really careful. I guess you don't want to crease your shoes.
Yeah, so like whenever I like am taking a photo and I squat down, they'll be like, "How dare you do that to those shoes?" And I'm like,
I have
I'm
no
wearing
fucking
them.
idea. Yeah, holy
I'm
shit.
not gonna like not do something because the shoes might get damaged. Jesus. Anyway. Okay, so how should we break into this? How would you describe the mission of your channel?
The mission of my channel
Yeah.
is to.
And you've been doing this for a long time, right?
YouTube full time for 2 years.
Okay.
And then before that, I did music professionally from 2015.
Damn. Wait, what kind of music?
Hip hop, Christian hip hop. Yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
and-
Wait,
and-
like
and-
rapping or?
Independently, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I'm glad we didn't do the freestyle thing today.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
we would
you're
have
gonna
gotten
get
fucking
ate up.
destroyed.
We can do the
Oh my
freestyle
God.
thing later
No,
if you
we're
guys
not doing the freestyle thing. No, not if you're coming in. What? That's like a guy saying, like, do you want to box, celebrity box? You find he's got like 10 years of fucking history.
No, but you know what he's referencing is earlier we said, what if we do a whole podcast where there's a beat playing the whole
would be
time? So
hard.
the goal is to like rap the whole podcast.
Yeah. That'd be dope.
No, it wouldn't be.
Don't threaten
He's like a
me with
master
You
rapper.
can freestyle?
Don't threaten me with a good
Oh,
time.
He's a
on.
battle rap god. so
man.
just for the
That's
record,
dope.
he will
Respect.
fuck something up as well.
Respect. And he's a Christian, so this
Yeah.
is 2 on 2.
Hold on. What type of Christian are you?
City boys up.
What
He's a city
denomination?
boy
What
Christian.
denomination?
Okay, so my religious background's pretty interesting. So my mom was Catholic. My dad really didn't have any religion. My dad's grandfather was Jewish, but so he really wasn't raised with any religion whatsoever. It was never like bar mitzvah or any of that. And as soon as my grandparents got a divorce, the first thing my grandmother did was buy a Christmas tree. So there's like no religion on that side of the family. My mom's Catholic, Italian, and I grew up going to like Episcopalian school and things like that. I'm just pretty much traditional Judeo-Christian belief system, leaning towards Catholicism to a degree, but I don't really fuck with all aspects of it. But having gone through what I've gone through, being survivor of multiple near-death experiences, drug overdoses and things, and now almost 3 years clean and sober, continuous sobriety time, like
That's awesome.
born again, like hardcore Christian from spiritual experiences.
Word.
Gotcha. This
Word.
guy's 3 years sober. You're smoking weed in front of him. What the fuck?
Dude, they do.
He smokes Newports in front
But
of
that's
me.
the thing. But that's the thing. Because I'm spiritually fit, I'm able to be around whatever, and it doesn't faze me at all. Like, you could bust out some lines right now. Like, I know you want to. You could start, like, you feel me? Like,
No. We did before the show. Okay?
Yeah, right.
I would never do that on camera. Okay, Jesus.
and
Yeah.
it wouldn't affect me in the slightest.
Okay.
That's
Are you
awesome.
sure? We have
Yeah.
some really good stuff outside.
I promise. Go ahead.
I'm just fucking with you.
The
I'm sorry. That's
strawberry
fucked up.
flavored
Continue
cartel
talking
shit.
Go
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Azerbaijan, Baku. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of it. It's a little
Eurasia,
country in the Middle East, right off the Caspian Sea. We're north of Iran, and then Armenia, and then Turkey. So I'm ethnically Armenian.
Oh, okay.
And so I grew up under Soviet Russia, so Soviet Union, communism, the whole bit. And then when I was 6, me and my family came out here as refugees because of the pogroms of Baku. So massive persecution. This goes back to the Armenian genocide of 1915. We come out here, and the hub at the time is the Armenian Apostolic Church. Not sure if you guys are familiar. Armenians can trace back their lineage historically to Bartholomew, the Apostle Bartholomew. And so there's grave sites you can go to now. The disciple of Bartholomew, my buddy Arthur, just went. And so I grew up completely non-religious, and then like the community hub was the Armenian Apostolic Church, part of the Oriental Orthodox arm. So I'm just completely immersed. I get christened, I get baptized, I'm an altar boy, the whole bit. And then my mother and my father split up, and I'm, only child in San Diego in the 90s, totally different San Diego than now. And I ended up getting, molested by some of the older altar boys. So this completely like jacked up my whole view of God and religion. And so at age 10, 11, I'm like, there is no God. If there is a God, he hates me. Why would he allow this to happen to me? That's not in the picture. I get arrested at the age of 11 going into 6th grade, breaking into houses. I got, lost my virginity super early, 11, 12 years old, selling weed, just a whole bit. We moved to North County, and then like clean slate, fresh start. Everything changed. I started playing ball, and then that was plan A. I was going to be a professional basketball player, and then I discovered there had never been an Armenian that ever made it to the NBA. So if you count the Kardashians, we've taken more basketball players out of the NBA than we've
Damn.
And so,
Damn.
and
Who
so
said religious guys got no jokes? Wow.
And so anyway, so around high school, I met a girl. It's always a girl. Again, atheist. There's no God, but I'm on the straight and narrow now. I'm not smoking weed no more. I'm not partying. I'm just like basketball. And she was going to like an evangelical, seeker-friendly church, and went and skeptical for 2 years straight. 2 years straight. I got Muslim friends. I got Jehovah's Witness friends. I got Mormon friends. And I'm talking to this girl. And I was working at a Pizza Hut, and everybody around me was a Christian. And I was like, all right, I think I'm with this Jesus thing, but he's not God. And they recommended a book called The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell. So I kind of stepped into the faith through the side door of apologetics. It wasn't necessarily an emotional experience. It was more of like, man, if I look at the history and I look at what this means for me. And so I gave my life to Jesus, going into my senior year of high school, fully surrendered. Got plugged into a church, been at the same church for 20 years, been married for, it'll be 15 years this July. We got 2 kids, 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. She's 19 months old. And yeah, in 2015, I did music professionally, doing Christian hip hop, and did a little bit of stuff with, some different labels.
Let me
and
throw
stuff.
this out there. Is that so? I've read a bunch about like the sort of Christian metalcore world,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've kind of heard various accounts of that scene, basically saying that the vast majority of people in that world, that at certain points in time, it's just been like all marketing. They're not Christian in any like real way, and that they're basically, it was just a selling point. And I feel like a large percentage of people kind of left that community sort of disillusioned. Did you have anything like that through spending all this time around people who are like basically making money through marketing Christianity and music together?
Yeah.
Or?
Have you heard of As I Lay Dying?
Yeah.
So I went to high school with Phil, actually.
Oh,
And so
okay.
they're from the area that I'm from. I went to high school together, where the guy Tim got arrested at, that Barnes & Noble, that's 10 minutes from my house.
For trying to hatch a plot to have his wife killed.
Wife whacked. Yeah, crazy.
Insanity.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's a movie, dude.
and that I watched a YouTube video about it the other day, but that is a good example of like something that might disillusion you to Christian music, I guess.
Yeah. So in my experience, yeah, I mean, it's called deconstruction right now. Currently, it's very hot. A lot of folks are doing it, just kind of picking apart their faith, what parts they think make sense for them, what parts they don't. It's a lot of it is with creatives, people who are like professional Christians, if you will, where your income is attached to your faith.
Because that's got to create a lot of pressure to not
definitely
change your viewpoint or not question it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, definitely. And so thankfully, I mean, I was older when I, little bit of platform that I have now on my main channel, 240,000 subscribers, not super massive,
Whoops.
but like
I said 50 earlier. Sorry.
that's the second channel. You saw the
Oh,
second
okay,
channel.
okay.
That's the podcast channel. But
Got
yeah,
it.
so like thankfully that didn't come for me till way later. A decade married at the same church, like so I didn't explode in my 20s as some like professional Christian expert. Like this is all later. I'm 38, so I'm about to be 38 on New Year's Eve. So a little different than me, but yeah, it is. It's called deconstruction, deconversion. It's happening definitely.
Okay. So what would be your best argument for Destiny about how he should confront his atheism and switch it up?
The best.
How are we going to crack this off?
I watched the debate with you and a presuppositional guy that was pushing presuppositional apologetics. Very cringe. I don't adhere to that. I watched you debate.
What's the definition of that, presuppositional?
It's like any grounds of logical arguments you're making, you can't because you're standing on God's ability to give you logic and reason.
Okay.
And so it's like, it's kind of complicated. I probably butchered
That's going to be
that.
tough in a debate space,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so they were going in circles, kind of. I don't know if you remember this, Destiny, it's a couple years ago. And so I hold to pointing people to the resurrection. I think the resurrection is the best argument for the Christian faith. I think the resurrection is a historical event that split history in two. I think the secular historians would agree on a couple of points: that Jesus was crucified under Pilate, that the tomb was empty, that the women found the tomb empty, that they told the disciples, they were convinced, and the brother of Jesus, James, became a Christian.
You don't believe in Latter-day Saints, though, do you?
No. So I think the resurrection, the historical event of the resurrection, to me, I look at that through the lens and I say, if the resurrection happened, then what Jesus said is reliable and true. And then I say, okay, let's look at church history. Again, I'm Armenian apostolic, so I didn't grow up as that. So like we could trace our lineage back to guys who were martyred for the faith. Some people may die for something they don't know is a lie. It's very crazy to like know this guy, quote unquote, faked it and be willing to die for a lie. I think that's a very dumb reason for anybody to know Jesus wasn't really who he claimed he was, but I'm going to allow myself to be martyred. It doesn't make any sense logically. So I think those things, Bart Ehrman, most New Testament scholars agree on those facets. The tomb was empty. The disciples were convinced that he rose to the point where they were all willing to be martyred. And then it sparked this international, multi-ethnic movement that is still around today across more continents than any other religion, the biggest religion, and people can testify to miracles and all kinds of stuff. And my life, to me, is really a miracle, not in a raw sense, but I would say the resurrection of Jesus, I think, is in my opinion, the most strong argument.
Destiny, thoughts?
I feel like I've inhaled a little bit too much of your fucking smoke. I feel like a lot of it's starting to
That'll
hit me.
help.
The Lord preserved the contact high for me, so
That'll help you.
I didn't catch it.
What if we were in the year 50,000? Would you still feel the same?
Yes,
What if it was the year 500,000?
I would still feel the same.
Okay, I feel like it's been a long time since Jesus died.
Yeah, it's been a long time, 2,000 years.
I feel like people thought he was going to come back a little quicker.
His disciples definitely thought it was going to happen quicker. Yeah, that's fair.
What if the sun blows up
What if?
and he's still not here?
What if?
I feel like trying to base my whole life around a contested historical event 2,000 years ago is not the way to go.
I mean, you got to define contested. Like, how do you contest it?
As in, there's not widespread agreement that there was a resurrection that took place. I'm not even sure if there's 100% agreement on the tomb being empty or not. But I mean, we can think of a lot of reasons why a tomb would be empty. It doesn't involve a guy coming back from the dead. But
So what would they do? What they do with the body?
damn, I don't know. They could have done a lot of things. So you'd have to ask the guys that hid it.
So they hid the body, and then all his blood brother all of a sudden starts believing is God. I don't know.
Were they doing DNA tests back then? I don't know what blood.
I mean,
brother
James is the brother of Jesus. He was one of the early apostles. He's one of the early guys that was around. He was not a follower and a disciple during his lifetime. We can talk about Paul if you want to talk about Paul. Paul is a guy that was a
all I'm saying is that,
historical
like, I
figure.
understand that, like, we have, like, these historical figures, but I'm just saying that, like,
I'm referencing secular history, by the way. I haven't even cited the New
I'm just
Testament.
saying it's been a long time.
Sure.
I don't see God doing much today. I know miracles were a lot more common before, like, the iPhone came out and people could start recording shit. And I wouldn't feel compelled that, like, I'm going to live my life an entire way because of an event that happened 2,000 years ago. It's just a long time. There's just nothing that's happened that's very compelling.
Have you heard of Dr. Craig Keener?
No.
He just did a whole book about modern miracles, like documenting modern miracles.
Can you give me one or two?
People walking that couldn't walk. I got a friend who had a rare form of leukemia. Our worship pastor, Pastor Travis, he's out in Texas now, had a rare form of leukemia, mutated, and it changed into a form of leukemia that's non-lethal. He takes a pill for the rest of his life. He's fine. He's had more kids. He hasn't lost. He's not impotent. He's chilling. So I could give you a lot, but I don't think miracles have to exist to argue for Jesus being God.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I find some of the miracles unconvincing is, like, you ever do the thing where you're looking out the window and you're driving and you're like, if the next car is black, then, like, Jesus is real, or, like, dumb little things like that. You ever do shit like that, or, like, you're praying as a kid?
I personally don't.
Oh, maybe. Okay, wait, you said you grew up non-religious?
Yeah, I grew up non-religious. I grew up an atheist.
I grew up religious, and I thought of, like, dumb little things like that all the time. Like, if this happens and I know God is real, like, dumb shit, because I grew up Catholic.
I mean, I'm talking about physical healings, though. You know, like,
yeah,
that's,
but
that's
I mean,
some
like,
gnarly stuff where you
there's
know
a lot
someone
of
that,
well,
you know.
but that's what I'm saying. We don't know. There's a lot of, like, people that wake up from comas, people whose cancer becomes non-lethal, people like a lot of these things happen.
What do you say when doctors say this is a miracle?
I don't know if doctors are qualified to say it's a miracle, but I mean, the doctor could be religious. But
What if it's not a
just,
religious doctor?
the problem is that, like, there's going to be rare events that happen in life. Why would I ascribe all of those to God when I have no way of knowing?
Yeah, I don't think it's about knowing. Like knowing is a form of certainty. The faith is a confidence spectrum.
Yeah,
So
but
I
it's
have,
confidence in what? Like, let's say a guy has cancer and then the cancer disappears. Why the fuck would I attribute that to God?
if they prayed for it to disappear in the name of Jesus, and then
What if
it
what if I
disappears.
could show you that? What if I could show you that 100 people in the past year that prayed to God had their shit cured, but 105 prayed to Allah and their shit was cured? Are you going to switch religions based on, like, the outcome of that study, or?
As far as I know, and this is not me speaking on behalf of all Christians or all facts or whatever, I personally, I haven't seen any healings in the name of Allah.
You don't think
Personally.
there's been?
I'm saying I'm ignorant to it, if I'm being fully transparent, but I haven't
Okay.
seen any.
I'm sure there must be people that claim there's been some, right?
I mean, I guess we could look it up, but I haven't seen of any, or I haven't heard of any, and I'm fairly familiar with Islam.
Does Allah? Okay, hold on. Does Allah do miracles? I'm not actually sure.
I think he has the capacity in that world to do miracles.
Well, because God is like that's like one of his, like, bullet points.
Sure.
Like, does miracles. I don't know if Allah does miracles.
Like, if they even expect that.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, that might be, like, a thing that he just doesn't fuck with.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
Every
if we're-
deity gets down in their own personal way, right?
Well, with that being said, then it'd be unlikely if you don't get down like that, then you're not going to be hearing of
Well, yeah,
instances,
shit. That's
like-
what I'm saying. Fuck.
Yeah.
Because now I don't know if I can do that study. I fucked myself.
Yeah, I mean, again, so I don't think it's a binary believe or don't believe. I think it's a confidence spectrum. I think there's
Oh, okay.
enough in history that
I'm
on
at
a confidence
a
spectrum.
0.1% confidence then. I'm not
Respect.
buying
So I got you from a 0 to a 0.1.
No, I was
That's a
already
W.
there.
You're already there. Okay.
I
Okay.
actually was at 0.15, and now you've
Yeah.
got me down to 0.1. So
Yeah, so
you've
I,
moved me down.
I guess I say all that to say, like, I think anyone that objectively goes and examines the resurrection, and there's been movies done about this, there's been books
I
written
saw The
about
Passion of the Christ. It's good.
this. No. Case for Christ.
Historical documentary. Okay.
Case
I
for
got it.
Christ, Lee Strobel. I don't know if you guys have ever heard it. It's a book written by investigative journalist.
We were listening to the podcast on the way to Pan Express.
That was Sam Harris.
Oh, no.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like spirituality, which is not mutually exclusive with religion, do you feel like it's more of an intrinsic feeling than it is based on any type of logic?
I think it's both. I think it's and both. Yeah, I think there's definitely, if I were to go to my feelings, that would be more of a subjective argument. I can't prove my feelings to anyone, but I could reason in logic around historical events that have rocked history and changed everything, and I think added a massive net positive for good. In my personal life, absolutely. I mean, there's all kinds of, you have kids, right? You have one kid?
Yeah.
So, like, I remember sitting down with my girlfriend at the time and getting this sense, not an audible voice like outside of me, but internally, like, this is your wife, right? Like hearing that. And now 15 years later, we have 2 kids. and humans were created in this bizarre like butterfly effect, right? That when you look at a birth, when you look at other humans coming into existence, like that to me is a miraculous moment, you know, having kids.
Wait,
But on the back of sensing, and again, I'm not speaking in absolutes, but in the back of sensing this is your wife, whether it was me or God or I don't know, but she's now my wife 15 years
Yeah, but like maybe
later,
like,
and we live a pretty awesome
but like
life.
maybe that just happened, right?
Maybe.
One time I did LSD with my wife. Okay, she was my girlfriend at the time, and we were laying on the floor, and she's like, "I bet our brains are so connected. I bet you could speak Swedish or some
You
shit."
guys telepath. That's
Yeah,
dope.
because we're both high on acid. And I'm like, okay, fucking shoot, try it. And she's like, älskar dig. And I'm like, I think you said I love you. And she's like, oh my God, I did. And I was like, okay. But it's like,
It
now,
just happened. I hear you.
I can look at that as
You
it,
got
like,
that from Ace of Base. Don't lie.
what? I've never seen that show before. I don't know what that is.
No,
Is there like a
they're-
Swedish?
They're a Swedish pop band from.
Oh,
back
I
in
have
the
no
day, yeah.
idea. But all I know is that like now I could go back and say, oh my God, we were both on acid. I think our brains connected. I think there was a shit. Or I could say we're both laying in the floor. We love each other. If I could say one thing to my wife, oh, we're high, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love you. Yeah, that makes sense, right? That's probably more what happened.
Well,
right?
Destiny, do you believe in a divine intelligence or anything?
Fuck no.
Okay.
Destiny, I got a question for you.
Ask
Could
away.
you steel man an argument for God, for the
I
existence
did. Yeah,
of
I
God?
was Catholic for fucking 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me your best steel man argument for the existence of God.
I mean, there's the teleological, the cosmological. There's all sorts of different. I mean, which one?
What's your favorite one?
Well, none of them because I'm atheist.
But if you have to say, man, this is a good argument for the existence of God, what would it be?
What do you think?
This is what you're here for, man. I'm not ready for this shit.
Have you? It's a bullshit analogy, but it's very compelling. Have you ever heard of the clockmaker analogy?
If you find a clock in the middle of the
Yeah,
woods.
let's say I show you a stopwatch, okay, a pocket watch. It's a very finely tuned pocket watch, okay? I twist it, it works, keeps track of time, got a quartz mechanism inside. Let's say that I put this watch in a bag, okay? Tie the bag up and I get a hammer and I break the fuck out of it, okay? And I ask you, how many times can I shake this bag to get a fucking watch out of it? And a reasonable person will say, well, you're never going to shake the bag and get a watch out of it. And I go, okay, well, then how the fuck did the Big Bang produce everything that you see in front of you today? You can't shake the bag and get even a watch out. How could you shake up the universe and get fucking humanity?
Yeah, that's called a fine-tuning argument.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's
Yeah.
a horrible argument.
Why
But
is
it
it-
sounds compelling.
But I mean, that Richard Dawkins would agree with you. Richard Dawkins recently in a debate it wasn't really a debate, but a conversation with Francis Collins said that he thinks the fine-tuning of the universe, which is what you just described, is a good argument for the existence of God. It could take him from being an atheist to
you
a
fall
deist.
into it's just a lot of logical traps, it's pitfalls because your brain's not equipped to think about these types of things. Here's like the most apt analogy.
Okay.
Or there's two huge issues. Is that one, the stopwatch, maybe it was always there.
So intelligently designed things like the human body, the human eye, DNA.
It doesn't have
can
to be
just
a design.
be there.
Doesn't have to be intelligence. It could just be a thing that appears because it's the only thing that could be there, right?
Is there anything like that in the universe that's just there? Like, can you point to anything that's just there?
I could say that, like, for instance, there are math analogies that escape me right now. But if you look at like a lightning strike, like when you look at a lightning strike, would you say that the lightning carved a very particular path out in the sky? Or would you say it followed like the next charge down and it took the only path that it could have taken, right? The issue is that creationists will look at a lightning strike and they'll say that's the only way the lightning could have been, therefore it must have been intelligently designed. But the reality is that the universe could look potentially a billion different ways. It happens to look the way that it looks now, but who's to say that it couldn't have been different, right? It's like looking at a puddle of water on the ground and saying, what are the chances that that particular puddle fits that hole precisely? Notice how it fits every single curve. It's like, well, yeah, of course. It's a puddle of water. It could only ever be that way.
So humans are a puddle of water. Everything is random and we're here by chance. And we're just kind of floating through space and time made up of little stars.
Hold on there.
That is kind of what you said.
I mean, that's right?
Not at all what I said.
Okay, so break it
Played a
down. So,
tricky
and
word.
I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to straw man you. That's
No,
why I'm
that's
clarify,
okay. We
please.
used a tricky word there.
What is it?
Okay, just because something was designed doesn't mean that the alternative to that is random.
Okay, give me
There's
give me
nothing-
another alternative to the
Well, sure.
opposite
I'm
of
saying that,
design.
like, if I roll a rock down a hill, it might be hard for me to know exactly where it goes, but the path it takes is not random, right?
But you still rolled that rock. They were still forced to make the rock stand at the top of the hill to go down the hill. The rock just didn't roll itself down the hill.
Damn, you're testing the limits of my analogy. I was giving it, but I mean, like in my analogy for the universe, I would say that the hill is infinitely long. It was always rolling.
And so it was always rolling.
Yeah,
And so does the universe ever have a beginning?
Damn, I don't know the answer to that.
It does.
Does it?
It does.
I don't know if I mean, the
does.
universe as we know it, arguably 13.8 billion years ago or whatever, 14.3 billion, came from the Big Bang. I don't know what existed before the Big Bang, though.
God.
Well, but you don't know that.
I'm convinced of it.
But you weren't there.
Neither was you.
Yeah, but I'm the one saying I don't know. You're the one saying you do.
Well, you're saying
I don't even
that
know if the Big Bang
you
happened. That's
say-
just what cosmological.
Sure, but you're saying that you're not saying you're an agnostic. You're saying you're an atheist.
Because agnostic is for losers.
You picked a side.
Every reasonable person is agnostic. Any atheist
Sure.
should be able to say, if you show me proof of the existence of God, yeah, I'll fucking believe in God. And I think I would.
You would.
Hopefully.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we could change your mind. Adam.
But but I'm just saying that like that, the design argument, like things could look a million ways, and there's flaws with the human body too. To even say it's intelligently designed maybe doesn't even make sense, right? Like, if you hold like a little sign with a dot here and you go back and forth, you've got like a blind spot in your eye, right?
Yeah.
That's because the optic nerve bundle in the back, it like tucks through in an area when it should have been growing out the back. That's just like a flaw in the design, but it's because our eyes evolved from other things that have the nerves coming.
So there's
through.
utility for that design.
No, there's no utility. It's just bad designing, right?
Interesting.
And there's a lot of like weird nerves that I'm not gonna remember the name of it, but we have a nerve that runs some part in our head down here and then loops back up. But if you look at like a giraffe, the nerve is so fucked because it goes through the neck that the nerve goes all the way down and back up for no fucking reason, right? And why do we have pinky toes? Do we really need these things? Do you need it to keep balance? Do you need it to keep balance? I don't know, man.
For
I'm not
basketball?
sure.
For people with foot fetishes,
Do you need all 5 toes? Every
Apparently.
one is important.
allegedly.
Adam, can I ask you a question?
The fifth is the clincher. Yeah.
It seems like you've kind of softened on this conversation. When I first reacted to your clip on Vlad,
I
you were
heard
very
you say
like,
this. Okay.
you were very like, oh, religion is BS. And now, like your Abba interview, your stuff with Sneako, which I
heard you say
love.
this last night, and I felt you were kind of misrepresenting what I was saying.
Okay, so
'cause
that's why I'm asking.
What I was actually saying was just, I see a way where most religious people, it's probably a net positive thing in their life. Now, you can point to like all kinds of like different countries all over the world where maybe that's not the case, but at least for the average American, when they say that they're Christian or they say that they pray, they say they have a relationship with God, I think that that's very unlikely that there's anything negative coming from that. And so as a result, the vast majority of the time, like with T Rell, he's Christian, Lush is Christian, I'm probably never going to engage them in the conversation of like, oh, I don't believe in God, let's fucking talk about it, just because I don't really feel like that's an important conversation for us to necessarily have. Now, if they wanted to like have a debate or wanted to engage on that, that's fine. But it's not something that I feel like is the biggest problem that we're facing as a country. And I do think that it probably plays a pretty important role in a lot of people's lives, even though I think that it's ultimately rooted in nothing.
But what I'm saying is, it seems like you've kind of softened on from where you were in that Vlad interview, which.
But what did I say in that
You
think
said
is contradictory to that?
You said religion is BS, and
Right.
that was the part that
That is how I feel, yeah.
But the thing is, like, look, like, obviously, there's no empirical evidence either way. We could just go around in circles for hours, and we're not going to come to any logical conclusion. But for me, it's not necessarily about that. Like, I'm engaging in suspension of disbelief at the end of the day, and I know that's like kind of an odd phrase when talking about belief systems. However, like, to me, it's more about a moral compass and just a set of ideology to kind of guide as a set of parameters for
create
how to
guardrails to live life.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Like,
Yeah. So that's why I said.
does that make sense though, Destiny? Like,
Absolutely.
It sounded like from it's BS to I see a net positive. That sounds like
I
a
still think it's
contradictory.
BS, like in terms of the likelihood of it being true. I'm just saying that I think for most people, they don't really get anything negative out of it. And for instance, like one thing that if you were to ask me when I was 15 or 16 why I was adamantly anti-religion, I would have said, well, I'm very much in favor of gay people having all the same liberties as straight people, and it seems like the vast majority of Christian people are very much against gay marriage and stuff like that. And that would have been one of the things I would have hung my argument on. And that's probably like a lot less true now, where probably a much larger percentage of people who describe themselves as Christian would now say that they're in favor of gay marriage, or at least would not have anything in particular negative to say about gay people. So that's a way in which I feel like society has changed religion. Like, for instance, when I've spoken to my mom about religion, I asked her one time, when you were a kid, if you said that you were a Christian, was it expected that you believed in a literal heaven and hell? And she said, yes, absolutely. If you didn't believe in a literal heaven and hell, you weren't religious. And I think that probably the majority of Christians in America right now would not tell you that they actually believe that you're going to burn in hell if you die and you're not Christian. And in particular, the idea that like people of other religious faiths are going to burn in hell for not being of the same religious faith. And those aren't aspects of Christianity. Those are aspects of, or ways in which society has, and secularism has dulled down Christianity to the point where I don't consider it very dangerous now, because I think it's so far removed from what it was a couple hundred years ago for the
you're
average
talking
person.
about fundamental Christianity, which is way different than just,
Yeah,
right.
because all respect due, I feel like your version of Christianity is very much like, yeah, be good to everybody and everything will be all right. Him, you have this like very analytical approach to it, where you like have all these different examples, and you're very much invested in the details of it. Where it was with Lush, I feel like you're kind of like more like AD, where it's like, I believe in God, I have a relationship with God, it feels good, but you're not like actively like investigating it and learning
I
about it
hope
the same
all
way,
that
right?
shit's real. Like I hope.
Yeah,
I don't, you know what I mean?
Very
Like,
optimistic Christianity. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
to his point, like you said, to
Faith.
Sneako, which is how it started this, you said, which I 100% agreed with. If God is real, it would be the most important question to deal with. Could I have a water too?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh man, thank you. So I think you're right, and I think the Christian community was like, yeah, Adam's onto something with regards to that. I think if we're talking about the net positive, I think it's fair to say that if people lived the way Jesus prescribes in the New Testament, it would be a massive net positive to society across the board. The majority of our social issues would be solved. The majority of fatherlessness would be solved. The majority of STDs and STIs would be solved if people lived in the prescription of the New Testament and the book of Proverbs and all these different things. And so I think, am I tracking along? Is that kind of what you're getting at in terms of like, this is a good, because when I examine the words of Jesus, it's actually good.
I mean, if just like an overall sense that you shouldn't do bad things because then when you die, something very, very bad is going to happen to you. If everybody was just sort of like living life by that notion, which that in itself is like just this one tiny part of what I think it is to be a Christian, then yeah, of course that would be a good thing. And so I'm just not likely to like really engage people on that, because I don't really think that there's that much benefit to gain from questioning a bunch of people's religious beliefs. In particular, when, I'm in this group chat with Lush and AD and T Rell, etc. Large percentage of them will claim that they're Christians. It never comes up. We never talk about it. So it's like,
we talk about it now, though.
yeah, but it doesn't really come up. So it's like I would have to kind of really go out of my way to be arguing with AD about religion, because as much as he says he's religious, it just doesn't really come up.
And like the thing is, like it's difficult for me to speak intelligently about something that I feel on an emotional level and believe like intrinsically, and there's no real, it defies all logic and reason that I had previous, but I also in my heart of hearts know that I'm not here due to just happenstance, and there's no reason I should be here, and there's obviously greater forces at work, or else I wouldn't be. And that's what I feel intrinsically. Now, there's probably a million arguments of why that's illogical, of why that, makes me not intelligent or this or that. But I still believe it with every fiber of my being.
My whole thing is that like,
Not that I claim to know anything, though. You feel me?
The last 6 years of my life have been a pretty improbable success story, and I just feel absolutely no desire to ascribe that to any sort of like supernatural thing. I feel like it was, a lot of hard work, good luck, but ultimately, like even that, I don't believe in free will. I don't believe that I can like take credit for even the greatest things that I've accomplished, really. I'm like very lucky that I guess I was born the kind of person who would be able to do some of those things. But the idea that I would like be giving credit to this God who has never revealed himself to any way. I mean, it's just like a real stretch for me to like be expected to have that kind of assumption about.
Have you ever asked God or Jesus to reveal himself to you? Like, hey, God, if you're real, please reveal yourself to me.
I mean, maybe when I was like much younger, to be honest with you, like I always just kind of like assumed I was religious my whole life up until I was like 12 or 13. And then I met a kid and he handed me the Satanic Bible and he said, God is not real. And I read that shit and ultimately don't agree with all that much in it. But, the ultimate thing of like the idea that like, oh, there are other people out here who just believe that there is no God, that was really important to me, and then that set me off on a journey of just like reading every other atheist text I could find, and you know, that just sort of ultimately like cemented me further and further into it.
All right. I think I would encourage you to re-examine the resurrection and be open to it. I mean, if you're really open, we talk about being open-minded, you know, I would say, hey, what do you have to lose to say, hey, Jesus, if you're real, reveal yourself to me and look at.
But what would that look like? Like, how would that happen? Because I feel like I am the kind of person where if anything seemingly supernatural were to happen, I mean, I definitely consider myself open-minded in that sense. But I mean, where is it? It's
You
just
should
not
flip
really.
a coin
Yeah.
5 times in a row, and if 5 times in a row it lands on heads, you should ask God to guide every single flip.
I think what you're describing earlier is Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas would call it natural law or common grace, meaning that like God's created a universe where someone like Adam 22 could see a need in the marketplace, create product and value, and build this incredible empire you have as no jumper, right? That's building on something that I think, whether it's destiny adding a value, which by the way, I love your takes on politics. You know, I think he's brilliant. Like that's outside of their God needing to miraculously give you material blessings. Like if you put in work and you solve problems and you provide a value to people like you do, you're going to reap rewards with building a massive successful YouTube channel. That's different than having an encounter and a relationship with Jesus and saying, I'm going to place my faith, a confidence spectrum in Jesus, that he is who he says he is.
What about that he's built a lot of his stuff off of immorality and being a cultural parasitic leech on some of the more toxic aspects of society?
First John says...
He has a podcast where he fucks people that goes on it.
We interviewed them.
heard
in
of
that
it.
episode.
I bet Jesus
Plug
would
Talk.
hate that.
Yeah.
Destiny fans, only plugtalk.com.
So-
You sure Jesus would hate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jesus said, you know,
what did he say about Adam's
if you
show?
lust
Yeah.
if you lust at a woman lustfully, if you look at a woman lustfully, you've committed adultery in your heart, right? So
What if you and your wife are looking at?
I'm not just doing it in my heart. I'm actually doing
yeah,
it right
he's
in front
actually
of my
doing
girl.
it. But check this out. But the interesting thing is that it's not just him physically doing it. If anyone's lusting, if it says if you hate your brother, you've committed murder. If you let nothing unwholesome come out of your mouth, the standards of Jesus is substantially higher than well, he's an adulterer. Like everyone's guilty. Everyone is deserving of justice for their sin.
I have a question. How would you prefer that Christianity play out in society? Like, do you believe that this is a Christian nation? Like, if possible, would you make pornography illegal? Like how deeply do you feel like Christian values should be embedded into American society?
Sodomy, by the way, is no-go, and that includes oral sex. So
I'm
just letting
fucked.
you know.
Sodomy is not.
I gotta-
not oral sex.
I
Wait,
gotta.
are you sure? I'm almost
positive.
I thought
100%
sodomy
positive.
was
No.
non-penetrative, non-vaginal sex.
No, it's anal sex.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's definitely getting
Jamie,
this video
hey,
demonetized.
Sodomy's
can I get a
anal,
fact
right?
check on that? I need a fact check on that. No shot.
Where's Jamie?
Who's the Jamie here?
Josh would technically be the
Josh.
or actually Riley right now.
Riley.
No.
Is Riley in our ears right
I
now?
don't want to necessarily
So,
put that pressure
I've definitely
on him,
put it in some girls' butts before too, like to keep it a stack. Like,
Okay, well,
So-
you're fucked regardless, okay?
like,
So your question was, how should Christianity engage? Well,
Yeah,
there was a
like-
two-part question. Is this a
Christian nation, and to what extent should like Christian values be embedded into our government and our legal system and whatnot?
I think it's influenced by Christian principles. I don't think we're in an exclusively Christian nation. I don't think it's a theocracy. I think pornography is one of those things where we would have to examine, like, is it a net positive for society? Even in the modern OnlyFans version of it, right? Like, what's it doing to people's brains? You're not going to find a lot of psychologists, therapists saying, yay, this is good for young men's brain to watch Adam 22 smash girls.
We got to do more
Ooh.
research.
Right? No. I mean,
You haven't done enough research yet?
I feel like porn is a very beneficial relationship in my life.
I don't in your life, but
Yeah.
like from a macro standpoint, I don't think you're going to find any empirical evidence to suggest that porn is a net positive for young men's brains. If anything, it's the opposite. It's
I think a lot of young men cheat significantly less as a result of porn.
I think it's the opposite.
But I think young
it's the
young
opposite.
people in general watching porn is a big problem that society should probably address at some point. I think it's the kind of thing that at some point probably needs to happen in the sense of just like having more regulation about how difficult it is to access porn online. Although actually, when I think about how that might work logistically, I all of a sudden question it because I don't know if it could actually happen in some practical way.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that like young people becoming desensitized to extreme sexual shit online is a big problem, regardless of how we're going to approach lessening that.
I appreciate you. I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I
that
mean,
means a
it
lot.
would be naive to like ignore the number of people I've seen talking about how they eventually feel like just super desensitized, to, like normal.
Well, but
sex.
then again, that if you stigmatize it too much, because it's about finding a balance. Because if you stigmatize that too much, and then it becomes something that's like you could push people in the other direction, and like they think sex is something dirty,
Yep,
and then
yep.
like
That's what purity culture did. That's what a lot of purity culture did. But to your point, I sat down with Joshua Broome. He was like the top porn star for 2012. He won all the awards. He was booming, right? And I sat down with him, and I'm friends with Exodus Cry. Not sure if you heard of Exodus Cry. They're anti-human trafficking, and so I've had both of
Me
these
as well.
conversations.
I was gonna say I just want to be on the record as an anti-human trafficker.
yeah,
Respect. So
that's a movement I can get down with.
so
Sorry, go ahead.
sitting down with Josh, and I asked him, like, do you think OnlyFans has made anything better? And he said, if anything, it's made trafficking worse. And so the people on the ground, whether it's Exodus Cry working with folks in this community, are saying, no, porn is directly correlating to what it's doing in regards to trafficking. You got OnlyFans managers now. I mean, this is not something that is without consequence and in the vacuum, right? And so the leading experts in those anti-trafficking movements are saying, no, it's not a net positive. It should not be legal, according to the experts with human trafficking. That's what Exodus Cry and that's what Josh Broome just said.
But what
Just,
shouldn't be legal?
like porn is not a net
OnlyFans.
positive.
I mean, I don't know. I like I was saying before, I think I have like a big bias when it comes to porn because I'm just around a ton of, young independent women making an absurd amount of money off of OnlyFans, and they get to live these lives where they seem pretty happy and content, and I mean certainly a lot happier than they probably would be if they had an office job, and they get to bang a relatively small amount of guys. A lot of these girls, they're just banging their boyfriend. They're totally happy doing it. They don't really have any issues associated with it. So then I hear stuff like, oh, actually OnlyFans is making human trafficking worse, or like whatever, and it's just like, I don't know. That's like a
Have you
super
never heard
foreign
of anyone
version of it to me.
getting trafficked?
Well,
No.
first of
not-
all,
not involved with
the
OnlyFans.
definition of human trafficking has changed.
Yes, it has.
Because now it includes
Pimping.
and pandering, which is no longer
Shout out Almighty Suspect.
it's no longer a crime, and now it's all considered human trafficking. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, and I mean no disrespect by this, but didn't Jesus have a prostitute as his girlfriend at one point?
Jesus never had a girlfriend.
Or like Mary Magdalene, wasn't it? Yeah.
Those are some like
there was
DLC Bibles. They didn't actually make the main book. They ruled out those extra gospels.
it's the Gospel of Thomas that was
Yeah.
not in the
Okay.
Gnostics for good reason.
Nobody
but,
liked that.
No, Jesus had folks that followed him. There were prostitutes, there were tax collectors, there were sinners, there were wild,
But he
wild
wasn't
folks.
fucking him. Okay.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't doing that. Thank you,
Now
Destiny.
Muhammad, on the other
Appreciate
hand,
you, appreciate you, my
Well,
man.
that's a whole
Muhammad
different.
was on some
That's
other
a different
shit,
can of
okay?
worms
Who
right
wants to
there.
open the Mohammed can of worms?
We not finna
Let
do
me just
that.
say, if that guy was talking about his relationships today, he would be banned on YouTube. Okay,
You'd be the Mr. Girl
Yeah,
at that time.
yeah. That's just.
he would be gonzo.
Okay. All right. I wanted to throw this out there.
Oh, jeez.
One of the other things you reacted to like me and Sneako having this conversation about religion in general, and my take on sort of like red pill manosphere
Yeah.
Christianity was just that like basically it's a very self-serving thing, and
Yes.
like you see them, a lot of them are really kind of gravitating towards the more misogynistic elements of religions as almost like a justification for it. Do you agree with that? And how do you feel about like me even calling out Sneako, saying that he has like a fucking unexamined version of Christianity, which I believe he actually reacted to, although I didn't watch it, so I still have to decide if I have to whoop his ass or not.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I think
Just kidding.
You should. I mean, regardless.
I think it was an accurate assessment. I think a lot of your assessments with Sneako and
That he should whip his ass.
No.
I love your fight
don't.
videos the most. I
I
saw
don't.
the gun one. I saw
Yeah?
the fighting in the studio. So yeah, more of that shit.
I haven't seen
That's
any
one
of
of our
them.
genres, fight videos.
Yeah, the fight video is awesome, dude.
Hashtag fight videos.
I know that if YouTube goes down, I can still catch your shit on World Star. So it's all
Thug
good.
talk.
Did it make its way to World Star? I gotta check.
I don't even know. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I think you pointing that out is a solid take. I think you repeatedly pointing that out is a solid take. I think I was telling Destiny off air. I debated Rollo Tomasi on Valuetainment. He's the self-proclaimed Godfather. I read 2 of his books. And so I think there's a lot of problematic things with their ideology with regarding to how they view women and in the counterintuitive nature to where they're driving men to avoid marriage, which I think is one of the best things people could have is a solid nuclear family. I think we could all agree a nuclear family is optimal for human flourishing, Christian or not Christian. And so I think the content is absolutely, it's like faux deep, not really driving people to optimal relationships, healthy standards. It's encouraging men to drive their notch counts up. It's encouraging men to sleep with girls promiscuously, which is ultimately adding to the problem to everything that's going on. The more partners somebody has before they get married, the more likely they are to get divorced. This is per the CDC. And so you're spot on with that assessment, you know, and again, I could go deep. I've went back and forth with Rollo. He doesn't want to do a part 2 of our debate, unfortunately.
Damn, what a bitch.
You said it. You said it. Destiny said it. I love you, Rollo.
I only know Rollo because I was here at Academics calling him out.
I only know that guy
Act
because every time I'm on
is
a
not
show,
like Rollo.
He is so active in chat. This dude follows me on every fucking show.
Rollo?
Yeah, he types shit.
gotta check him
And then
out.
I'm always like, oh, dude, we should have a
We should have
debate.
him on.
It's tight that there's people in the audience who think that we're talking about Rollo, the Atlanta
rapper,
drug
yeah,
rap
free
king.
Rollo. Free Rollo.
No, not that guy. Hold
No,
on.
Rollo
Not whoever
Tomasi.
that guy is, because that guy sounds dangerous. I'm not
No,
freeing that
free
guy.
Rollo.
Talk about
Free
that guy.
Rollo, yeah.
Free Rollo.
He can't get to you. Don't
Just
worry.
kidding.
Okay, all right.
With that being said, I'm curious to get your take on atrocities committed in the name of religion, especially considering
I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
what you outlined as your experiences, which surviving that abuse and all that. Which, by the way, like I commend you for speaking about openly. That's really admirable. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of things done in the name of religion that have not been okay.
Like 9/11.
Like 9/11, yeah, it's an obvious one. I think.
Por ejemplo?
Yeah. I think I was just in Israel, and so I was like there experiencing the tension between the Palestinians and the Israel, and it's a lot, man. It's deep, and so I'm here as a byproduct of a form of religious persecution. That's why I came out here as a refugee. So I think using might as a way to display what is right is counterintuitive and unhelpful. So whether it was the spread of Islam over Jerusalem, and then it was the response of the Crusaders, and then it was them going back and getting it. Like most of these things were not done by literate Jesus following people who were reading the scriptures. We didn't have the ink press until 1500, and then that was a controversy in terms of the church not wanting for people to get their Bible. So I think once people got the New Testament and read it, they were like, yeah, like we can't be burning people at the stake who we deem as heretics. We can't be going out here and just beating people up in the name of Jesus. Like you can't do that sort of stuff. And I think it's because of literacy and Christianity becoming literate, and specifically with the Reformation of Martin Luther.
Damn, shouldn't Jesus have brought the fucking alphabet then?
Well, funny enough, our Armenians, my nation where I'm from, we didn't have a written language until we wanted to make the Bible in our own language. So we actually developed a whole written language and an alphabet to get the scriptures in our native tongue, which is kind of a trip to think about.
Well, I'm just saying that because if we're going by intelligently design and everything, it seems to be a bit of an oversight if it took 1,500 years for people to figure out how to actually put together and follow all the shit that.
Well, you got to remember that the church that Jesus left behind and planted wasn't built on the top of prosperity for Christians. It was built under massive persecution. So some of these folks obviously were literate because they were writing Greek and then they were reciting the Torah in ancient Hebrew. But for them to translate and get it out to as many people, you're talking about handwritten, copied manuscripts. That was very difficult to do 2,000 years ago under mass persecution.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not saying it's.
But they had a written
difficult.
language. It's not like they
I'm
couldn't
just saying
speak
that,
the language of the
if
day.
Jesus would have paired up with Gutenberg at the year zero,
The timing.
we would have had that shit. It seems like it would have been a better way to do things. But far be it for me to, judge God's process.
I think combining it in today's context is ultimately we have the scriptures. There is literacy.
Why was God seemed so heavy-handed?
In the Old Testament?
Yeah. It seems like he was more active,
Yeah.
I feel like if the Crusades were happening in the Old Testament, God would have been there to smack some sense into him.
Yeah.
But then it seems like he got a lot lazier when the record keeping became a little bit more stringent. No? You don't think so?
No, I think God is the same yesterday, today. I think God's really serious about sin. I think things we minimize that are just like, man, I just told a lie, or man, I just stole something. I think God takes that stuff very seriously, and I think he is holy, he is different, he is set apart. And so I think you see a cohesive picture of a God that is serious about sin, yet graceful and merciful to come and deal with the consequences. Say,
yeah, I'm just saying, why doesn't he give us locusts or floods and shit today?
Today?
He used to, yeah.
I mean, there's This stuff still happens
Do you
sometimes,
think,
but I
like,
think
We get
wait,
recessions
wait,
and
hold
fucked
on.
up
yeah,
shit like
yeah,
that.
bad stuff still happens.
Do you think like Hurricane Katrina and shit? Do you think
I
that's
can't?
like God?
I don't know. I can't speak on that.
What about like AIDS?
I can't speak
Because
on
that was like targeting gay
that was
people.
pretty bad. Yeah, I can't speak on that.
Okay, my mom thought that.
Your mom thought
Adam,
that?
we were just talking about how AIDS was made by God for gay people. What do you think about that?
Well, hold on. You were talking about that. Okay.
Hell yeah.
We're not.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Now we're podding.
Okay.
That we're pod.
Wait, really? I was listening to it, but I didn't
Well, my
catch
question
up to that
here is
part
my
yet.
question is: it seems like in the Old Testament, God is like a main character. He's like out there doing shit. He's like almost an antagonist. He's like,
When there's a plague, it's his.
Well,
doing.
yeah, he's plaguing people. He's
Yeah.
making people stab their kids and shit. He's like on some
Stabbed
crazy
the kids.
shit.
No one stabbed the kids.
Who
that
was
that
the
the,
guy?
that was the Canaanites. They were worshiping Molech and
Who was the guy
offering
that God
babies.
challenged him? He was like, "Go up and stab your
Yeah,
kid."
he didn't do it.
Well, I know he didn't, but he almost made him do it.
What about the Book of Job? That was kind of scandalous too.
Yeah, I'm just saying that God used to be on some real shit, and now like for the past like 2,000 years, he's kind of gotten lazy.
Yeah,
That's
we're-
what I'm saying. He's
we're
not like
under-
out there.
Yeah,
as
but we're
active
under
anymore.
a different covenant, a different arrangement. There's different covenants that God has with different people, and so Jesus comes, fulfills the law that humans couldn't live up to and couldn't live under the old covenant, and then he deals with the issue of sin, lives the life we couldn't live, dies the death we should have died on the cross in our place, and creates a pathway for us not to have to deal with those serious consequences for dealing with a holy and just God. That's good. That's the good news. So the bad news is it's way worse than we think it is. It's way worse than, oh, Adam does porn. Like it's way worse than that. You know what I mean? Like it's
He fucking does, huh?
you know, yeah, but it's like, oh, well, Adam does porn. He's not a moral guy. It's like, yeah, dude, and so is everyone that lusts after women in their heart and looks at porn. So is everyone that hates people. So is everyone that has a bias. Like we're all pretty jacked up people if we're honest about it.
You're on some
When-
satanic shit.
when-
You're like luring people into sin.
when
You're worse than
comparing to
most,
God.
okay?
No.
You are worse than most. I just think- You're like a meth dealer, but for the internet.
I was
and it's
thinking
porn,
that. Yeah.
okay?
Do you think that there is a moral way to do porn? Like in the sense that, we have contracts, like forms, girls
Oh,
are signing,
what if you-
everything's super on the up and up, sober, etc.
Or what if you just record you and your wife having sex and you both watch that in the sanctity of your own home?
I don't think
it's
there's
just-
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, fucking awesome.
I don't think there's
yeah.
anything wrong.
Wait,
I,
so
I
what
think if
about,
you're
like-
making stuff for yourself, or like I got guys that travel, they tour, right?
Yeah.
And so there might be, a little action on the FaceTime. This is, oh my gosh, sorry.
Damn.
Might be, might be some pictures or stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think there's
awesome.
anything wrong with that. I mean, again, by the way, I am not speaking on behalf of all Christians. Okay, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I don't think I think that's the ethical way, in my opinion.
Yeah, what's FaceTime? It's just the same thing as if you were sitting in front of each other, right?
Oh my god, that's such an internet nerd thing to say.
What's
You're such a loser. Why would you?
But the good news is,
I mean, why would it be more of a sin because it's being transmitted through FaceTime?
Well, mass produced for other people. I think.
Okay,
when
yeah,
other
that's
people-
the
yeah,
difference,
yeah.
though.
That's
I
the
can
issue.
understand that. Yeah.
but the good news is Jesus comes and deals with the consequences of sin and creates a pathway for us to have right standing with the Father. And that's good. And it requires just repenting and believing in Jesus. And that's good news. It's not about works. That's what other religions, you got to do. You got to perform these acts. You got to go here. You got to do these things. Where in Christianity is, I just place my faith in Jesus. And because he's a good God, he gives me a new heart, a new desires. My life changes. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm completely different. I come single parent home. Father wasn't in my life. And I've turned out to be a pretty stable individual despite being sexually assaulted as a kid, despite smoking weed, losing my
Despite
virginity
those,
at 11.
what'd you call them? 58s?
Jordan 14s. I can't believe you
14s,
don't know what
okay.
the Jordan
The
14s are.
38s.
I'm so
Oh, the
disappointed.
38s.
I'm disappointed. You're a little older than me. These were hot when I was in
I'm
8th
2
grade.
years
bro.
older than you, bro.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Respect.
Hopefully, we end up on like a sneaker podcast so they can resolve this for us.
That would
Holy
be dope.
shit! And then you can invite them. Next.
Look, so
you were talking shit about our
no,
shoes.
The 14s are regarded as the last acceptable Jordan.
The what?
The 14s.
The 14s. Respect,
yeah, yeah.
respect, see?
However, I tend to believe that anything over 12, I'm not really too fond of. 13s,
I almost wore my
like-
12s.
Yeah, I fuck with 12s, but 14s is technically.
Is that like?
Respect.
Is that the year?
No, it's the
No.
the 14th model.
yeah,
of
the
Jordan.
model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can why? So like, you see 15s and you're like, oh my god.
Well,
why?
so the
Yeah.
reality is, these are the years that Jordan was actually playing.
Oh, so it doesn't have anything to do with the shoe.
No, it does. I mean, there's certain designers
Tinker-
that were.
Tinker
yeah,
Hatfield,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, Tommy, talk to me. Why do you hate the 15s? It's a disgusting shoe. Why?
The 14s, the
The
15s,
Yeah.
they get progressively uglier and then like more derivative of past designs, and they're just like they don't do it for me personally.
The designer did change though. There was
Yeah,
definitely a
Tinker
designer
Hat-
change.
yeah.
Tinker. I
Okay.
think his name's Tinker Hatfield.
Yeah.
He did it.
I always I'm not trying to offend anybody here. I don't know what the sexual orientations here are, but I do think it's a little funny, or it's a funny observation. That,
All cis het, my friend.
yeah, all cis het. It.
You're
I'm not saying
self-excluded.
it is okay, and I'm not. I don't know if we're gonna have to fight over this. Okay.
No, you good.
Okay. Does it feel a little gay sometimes at how much people obsess over like shoes and like the these are like the 13s and they've got like the perfect fashion Nike
okay, hold
symbol?
on.
As a non-participant, a lot of
on.
times when you hear dudes talking about fashion and shoes, it is like, oh, you're an architect. Like you just
Yeah.
have all these super strong opinions about the lines on the shoe and the shape of it, etc. And I've definitely been sort of sitting back, just like, wow, like
Look,
why
but it's
does
cool.
why does
People
this
are
not make
interested.
sense to me?
Hold on. Look, I like pussy as much as the next guy, right? But if liking shoes makes me gay, sign me up for
Base.
Freddie
Okay,
Mercury's
fuck it.
bathhouse
All right.
in 1986, San Francisco, in the Castro district, with a motherfucking rainbow right outside of it. All right, I'm listening to Judy Garland on the way home today. Fucking if that makes me gay, because I like shoes.
Destiny,
about-
do you like art?
I guess. I mean, everybody likes art, some kind of art, right? I mean, kind of music. I don't want to say I'm a musician, but I
You like music? I'm assuming you have, you design some of your
he
own
is
stuff.
art. Look,
you
he's
know?
got tattoos all over his body.
Yeah. So I think shoes is just an extension of art. It's just an expression of art. Designers, there's backstories to them.
It's just odd for me that people have such strong feelings about it, and that somehow that just never really worked for me. And like I feel the same way about cars. Like I just don't have the fetish. And like my dad is the same way. My dad never like talked about cars, never was into cars, never gave a shit about his car really.
So he's gay, basically.
I don't know. I just kind of inherited it. I think. Yeah.
What about like? Are there the ones and the twos for like
Yeah.
the fur? Are those like the coolest?
I mean, ones are generally regarded as one of the more popular Jordans.
Do they ever
In
do
fact,
reruns of like
Yeah,
we're doing
yeah. It
another?
It just came out. So
Yeah,
one's
yeah,
just
yeah.
came out.
Jordan retros, like yeah. Look, and Nike Dunks. Do you know what Nike Dunks look like? No.
fucking
All right.
Nikes.
Well, they're essentially the same
got on some
exact
nice
design.
shoes.
Yeah, but I actually
These are comfortable. That's why I
those
wear
were
these. They're comfortable.
those were my workout shoes.
Okay.
A few years ago, like very similar to those.
So if I leave nothing else, my whole outfit is the same, but I showed up in a pair of ones, you'd be like that.
Be
guy.
like, I fuck with your kicks, most likely, depending on what colorway it is.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man,
It gets way
okay.
deeper. Like,
Jesus.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm
okay.
so happy to be abstaining from this whole thing, this little game that you guys play. And it's even worse with the hats. Like they all have different hats,
Yeah,
with
but-
different patterns of diamonds and different colors, and all of a sudden the underbrim color matters. And
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
you
like,
got-
I'm so glad I'm not taking part in
You had a
this.
fucking Gucci shirt on. You feel me? You might as well fucking.
My girl gave it to me, and it's like, yeah, all right.
Might as
fine,
well
fine.
fucking give a hand job, bro. Like, you like clothes.
Yeah, a little bit. But I'm just like not as into it as other people.
Yeah, no, we you feel me? I don't feel like I would have been allowed to be over here if I didn't like clothes.
Right.
I feel like that's part of what made it work.
There's been people on the podcast, at least momentarily, where their clothes were so bad that alone seemed like probably reason enough that they shouldn't come back.
Oh,
God,
Jesus.
get out of here.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing is like so simple that it's like hard to
thank
do
you.
it wrong.
Okay.
But when you're doing something and it's really not what you think it is, that could be an issue for the brand as a whole.
No, it's funny that this guy's an atheist because it's an act of God he's allowed on no jumper dressing like that.
How dare you? I told you he's a lyricist.
Okay.
That was good.
No, I fuck with Destiny the long way. Don't get it twisted.
Pause.
I think to wrap it up, I don't mind the fashion thing, the shoe thing or whatever. The only thing that's weird to me about the shoe thing, like hats make sense, shirts make sense. The only thing that's weird about the shoe thing is I've legitimately seen people like in elevators and shit that are like worried that they're creasing their shoes too much.
I'm worried
And when I
about
see
greasing
stuff
my
like
shoes.
yeah, then I'm like, damn, like you've
get
moved
crease
to like
protectors.
you've
You know,
got
what's even gayer about it is no one's ever gotten pussy off the strength of their shoes in the history of mankind. We wear it for ourselves, aka
it's like guys
other dudes.
that think that like if they've got like the sickest car, like
Yeah.
a girl sees a car and is like, did it cost a lot of money? But she doesn't give a fuck about like,
No.
is it a mid-engine or is it what? Yeah, they
this
have no-
Corvette adds 4 inches to my cock.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do we have to cloak caring about fashion or design in like it being a gay thing? We should be better than that, don't you think?
We don't, but I mean, it's not exactly the most like traditionally masculine pursuit. So
Yeah. But in some ways it is. Like when we're talking about cars and stuff, it's totally normal for guys to have this appreciation for design, right?
Absolutely.
Why once you apply it to clothes does it become kind of gay?
it's not. I love pussy and I like shoes. So just shooting a hole through that theory every time it's brought up.
Well, it's because there are things that are inherently gay.
Like,
And like, I don't,
besides getting fucked in the ass? Or what?
yeah. Well, like that you identify with gay shit culturally.
Okay.
you
Such
know?
as
Yeah,
I'm
tell
kind-
us.
I'm kinda drawing
Let's
a
see
blank.
how homophobic you are. Yeah, go ahead.
Theater,
Oh, that's only
Theater-
gay
the-
people.
theater-
being a hairstylist,
theater.
being a makeup artist.
Have you guys?
Okay, but being a barber's not gay.
Yes, but that's
They
doing
are
it's
hairstylists.
fundamentally different.
Are you guys familiar with Richard Cabral?
No.
Richard, he was on that show Mayans. He just had the interview, really poppin' interview. Anyway, I think he'd be a great guest, but he was in theater and he's like he's from South Central LA. You know what I'm talking about?
That's the thing.
That's
though.
different though.
It's like if you
he's in theater.
it'd be such a great move to be a heterosexual male and be in the theater because you just there's so many marks around or gay fools around. It's gonna be so easy.
I had a homie who was a hairdresser and he was fully straight.
Swimming in pussy.
It was insane. I was like habitually just jealous as
Yeah.
fuck at what his social life was like because he's just every day meeting women over and over and over, and you doing your job is you touching them, getting super close to them, feeling really comfortable, having a conversation for a couple hours, and then when they leave, they feel like they look so much better, and it's all because of you.
Damn.
And then they're just hitting him up and just banging him. And I'm just watching it happen, and I'm almost feeling like, should I
At that
become
point,
a hairdresser?
Why not just become like a massage therapist or something? Like I feel like
That's
I
even
think
better.
there's a whole class of jobs that are like that. Same with a lot of the tattoo artist dudes I've known in my life. Oh my God, it was criminal. They couldn't beat these girls off with a stick, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Starts with a tramp stamp, goes a little south of the border. Next thing you know.
100%. What do you think about what Kanye West is doing to the discussion about Christianity? Do you think that he's a good advocate for it at this point in time?
Oh man, I think he was a great advocate at one point in time.
Kind of feels like he doesn't talk about God as much.
He just did a thing today that came out, and him talking about how he's back in
okay.
church and he's trying to
Okay.
do better. So I was at some of the Sunday services back in the day.
Dope.
And they were dope. They were dope. And so if you ever go back and look at that stuff, that when they did at the forum, you can't really see Kanye in those. Like he's hidden out. He does his raps. He doesn't talk. He didn't rant. He didn't do anything. And when he did his interview with Lex, he said that he's been off of his medication for 2.5 years. And that's right when the Sunday services stopped. It's about 2.5 years ago. And that's when the president run started happening. And that's when all the rants started happening, is when he got it. So I think Kanye seemed to be in a sweet spot in terms of stable, if you watch that Zane Lowe interview, when he was actively doing his Sunday services and on medication. I don't think it's an either or. So I think that was a sweet spot. And I thought the Jesus King album was dope. I thought Dondo was dope.
I agreed. Now, just to take that further and expand on that, one of his current advisors, Fuentes, how do you feel about his brand of Christianity?
I'm not a fan. I debated a Nick Fuentes black white supremacist on my channel.
What was his name? Do you know?
I don't remember. He
Flakko?
wouldn't come. No. I don't know who that is. I don't know if I'm allowed to laugh at that.
Oh no, he's gonna
Yeah.
come busting in here.
So I think Ye running around with Nick Fuentes is not a good look because of the
White
the-
supremacy thing.
the white supremacy thing. But no, specifically because people will be like, "How is he white supremacist?" And it's the
white nationalist trailer right now.
it's the IQ. They believe that black people are a standard deviation lower in IQ. So I went down the rabbit hole and did all of this research and did a video about it and how it's utter nonsense. Standard deviation is 15 points. So if the average IQ is 100, they're saying that black people have an 85 IQ, which is insane. And so this black gentleman, he wasn't on camera, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, called in and they started spamming my chat, and I ended up debating a black white supremacist on black people not having a standard deviation lower IQ. I think that's poison. I think that view is completely awful, and I don't know if Ye knows that that's what Nick is on.
Right. And it's kind of weird to see both Flakko and Kanye having the same thing of like really liking Nick Fuentes despite like almost everything he's ever said or done. Like it's just kind of baffling, right?
It sucks that we're talking about this now because the only black guy left earlier.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
think
That's
that
okay.
he'd
there's
be having a field day.
He's here in spirit.
well, I think there's this feeling among a lot of black people that he verbalized that where like, yeah, you've got like racist conservatives, but like the liberals are fucking racist too, and they're racist in a different kind of way.
Absolutely.
And when you get-
Over pandering.
Yeah, that
accommodating.
shit. Yeah, they treat you like you're a retarded child.
Right.
Like, the way that they treat you is just like so fucked.
I don't
And
fuck with that shit either.
when it feels like everybody's like that and everybody's two-faced, if another guy comes out and he's like, yo, listen, we can work on shit together. I think that you're like genetically retarded, but I'm honest about it. Then like, I think that there's an endearing quality there. We're like, you know what? Sure, I could fuck with you. At least you're cool about it. I know where I stand. And I legitimately think that there are people that feel that way, right?
You think Nick's being that honest though?
No, not at all.
I think he's holding
I don't
his
think he is.
cards close.
But at the very least, he comes off as more racist than the average person.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are black and you feel like everybody's hiding their racism, having a guy that's a little bit more overt with it is like, okay, sure, fine. At least like you're honest about it. Like I know where I stand with you.
Yeah.
I think it is a little bit more extreme than he lets on, depending on who he's talking to.
I don't appreciate that he's doing it in the name of Jesus or Christianity or even Catholicism. Like,
Well, that's his whole shtick.
That's a bad look.
Like
That has nothing to do with. I just had the leading Catholic apologist on my channel, and they're not on that time. And I'm not a Catholic, but they're not on that.
Well,
time.
that's what we were saying earlier. Like
Yeah.
he claims to be a Catholic nationalist, not even a white nationalist.
But this
There's
is
something that you brought up earlier. Generally, when we watch movies, there's a structure to everything. Right. You don't see random fuck characters on screen. There's not a random thing that happens. Like everything is like pretty ordered and pretty purposeful for the intention of like delivering some experience. We want to feel like our lives are the same way. Religion is nice because it's like the total package in terms of giving you all the different things that you need to live your life. Like if I don't have religion, I've got to figure out like how am I supposed to act? Because moral and ethics are very complicated to figure out, arguably impossible. What am I supposed to believe about like the state of the world, like metaphysics and ontology? Like I don't know what exists or why, or if a tree falls in a forest, is anybody? I don't know like any of these things, right? You don't know when the universe began. You don't know what the purpose you have in life is. Like, is there a reason why I exist? Like sometimes life sucks. Is there a meaning to that, or is it just shitty? And religion is a really nice way to take all of those complicated questions and then give you a package that addresses each and every one, such that it's the reason why even for people like you who like might not have like the strictest interpretation, that structure is still there and it gives you meaning to carry you through the shitty times so you can look forward to the good times, I think.
Helps make sense of the suffering.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, 1000%. I mean, it. That's pretty much like the catalyst for having faith, right there, and just having answers and definitive knowledge of something as opposed to just.
And like a beacon truly in the dark, right? Especially you said you're a few years clean on drugs or whatever.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
That like pushing through, especially for relapse times, like because what the fuck is the point of anything? You might as well just destroy your life. Having something like shining through that's like, no, push towards this, like I think can be a good guidance for a lot of people for sure.
And really, okay, let's say I'm wrong, and let's say everything that I believe turns out to be wrong, and and it's just complete randomness, and there is no God. At least I was leaning towards being a beacon of positivity and trying to help society and be the best version of myself, because that's truly what I believe. If I can't make an actual definition of what God is the best version of myself. And I might not necessarily know how to define God, but me at my best is loving, caring, accepting, forgiving, present, tolerant. And if I'm trying my best to personify these ideologies and like, you know what I mean? Like, or these traits, then that's me being as close to God if he does exist, or even if he doesn't exist.
But you know what? When an atheist like me hears all that, it just sounds like
fuck you, shoot porn.
No, it just sounds like something other than a conversation about whether it's true or not. Because to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, because I think that's the mistaken way to approach it. I've repeated this a lot. I think on earlier shows and here today that like people are not fundamentally truth-seeking machines. That's not what we're wired to do. I don't think that people go into religion. Now, maybe there might be like apologetics or other forms that try to like logically justify it, but I don't think most people are there like searching for truth. They're looking for meaning. And those might feel like the same thing, but they're totally different, I think, right? You can find meaning in a lot of stuff that isn't truthful or doesn't have like a truth component to the question. You can find meaning in a lot of art, right? Is there a truth to how a particular piece of art is supposed to make you feel? Maybe not, but there can still be meaning behind it to a person. I think religion is very much the same way, so.
Yeah, it's 1000% subjective, right? Like,
and I think that, like, also, this is a point I would say in favor of atheism, but you mentioned earlier that, like, if you follow religious doctrine or belief, and you mentioned it too, that it, like, generally leads you to a more fulfilling and happy life. That's probably true of almost all religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, right? Like a Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew, on, like, 93% of issues are going to more or less, like, fall in line.
Like, it's not really that much of an endorsement of Christianity. It's just
an
sort of an endorsement of
endorsement
religion
like
in
organized,
general,
yeah.
right?
right, 1000%. But I feel like all the major religions, with the exception of like different Eastern philosophies, and even then
they're going to be like a large, like, yeah, if you follow like the perfect Buddhist or the perfect fucking, whatever, probably going to be a decent person.
they're chill as fuck. They're like probably the chillest.
Or
to be honest
sometimes
with you.
I have
Like,
conversations with like hardcore exercise people and hear them talking about how Spartan their diet is and how they just won't engage with like almost any temptations. And it just occurs to me like in any other era in history, this guy would be a religious lunatic. But instead, he lives in this time period where it's like considered acceptable for you to just take that much effort and put it into your health and your fitness and shit.
Well, like here's the thing: a lot of those, like, let's just look at Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There's a lot of overlap. In fact, we even share some of the same texts as other religions. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of overlap in all these things. Now, what I'm curious about: do you consider yourself a fundamentalist?
Define fundamentalist.
Yeah, how do I title this? Destiny debates religious.
Like,
Yeah, like what's the best way to describe it?
Follower of
Debates,
Jesus.
A fundamentalist means that you believe everything to its core. Like the word of God, the words of the Bible, you believe it to its core. You're unwavering in your faith regarding that, and you believe it to a T, and you practice it to a T.
So I definitely practice it. I would say as much to the scriptures as I can. I think when you get into fundamentalist, then you can get into young Earth creationism and the days in Genesis, literal, or are they figurative? Are we,
like gays are going to hell?
I think everybody who is dying with rejecting Jesus is going to hell, not just gays. So I don't think God discriminates.
For example.
No. I think everybody who isn't accepting Jesus is in serious trouble when we die. So I don't think it's just like that's the thing. People pick one thing and it usually goes to that card, right? And it's like, no, I think the guy smashing his girlfriend or pimping his girlfriend is going to hell too. I think
Smashing, just having sex premarital.
Yeah.
Oh, then I'm
outside of
You guys are all fucked.
outside of someone dealing with the consequences of your sin. Yeah, I think that's so. But do I take all of the Bible literally? No. I think there's stuff that's in there that's poetry. I think there's stuff that's in there that's figurative. I think there's history. I think there's songs. There's so many different genres. And so what people try to do is they'll try to say, do you take all the Bible literally? And I'm like, listen, we're reading a 2,000-year-old book that was written in Greek, Hebrew, ancient Hebrew at that, and Jesus spoke Aramaic, right? So it's going to require some degree of scholarship to approach it properly.
Because fundamentalism is scary.
Well, fundamentalism in evangelical Western American context is scary because they believe stuff that's like 100 years old. Like young Earth creationism is not what the church has historically held. That's a very modern position, right? Like a lot of the stuff you guys see on TV with the whoosh and people falling out, like that's not historical Christianity. That's very modern stuff that you guys are seeing, and it's tainting people's view of it.
That's
right?
Christianity with special effects.
That's Christianity with special effects. That's
So you think those people are charlatans?
I think some of them definitely are charlatans. Osteen, I think, preaches an incomplete gospel.
Oh,
I think
call
he
the
preaches an
fuck out. Get him on the show.
Infighting.
You fucking
I
coward.
think he preaches
Bring him
an
on.
incomplete
I
gospel.
fuck with your soul like ether.
Yo, can I institute an actual debate here momentarily?
Between who? Alston?
You two.
Oh.
Can I institute a debate on this topic?
Uh-oh.
Religion is the key to any coherent moral code. Would
moral
you say that you agree with that? Because this is what
I
I'm
think-
interested in, is the conversation about people deriving their moral code from religion versus just from their own sense of what's right and wrong. Because I get the idea that you believe that religion is the best way to define your moral code.
So I would say there's multiple ways people derive a moral code. Most common in the West is Unitarianism. Like, what is the utility of said view, and does it benefit the most amount of people? That's void of religion, right? Before that, there's another word called deontological perspective, which is just like something is absolutely right or wrong based on if everyone does it, the chronological imperative. So if everyone were to commit suicide, that would be very bad, right? If everybody were, right? You see where I'm going with that? So there's other ways to derive morality. I think God and Jesus and natural law is the most optimal way, and I would agree with that. But I think there are other ways people pull ethics that aren't just based on God. I just think God's ways actually trump and connect to all the other ways of how people come to ethics on anything.
Beat himself in the debate. Do I get credit for that, or?
Explain.
I didn't. Oh, that's just funny. Touche.
Well, because he just said there's other ways besides religion.
Yeah, there's
to
other
get-
ways. I don't think that's
okay.
I don't
yeah.
think that's the best argument for why there's a God. Like, I don't think the best argument is morality. Like, I think you've came to your own morals outside of religion, and I would probably disagree with a lot of them. But I think I think it is a strong argument is that if we look at all the other ways of how people come to values, it still connects with Jesus's ways of how we should live.
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I want to feel like two reasonable minds ought to be able to agree on a perspective, or at least share at least understand a perspective, if not agree on one. The problem I have with religion is that fundamentally, two people of different religious sects are not going to be able to have agreements on moral issues because the way that they generate those moral truths are fundamentally different. Whereas if I have like secular people that are arguing amongst like ethical propositions or whatever, I can try to get them on the same page because they'll be coming from secular backgrounds and they can have a debate on those fundamental, I guess, axioms where their ethical systems come from, right? I could say that, oh, well, murder is bad. You gave a consequentialist framework, utilitarianism. You gave that as an example, right? Two people might say like, well, murder is bad because in a society where murder is allowed, we create for a worse society because everybody's scared of killing each other and all that, or dying, and I could get two secular people to have an argument about that and roughly agree because they're coming from the same place. Whereas two people from different religious backgrounds, if one says, oh, well, my religion says I'm supposed to kill these types of people, and the other guy says, well, my religion says I'm supposed to kill these types of people. Okay, well, let's argue. Okay, well, my God said that. Well, my God said this. The argument's kind of over. So the incommensurability, the non-compatibility of two different religious people to argue and settle disputes, in my mind, is a major fault with not metaphysical, supernatural belief systems. Because at the end of the day, we're appealing to something that is ultimately unknowable, ultimately unfalsifiable, but causes real-world disagreements in terms of how we treat people. And there's no way to reconcile those beliefs besides killing everybody that believes the other thing.
Yeah, but that's not New Testament followers of Jesus, right? They're not prescribing to kill anybody. So if we're looking at the New Testament prescriptions of how one is to live, they reflect what you're talking about when secular folks disagree on murder.
Sure, that's true. But I mean, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, in any society, my opinion is the legal system is going to be the codified version of the ethics of a certain group of people. Collective ethics are going to be codified in law to some size, shape, or form. So like in more extreme, like Muslim communities, you see things, Sharia law, or actually codified into their actual law, like gay relationships are illegal or adultery is illegal. You can get punished by death for these. I don't see any reason why a Christian society wouldn't necessarily follow similar things where certain people are ostracized from society or given some sort of punishment for being gay or practicing gayness or being an adulterer.
Yeah, but you said the collective society in the legality of things determines whether something is right or wrong. We would totally say Jim Crow was wrong in the 60s. It's wrong today. Slavery was wrong 400 years ago. It's wrong today. It is absolutely universally wrong to own people, period. To kidnap and own people is wrong.
But how do you feel?
Regardless on if the society
but
is
I'm
cool
saying, like,
with
let's
it.
say that society was like 99% Christian, and somebody's like, well, we need to make a law so that you get fined every time you get caught having gay sex. Like, I could see a lot of people like, yeah, that sounds fair.
And what about?
I don't know how you went to that. I mean, we're talking about
Well,
slavery
no, I was
and
just saying.
Jim
I was
Crow.
saying that collectively, if you had 99%,
It's always the gay
What's
thing.
really on your mind?
Well, because Jim Crow is an easy gimme because everybody thinks that slavery is wrong.
Yeah.
But nobody's fighting with Christians today about enslaving black people. We're fighting over things like abortion or gay marriage. Those are the things that we're fighting.
But on top of that, there's also globalization, which was done under the veil of Christianity, which was
Sure, I mean, colonial, fuck all that. I'm saying we have modern debates right now that the difference in opinion stems from a theological background, which is necessarily unassailable. I can't argue. If I want to have a conversation about abortion, a guy's like, oh, I'm Christian. Oh, well, fuck me. The discussion is over. I can't say anything to move that person.
Do
to
you
that
think
position.
somebody could have a pro-life position without bringing God into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think a person that has brought God in, but a person with a pro-life position that hasn't brought God into it could be argued to a pro-choice position. Same thing, a pro-choice person without God could be argued to a pro-life position. But if they have God, the fixation there that is going to cause in my opinion, a static grounding for the morals, such that you're not going to be able to convince them. Because if I argue with somebody, it's like, oh, why are you pro-life? I'm like, well, I believe that humanity begins at the moment of conception, and that's my secular background. Oh, cool, let's have a conversation about that. But if somebody says, oh, I'm religious, oh, the conversation's over. I'm never changing your opinion.
I think ending and murdering and ending a human life is wrong. Abortion ends a human life. Therefore, abortion is wrong. I don't think that's a very...
Sure, but if you get that from a secular point of view, I can argue with you over when that moment of human life begins.
I mean, biology says it begins at conception. There's unique DNA the moment the sperm and the egg touch.
Yeah, but biology doesn't give us the moral consideration for a person.
Well, because you're saying morality is coming from the social consensus, and I'm saying morality exists outside of the social consensus.
Yeah, but you're
Morality
grounding
is
for that morality. I can't argue with you because you believe in God. I can never convince you otherwise. You have your set of beliefs, and that's never going to change.
My set of beliefs, though, is based on what is a human with unique DNA, right? So again, I'm saying we could remove God from it, and I'll say, that's a human with DNA and it's going to grow into a bigger human.
Well, it's
I
a
understand.
zygote.
I understand. I
It's a
understand.
zygote,
I
right?
understand.
It's a zygote,
I-
and so a 25-year-old is not less, is not more valuable than a 15-year-old, and a 15-year-old is not more
Yeah, but a
valuable
20
than a 1-year-old.
a 25-year-old
and a 1-year-old is not more valuable than a 3-week, 4-week, 5-week fetus.
But it's about when you give the DNA like more consideration. When is it a person? Because a 25-year-old corpse you wouldn't give any rights to.
Sure.
But it's a human with DNA.
Okay.
but they're dead, right?
So you got a heartbeat at 5 weeks. You got 10 fingers, 10 toes at 7 weeks. The eyeballs are formed. I mean, have you
Some
ever
children are
have you ever
born-
seen a procedure of an abortion at 12 weeks, 11 weeks?
Nope, but I don't care. I probably have.
I would encourage everyone who's pro-choice to go look it up
That has no bearing on the argument whatsoever.
because it's a human in there. That's the point, though.
Yeah, but the question isn't whether it's a human. The question is whether it's a life worth considering. That's the question,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, a corpse is human, but we don't protect corpses because we're protecting human life.
Okay, because there's
right?
no life in the corpse.
Exactly.
The baby has life.
So, but we don't. But that's the question. The question is, what is the life?
I don't think it's a question. I think
It
it's
is
a
a question.
fact. How is it a question? If someone has brain waves, if someone has 10 fingers, 10
Well,
toes,
so
like,
careful, because now you just said brain waves,
Yeah.
right? So are you okay with abortion at 1 or 2 weeks?
am I okay with? No, I'm not okay with any abortion.
Okay, so so the brainwave thing wasn't true. When you said 10 toes, if a baby has 8 toes, it's still a human, right?
Sure.
So that part's not true, right?
Sure. I'm
You
saying
said-
what I'm saying is right now we have the most liberal laws, more liberal than the EU. Okay, abortion has a hard cutoff in most of Europe at like 12 weeks.
Yeah, none of this has anything to do with what I'm talking about. I'm
Okay,
just
no,
saying
no, no.
that-
But what I'm saying is that's way more conservative than what we fought here
That's
for.
true, but it
okay?
also has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I was just saying that your idea of abortion and the foundation for that idea is a religious one, and that is an unshakable foundation. There is no argument that could ever, like if I were to ask you right now, could I give you any argument that would persuade you that abortion is okay?
No, you're not going to give me
Exactly.
But that's because I've been on both sides and I've wrestled through it and I've thought about it and I've watched debates and I've heard the best of the best arguments.
That's fine. You
and
can
I'm
say
still
that.
convinced that that's a human in there. And if you leave it untouched, if you don't do anything to that, that is going to grow into a full-grown human.
And that's fine. But I'm just saying that what you just said was there's no disagreement to be had. There's no argument to be had.
Yes,
right?
but that's irrelevant of whether or not I believe Jesus is the Son of God and bodily rose from
No,
the
but the
grave.
foundation is a theological one.
The
Like, if I
foundation
ask
is a
you-
DNA one.
Well, the foundation is theological from where your anti-abortion beliefs come from.
My anti-abortion beliefs, my pro-life beliefs is that I believe babies should be protected because they're the most vulnerable with no voice. That's where it comes
That's
from.
not the foundation. The foundation is going to be a theological one. It has to be. You're
The
religious.
foundation is
You
biology.
already said that nothing I changed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
But-
what if,
but
what if
I'm-
we?
I'm-
hold on,
I'm
but,
sure
what
you're
if I
not
found
gonna
a
change
gene?
your
What
mind.
if I found? No, I can be.
you
changed.
can become pro-life.
I was pro-life. That's why I love you, Nathan. But that's why I have 11-year-old kids. Because when my ex-girlfriend got pregnant, I was not in favor of abortion at all. So at the time, I was pro-life. Yes.
So you would have yeeted your own child if you hold your modern
My
views
modern
now?
position, yes. I love you, Nathan.
I mean, that's for real.
Yes.
And you don't think you would have regretted that, knowing what you know now?
Absolutely not.
Whoa, hold on. I'm tracking. You have an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
You love your 11-year-old.
I love my 11-year-old.
If you had the views you have now back 12 years ago, you would have yeeted that child and you wouldn't have regretted it.
I wouldn't have been yeeting the 11-year-old child I have now.
But
It would have
that-
been a fetus, right?
No, but because he grew into an 11-year-old child
But
that
he
you
wouldn't
love
have
and
grown
talk
into
to.
the 11-year-old child. It's an incomprehensible question, right?
It's not an incomprehensible. He's literally here. He's here with you.
But
you
he
love
wouldn't
him.
have been 12 years ago when she was pregnant. That's the whole
Right,
point.
right. But now he's here, and you're saying if you held your position now, you would have
Yeah.
been pro ending that child's life.
It wouldn't have been a child's life I was ending, right?
But it is. It is a child's
It might
life.
have been saying maybe back then I
Okay.
would have been pro condoms.
When
It
are
would have
you-
been the exact same outcome,
when are
right?
you- when
Well,
are
you
you-
wouldn't be asking me like, well, would you be pro condoms, knowing then that you wouldn't have your beautiful 11-year-old child today? Yeah, I'd be pro
No,
condoms.
condoms is different because it's a barrier.
I don't think
That's
so. It's not to
different
me.
than
But it's
latching
not to me.
an egg latching and ripping it out. Now, was there ever a time where you'd have a hard cutoff for abortion?
Yeah, I have
are
a
you
hard cutoff
complete-
right now. It's
what
around
is-
20 weeks.
20 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you looked at a 20-week-old fetus inside?
I don't care what it looks like. I don't determine my morality based on how things look.
Why not?
Because that's not a good answer for me. What does it look like?
Okay.
If a baby, no offense, babies look fucking hideous when they were born, but I don't think you should be able to born a baby at 8 months.
Okay. So you're cut off at
Again,
8
I love you, Nathan.
You're cut off at 8 months. You're cut off at
No. I'm cut off at about 20 weeks.
20 weeks. Why 20 weeks?
Because I think 20 weeks, because my definition for what is a human life worth considering is when is there the potential to deploy a conscious experience? Because when we talk about harm or suffering or avoiding harm, we're usually talking about a person that has an experience that knows what it's like to suffer, and that's what we ought to avoid. So fetuses don't seem to have all of the brain parts and the communication between the brain parts in place until around 20 to 24 weeks. So once that happens, once that experience exists, now there's something to speak about that's being harmed, and I would want to avoid harming that thing.
Would you let that flesh out to its logical conclusion? If someone is laid in a vegetative state, do we have the desire to just unplug it?
Yeah, and we do. We do that.
Yeah,
Somebody's
but
brain dead,
against power of attorney and against someone's will.
Power of attorney gets complicated because we're not talking about whether or not that person is like a person worth considering or whatever. At that point, we're talking about like another person who's been vested power by the state to make decisions on behalf of that person.
Okay, what if someone's asleep?
No, because they still have the potential to deploy consciousness. You can wake them up. You can't wake up a fetus.
What if you don't wake them up? What if you just yeet them and they don't know that they got yeeted?
It would be bad because
that would be bad.
Because it's a brain that already has the capability of deploying.
I think the key in what you said earlier is that it seems we don't really know a bunch about consciousness.
I know that if I wake a person up who's sleeping, they will become.
I was talking
conscious.
about the 20-week cutoff. We don't know much about consciousness.
No, but we
or
can
when
measure it
becomes.
about as well as we can in the.
A 20-week fetus doesn't have as much consciousness as a 30-week fetus. Doesn't have as much consciousness as a 1-year-old.
Well, no, but it
as a
begins to
3-year-old.
have the experience of knowing what it's like to be something. They begin to have that awareness. But
So
at 2 weeks, they
consciousness
don't.
is
At
the
4 weeks, they
only
don't.
way you would cut off.
That's why.
anyone
Yeah, because that's
getting
when we
yeeted.
decide when people are dead is consciousness.
Yeah, I think that's an incoherent position.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. We solved it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, at the end of the day, my position can be moved because I'm open to reasonable arguments, but your position is unmovable because you're religious. That's the issue with having any moral
I'm saying
debate with
my
a religious
position
person.
has been moved multiple times.
No, once it was caught by the religious gravity well, now it's sunk into the religious black hole, and there's no more. It's thought terminating.
That's not true. There's Christians that I would strongly disagree with them that hold a pro-choice position or say, a 20-week cutoff, a 12-week cutoff, a 10-week cutoff. I think they're wrong.
Sure, you can
but they
say that
hold
now,
view.
but earlier when I asked you, is there anything that can move your
Yeah,
position? You said no.
and why did I say no?
Because you're
I
religious.
said because I've had both positions. I've been walking with Jesus for 20 years. I've thought through this. I voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012, thinking this through, thinking, oh, he's a pro-choice, and I wouldn't vote like that now, right? And I changed my position on this because I was wrong.
I don't think there should ever be a particular thought where you're like, nothing could change my mind on that.
Okay.
I think you should always be open to new evidence changing your opinion.
So would you be open to like just shooting somebody in the face being morally okay if they did nothing to you?
If they did nothing to you,
If your life is not at harm, are you okay with changing your position of shooting somebody in the face being morally acceptable and killing them?
I mean, like, it would be a fantastical argument, but I'm sure you could build it out somehow, right?
Well, what about if
What if I had a machine that allowed me to read the events of the future, and I had a person in front of me who'd done no harm to me, and I could shoot them in the face to kill them, and that person was Hitler? In that case, I guess, yeah, probably I would shoot them in the face.
You would shoot Hitler in the
I
face.
probably would.
There you go.
Even before he killed a
Respect.
single Jew.
What if now we're getting so deep into left field of hypotheticals, but Jesus comes back and says, I'm cool with abortion. Does that change your ideology?
Oh my God, there is a super
That's a good
interesting.
question. That's a good question. I don't think Jesus would come back and say that.
I'm just saying, what if he did?
I don't know. That's a great question.
What if, this is part of like he does a sermon at the Sherman Oaks Galleria. You know what I mean? And like this is and this,
I have an interesting question. First of all, I don't know if you thought of it, but what is the name of the paradox to where does morality exist because God commands it, or does God reveal morality? Do you know what the name of that is?
I don't know
There's
that,
a name for that. It's a very interesting philosophical question. Like, does something become moral because God speaks it,
Well, I would say yes. It becomes moral because God said so.
or is there a set of morals and God reveals it?
Yeah.
chicken or the egg.
Because
Check
you have to be
out the
really careful of the answer that you just gave, because this is going to be really loaded. But then let's say that God does come down and he says, you can murder people now. If God speaks it, then in your eyes, is it moral?
Yes, but the thing is though that God doesn't contradict himself. God is the same today, yesterday, forever. So that would be a contradiction.
But
for
let's
God
say
to come
God
out.
comes down
doesn't
and he says,
change.
there's been a misinterpretation of things I've said in the past.
I don't think you can misinterpret "do not murder." Like that's pretty clear cut.
I don't know. There's a lot of questionable things that,
I think you're reaching. I think you had a better question. That was a conundrum for me, if I'm honest.
What was wait, hold on. Didn't David threaten to split a baby in two to figure out who the real mother was?
Yeah,
That could have been murder.
Yeah,
right?
that wasn't David. That was Solomon.
Oh, Solomon. Okay.
King Solomon.
King Solomon, yeah, and so that was a hypothetical thing that he was going to do, similar to Abraham, but
Sure.
he didn't walk that out. So it's like people are like, God's telling people to kill their sons. It's like, yeah, and then that didn't happen. God told somebody to rip a baby in half. That didn't happen. That was a hypothetical to see which one was really the mother of the said baby. That was exhibiting Solomon's wisdom in that moment.
Okay, so threatening it is okay if you want to prove a point.
I mean, he
He didn't do it.
didn't do it.
Okay, true.
Now I want to know: is Jesus white?
No.
So he's Semitic.
I just came back from Israel.
Wait, do you consider yourself white?
I think in the eyes of society, I'm viewed as white. So sure, but I think like my upbringing was not.
The Armenian people I'm around don't consider themselves white.
Yeah, I'm
They
also
talk about white people like some other as people.
I'm also fair skinned. Like we were like similar to the same complexion, you know. So like I'm viewed as white in society.
sure, yeah.
Though my experience has not been that of like my dad not being in my life, being predominantly raised by black folks and my my closest friends. So yes, but my culture, Armenians are not white. That's not Western, white Christian culture.
Here's a question. A lost chapter of the Bible comes out, authentically, historically verified. Jesus wrote this on the fourth day. He rose on the third day. He wrote this on the fourth day, and then he takes off, right? And in this fourth version, it says, actually, murder and adultery are okay. And it's 100% verified, 100%. And it says you can kill kids if you really want to. They're really fucking annoying. Would you believe that?
No. Because it contradicts what he's already established.
What if it says the prior record that you think is true is not true? It's been misinterpreted.
That's like you having a black shirt on in this conversation, then hopping on stream later and trying to convince everyone that you had a white shirt on in this
What
conversation.
if I say
that
it's
makes
because
no sense.
I could say there was a tune applied to the video. You could probably
No,
Photoshop it.
you cannot Photoshop.
Really?
I mean, you can Photoshop. You can't do it with live video.
I bet you could do it with live video.
I don't think
These guys
so.
are talented.
I
I
don't-
bet they
I
could.
don't think
I've
so.
seen some deepfakes, but I'm saying, engage with the hypothetical. Let's say that chapter came out. They did all the research. They verified,
Yes.
holy shit, this actually was. Jesus fucking
Yeah.
wrote this shit in his own pen and paper.
I think you're using an unnecessary hypothetical to make a mute point.
Well, the point is that, well, the really deep philosophical point is, I think that most of our morality comes from these intuitive places that we don't want to admit. We want to pretend that we're appealing to some external God code, and God has given us the 10 Commandments. And I don't actually think that's true. I think that intuitively, there's a code that lines up with most of our moral intuition, and that's why we follow it. But we like to pretend that we logically, of course, we believe in the resurrection, and now we've logically got the 10 Commandments. But if I could show you, actually, there's Commandments 11 and 12, and 11 and 12 say you can kill annoying kids, and 12
But
says you
those
actually can't.
contradict Commandments 1 through 10. I think what you're saying isn't wrong. The first presupposition is fine. We have an intuitive nature. That's called the law is written on our heart. I think you're right. That's not. It doesn't have to be a binary, right? Like I think it's and both. God declares things to be right and wrong, and He's wired humans to have a conscience and to have the ability to know right from wrong.
Okay,
so I think you're creating a false binary when it doesn't need to be one.
I disagree. I don't think so. I think you don't want to engage with hypothetical. Here's a question. Have you ever heard of abortion in the Bible?
Yes, I've read the passage. That's nonsense. There's a mistranslation in the NIV translation. 100%. You can look this up. We can verify it right now. That's not in the ESV. That's not in the New King James.
Hold on. Wait. I don't
Her
remember.
belly to swell in the Numbers passage. I know what you're talking about.
It's the one where if you commit adultery.
Yes, you can give her a magic potion, and then her belly will swell, and then she will miscarry. That's nonsense. That's
The whole chapter
the
is
whole
nonsense?
chapter is not saying that. The whole chapter, and it doesn't use the word miscarry. That is a mistranslation.
It doesn't say miscarry, but what it says is, so here for full context, is that if you are a woman and you think that if you think that your woman has been adulterous, she can go to a priest and ask for forgiveness, and she can say a prayer basically and drink, I think it's a bitter potion or something. And what'll happen is as long as your baby is truly from your husband, then the potion will pass unharmed. But if it's from an adulterous relationship, then you will expel the fetus.
So
Essentially miscarry.
I would challenge everybody listening to this and you after this to pull that up and see if it actually says she was ever pregnant. Or is that an NIV mistranslation of the word miscarry? It's not.
Wait,
in
if
there.
she wasn't ever pregnant,
she was
what's
never
happening?
pregnant. She was never pregnant.
Wait, what's happening then?
That's a discipline on her, not on a baby that was conceived.
What does it mean to pass?
I promise you, look up the ESV. I could provide you the sources.
Sure, I can.
But yes,
I mean,
I've looked at
I
that.
can
I
look
don't
that
think
up. But
that's
in that
abortion in the
case,
Bible.
if you're going to say that all of that is true, then I don't know why I can't say hypothetically the 10 Commandments were mistranslated or part of that.
Well, because
right? Like
you
what
have-
about like the Red Sea and the Sea of Reeds for Moses crossing? Like initially they said that he parted the entire Red Sea, but I think most people agree that's a mistranslation. It was actually like the marsh, the Sea of Reeds, or whatever.
Yeah, like there was a natural phenomenon that happened. God used a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
I've heard that explanation.
But
as
that's
well.
way different than the fucking Red Sea, right?
I mean, it's the
It's
sea. The
massively
sea
different.
opened up. The sea opened
yeah,
up.
but there's a
Whether
difference
that was
between
a
like
natural
a marshy swamp that is like on a low tide versus parting a whole fucking sea, right?
He walked through the sea, and then the guys came after, Egyptians came after, and they died. That's what happened. Whether it was a murky swamp or the actual seas parting, like I think.
What do you say about the fact that there's no archaeological evidence that Jews ever existed in enslavement under the
That's
Pharaohs of
not
Egypt?
true.
That is absolutely true. There's zero archaeological
I was
evidence.
just in Israel, and they found stuff recently in Egypt to say that was true.
Okay,
They're-
I challenge
they're
people to
always
look that one
discovering-
up
look
as well.
up.
That there's zero archaeological evidence that there's ever a massive Jewish enslavement in Egypt. But okay,
I mean,
sorry, I don't want to do this all the time. Go ahead. Or you can have the
No,
last word.
I'm
on that.
loving this. This is great.
this is what you. Is this what you? Are you not
Yeah,
entertained?
no, this is fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What
what would
we don't have any popcorn.
what would it take to convince you to be a
got the
follower of
emojis.
Jesus?
You follow Jesus. Damn, dude. If God is ever present in every single facet of our existence, I would want to see some kind of evidence of that somewhere. I think that's what I would need. Something. I'm not really convinced by the 2,000-year-old this happened arguments. Although I guess if there was a really compelling one, maybe.
Have you examined them?
A little bit. I dig in, but there's like always there's fights back and forth over was the tomb empty, was the tomb even empty, was the body hidden, etc. I don't know.
Could I get you some books and you check
I don't
them out?
care that much. I would want to see if it's a God that
Can you
is
watch a
ever
movie?
present-
Can you watch a movie?
Fuck no. If there is a God that
Man,
is,
no movie.
if there is a God that's ever present in every facet of our lives and every facet of our existence, I should be able to see that somewhere. The fact that the whole universe seems to run and work pretty well without any God interfering in anything makes me question like why I would need him to explain any of the phenomena that occur.
I think he has interfered, and I think he does, and actively is. I think God's in this moment with us right now.
Okay, well, where is he at?
I think me coming in here and prepping and honestly, like being shook. You texted me at 11:30 at night, DM me at 11:30 at night.
That's how I know you're for real because
yeah.
you drove from San Diego,
San
right?
Diego, yeah. I think God is with us in this moment. I think your
Okay,
temperament.
but if you weren't here, let's say that you texted him back and then he was like, actually, that Reza, whatever the fuck guy, he responded, I don't need you anymore. Well, then you'd say, oh, well, God is testing me. He's showing that if I keep pushing forward, I can get like a little bit. Like, there's always going to be a
I
way
probably
to use
still
God
would
to
have
explain.
rolled up and gave you guys the gifts I brought for you.
Sure,
and
but I'm just
picked
saying
it
there's
and-
always a way to like shoehorn God into it. He can
maybe
explain anything.
Maybe, but
so then it's a
my
pointless-
day would have still been flourishing with the presence of God.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that like that's kind of weak. Like if my day goes really well, hallelujah, God, shone down on me and did some shit.
I'm
If
saying
my
even-
day was really rough, like, oh, this is a trial that God is putting me
No,
through
I'm
so I can
saying
have a good day.
Even
Like,
in my suffering, God is there.
yeah, I know. So God is always there.
God's always
so
there.
when you say like
He's
God is in this
omnipresent.
room right now, well, where is he? What is it? What?
He's in this conversation.
Okay.
If he popped up in the sky right now and just shared words with us for like 30 seconds, me and Destiny would both be Christians tomorrow.
Yeah.
Facts.
Have
You
you,
know?
again, I would challenge you guys.
If it was that easy.
Have you guys ever asked Jesus to reveal himself to you? Right?
Okay,
That
hold
would
on.
go back with that.
Okay,
and,
well, hold
on.
and
That
examine the
bothers me.
resurrection.
Yes, I have obviously a lot as a kid, especially when it's Catholic. But you're not. But if you truly believe in God, you're not supposed to ask him for proof, right? He's supposed to be revealed.
I don't
in,
think
like,
there's anything wrong with saying, God, if you're real, reveal yourself to me. I don't think there's
I'm
anything
almost
wrong with
positive that's a really bad
that. I
thing
mean, that's
to do.
literally how I became a Christian.
Destiny, have you ever had what you at the time thought was a spiritual experience?
It would just be shit like if I flip this coin 3 times and it lands on heads every time, God is real. Like, it would be dumb shit like that as a kid, basically. But
So nothing like really significant, life altering.
never seen
You've
ghosts.
never had
or-
anything spooky happen. You've never like prayed for something and it's came to pass. Nothing like that.
I mean, like sometimes I'll pray to pass a test, but I mean, if I pass it, it's because I got the right answers, right? God's never paid the rent for me, okay?
I mean, I don't know. I've had some pretty miraculous stuff happen, supernatural, spooky stuff happen on the back of prayer.
I mean, I for sure have too, and I can't
Can't
I have-
explain it, man.
I have no logical explanation for it, but that's not to say that,
Okay.
But
yeah, I never had one when I was kind of in between. It never really revealed
for
itself to me.
I absolutely have. With that being said, I'm not anti-abortion.
Okay.
Wow.
So
That we supposed to argue now.
no, it's difficult, and I've always said this about. I feel like my belief system and my ideology, and just me overall as a person, you can't really like pigeonhole or categorize like that. Although I do consider myself Christian, I don't lean into things that I disagree with.
But do you feel like that's just self-serving because you've paid for so many?
Jesus Christ.
Gosh.
That's part of it.
I assume. I don't have
my
no
God.
idea.
There's a whole fucking no jumper clip. Anyways, I don't want any.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who do you guys think abortion benefits, men or women?
both, if they choose to have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a girl gets raped or some shit, I mean, that's pretty fucked up if she doesn't.
It's an
like,
extreme example, but that's a
1%
clear-cut case.
of
Yeah.
abortions.
yeah,
Less than
but
1%.
I mean, it's a percent.
Yeah.
It exists.
Yeah.
If it's 1 million babies aborted a year, isn't that what Christians say?
Yeah.
That's 10,000 raped women a year. 10,000 aborted babies from raped women.
And
My-
50% of raped women keep the baby.
My
Over
whole
50%.
belief set in terms
5,000.
of being pro-choice is just that the societal consequences of women being forced to carry through pregnancies that they do not want to carry have to be net negative in comparison to living in a world where they're able to make that choice. I just think that in terms of my lived experience of seeing how much it's benefited women to be able to have abortions and just how much that stopped them from having to live out being a mother when they didn't want to or weren't going to be able to be a responsible mother, I just think that that's such a clear-cut benefit to society that it overwhelms any kind of even if I did believe that there was an element of cruelty towards abortion after a certain point, I still just think it's so important that women be able to make that choice.
Not to mention how blatantly overpopulated the planet is.
Well, I don't believe
That's
that.
actually
but-
You don't believe that?
Hell
no.
no.
The whole
You don't believe
population,
that?
the whole population of the world could fit in the state of Texas, and everybody would have 1,200 square
Right,
feet.
but how much? But that's not to say how much of the world is uninhabitable. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm saying in parts that are inhabitable, people can live in cities. The issue that we're really dealing with, and this is another utility argument, is that depopulation is a real thing. And if you look at what's happening in South Korea and Japan, their entire societies, because they're now reproducing, are on the verge of collapsing. Their social safety net systems are on the verge of collapsing right now in real time because people aren't having enough kids. And that's going to happen in America soon if we don't increase our birth rates.
So what would you say to my thing about abortion that I just said?
I think it's anecdotal. I
Okay,
understand.
true.
I know quite a few women that have had abortions, usually to benefit men because men didn't want to be responsible fathers in situations. And I've also seen women that have became superheroes and it's completely changed their life. I've seen men step up and become incredible fathers and change their life because of a child and committing to that. So I've seen the opposite. I believe a baby should be for a man and a woman in a marriage for the nuclear family. I think that's optimal, and I think any empirical evidence proves that. But I've seen the unideal circumstances, even in cases of rape, completely be a massive blessing to a lot of people. We could Google famous people that almost got aborted. You're talking about Steph Curry. You're talking about Barack Obama. Like, you're talking about some pretty heavy hitters. And so
that has some kind of dark implications, though, right there.
I bet there's been some murderers that were almost aborted.
Well,
that was the argument, though. That was the Freakonomics argument, was that because of poverty, abortion's a net positive. And I would just disagree with it. I think we need to repopulate, and I think people generally need to make better decisions with who they choose to lay down with. Have you guys seen this backlash on TikTok after Roe v. Wade got overturned?
Backlash on TikTok?
Yeah,
Not
there was a bunch of
specifically.
folks from the hookup community, women from the hookup community, that were like, that's it, we're done, hookup culture is dead. And then the number one trending app on the App Store, can you guys guess what it was right after Roe v. Wade?
Tinder.
A fertility tracking app. Who would have thought?
Well, we both thought.
Who would have
Tinder.
thought, Adam, that women, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we use this as this emotional, what about rape? What about, it's like the vast majority of abortions are out of, I just don't want to keep this baby anymore, instead of being preventative, careful, selective with who you want to have kids with.
How many abortions have you paid for, Adam?
0.
Respect.
You make them pay themselves.
I had one girl back in the day who told me that she got an abortion after she already did, and I never really knew if it was true because
That's happened to me, too.
I also knew her to be a liar on a variety of other things, so I kind of thought that she was just playing games with me.
Well, how does Plan B factor into this equation?
Man, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not fully tapped into what Plan B does.
Does Plan
some
B
say-
prevent implantation?
Yeah, it kind of gets murky in
Right.
that. Generally speaking, I'm anti anything besides barrier methods and the rhythm method. You know what I mean? So
So pull out game strong, you straight.
yeah. I mean, I build a family with a wife and make her an honest woman strong. Praise God. I think that's
Sex
optimal.
for non-procreative purposes is probably bad, though, no?
In Catholicism, not in Christianity. In Christianity, there's a whole book called Song of Solomon, and it's just all about folks getting it on, including oral pleasure and all kinds of strip teasing and dancing.
You know about Tiana Trump?
No.
Okay, never mind.
She's in that chapter. For sure.
Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon is a book that Jewish boys couldn't even read because it's erotic literature, and it's about a man and a woman getting it on.
Did we ever get an answer on is sodomy? Does that include oral?
I think sodomy's anal.
It does?
Really?
Thank you.
That's
What a weird word.
Look it up.
It means nothing if it contains both things. They're both so
yeah, that doesn't
different.
make any sense.
Well, I thought it does. It's not that sodomy contains some things. My understanding was that sodomy is non-vaginal sex. That's what sodomy includes.
Sexual intercourse involving anal or oral copulation. Dictionary.com.
So it kind of
Oh.
only makes sense
So,
from
like,
just
I
a
thought-
sin perspective.
Well, I thought sodomy, even giving somebody a hand job, I thought would be considered sodomy.
I've never heard of that. I've heard of the oral, but
What a weird
I've never
thing
seen
that it's illegal in some places at sometimes.
To
Yeah.
give hand jobs?
Well,
should
sodomy
be
in general.
illegal.
There's laws on the books in a lot of places
Right.
still, right?
Certain states like that archaic laws from 17, you feel me, whatever.
Well, the problem is that for a lot of those laws, they don't get enforced anymore, but nobody's going to pass a motion to strike them down.
Exactly,
So fuck
but
that.
there's definitely Utah. You can't butt fuck your girlfriend or else you're
They're all doing it.
yeah,
Anal is huge in the Mormon world.
yeah, they're for sure.
That's one thing I could tell you.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
multiple wives.
Do you support Donald Trump?
No,
You never have at any point?
no, ever.
Your faith prohibits you from supporting such a immoral man, or what?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I don't think the way he spoke was indicative of the values he claimed to represent.
How do you feel about Herschel Walker in Georgia,
Oh,
the
no.
upcoming runoff election?
Yuck.
Bad man. If you're in Georgia, guys, Warnock. That's.
I
the
mean, I'm
guy.
not for Warnock either. I think Warnock
the-
is very problematic, but I'm
Why?
not for Herschel Walker.
Why is
either.
Warnock problematic?
Because he's pretty far into the left end of the spectrum. I mean, I
Well,
don't
what?
rock with him.
He's a holy man. He's a cool dude.
Stop.
Wow.
Stop
okay,
it.
I see what it is.
Stop it.
Vote Warnock, guys. Vote Warnock. We're going to be there canvassing on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, I think. We'll be there with 250 people strong.
So what-
We're gonna
so-
be knocking on doors and everything's going to be
So what
amazing.
happened? The election was so close that they had to do another election? Is that what
Georgia has this
happened?
dumb fucking rule, I think. I should know this because I canvassed there the last cycle. But I think that if no candidate gets over 50% of the vote, then there's a runoff that
So
happens.
within a percentage.
No, it's if they don't get over 50%. So, like, let's say there's
Oh,
like...
because there's a third party.
Yeah.
Got
so
it.
if it's
Okay.
like 49.8% one guy, and then two guys have 25%, they'll do a runoff election.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's like 49.7 versus like 48.3, I don't know what the last numbers were, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't do Trump. I can't do Walker. I like DeSantis. I think he's decent, but generally I'm not a big right wing or left wing guy.
What are your thoughts on DeSantis, Destiny?
He's like Trump Jr. No, I don't know. I didn't like the whole weird gay shit, the don't say gay shit, the like all the school interference stuff, the anti-trans stuff.
You think kids should be taught that before 3rd grade?
The problem is I don't know what the fuck they're teaching kids. I don't think anybody knows what the fuck they're teaching kids.
I mean, if there's documented proof that kids,
I don't
are
know.
being
I don't
taught
trust any of the documentary proof that the right wingers show up on like the fuck. Like if there's like real actual proof of shit,
this. There is.
Then
Not by right wingers.
I have to go through everything very carefully because nobody in the internet cares about anything that's real. If we should have seen that with that fucking kitty litter story. They just fucking passed through the entire goddamn country. You hear about the kitty litter story?
Yeah, they're saying that they had kitty litter in
It's fake
bathrooms.
as fuck.
Yeah,
but
I
every
heard that,
single
yeah.
fucker in the country was looking
they
for
was
cat
pushing that
boys
stuff, yeah.
in their 3rd grade classrooms,
Yeah,
okay?
I heard about
And
that,
it was
yeah.
totally fucking fake.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, if there's teachers having conversations with kids where it's like sometimes little boys, want to get vaginas, like, yeah, that's obviously wildly inappropriate.
Inappropriate,
But,
okay.
like, saying that, like, oh, trans people exist, sometimes people feel differently, and, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whenever it's age appropriate, I think that's an okay conversation.
But
to have.
as far as I know, the law was a cutoff for 3rd grade. As far as I know,
The problem is that
I
the
read
law,
about it.
the law specified, I think it was up till 3rd grade, but there was other language in the law that
Age
said,
appropriate.
or when age appropriate.
appropriate, yeah.
And the law itself created a private cause of action for families to sue schools and for the schools to shoulder the burden of those lawsuits if something wrong happened. So the problem isn't necessarily the law itself, it's the chilling effect that's created. Like, let's say I want to teach a certain author that happens to be gay.
Mm-hmm.
Could there be a parent that wants to file a lawsuit against the school because we're teaching gay literature or gay authorship or gay plays or whatever?
I remember being in school and the Christian kids, I wasn't Christian, but the Christian kids just being able to opt out of certain stuff. So like if they knew that some of these, they didn't want to do sex ed, they could just opt out. So it seems like some of that has changed. And it seems like the fear is, hey, let's not overcorrect and indoctrinate people into saying this is the same as a nuclear
That's
family.
not mutually exclusive to just Christian kids either.
Sure.
Like if you don't want to, most schools aren't going to make you in biology class dissect a frog anymore and things like that.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Well, you
Yeah, I
should
think-
have
I
to. You
think-
should be forced to.
I mean, I think if
Get your
parents
stomach up.
don't want their kids to be exposed to the idea that these alternative lifestyles are the same as a nuclear family, they should have the right to not have their kids.
I
do
think
it.
you should have to learn about it. I think you should have to learn about
My
it.
at
thing
what
is,
age?
I'm extremely concerned as a parent that at some point my kid is going to go to school and is going to have a fucking teacher who basically tries to convince them that the spirit of the founding of America was inherently racist. And I feel like that is a practical conversation that should happen about what is considered acceptable to teach to kids in high schools, in junior highs, whatever. Like, I think that that's a real conversation that needs to happen. And sometimes we get so distracted by the polar opposites of each conversation that we aren't willing to try to meet in the middle on something.
Yeah. And I'm down to meet in the middle there, but I think there's a lawsuit in California right now of a 6th grader who was basically convinced, and there's leaked recordings of this, that she was trans and went through a whole transition, and then the CPS got called in because the mom wouldn't use the proper pronouns. Mom pulled her out of the school, put her in a different school. She's no longer trans, and this is 6th grade, right? So I think that stuff is happening too as well, which is like, man,
yeah, that's just fucked up.
that's
let's be
crazy, bro.
honest.
If it really happened like that.
No,
The
no,
thing
no,
I
it
hate
really happened like
every
that.
single time. I'm not saying you're doing this, but 100%. not 92%, not 80, 100% of the time a story like that is brought up, whenever I go home and I research it afterwards, there's like a million things more complicated that change dramatically how that story plays out. So
Well,
maybe
I mean,
there's a case. If that's happening, it's bad.
I'm trying to
but, like,
condense.
sure, I understand.
articles upon articles, but it
Sure.
is a real thing happening in California right now, where there's teachers that got reprimanded for it, and there's a lawsuit happening right now. Leaked recordings of them at a trans LGBTQ conference and how to talk to kids in conservative areas. That stuff happens, man. You know, so you're talking about being indoctrinated that everything is racism. I mean, what about trans stuff like that? That can jack up a kid's psyche.
And I think that's fair too, is that there should be a conversation about what's acceptable to teach kids in that regard. And like we can't just leave it up to individual teachers, because clearly some of these teachers are fucking lunatics, and we see it playing out on the internet all the time. And I just think it's like even somebody like me who's not super concerned about my kid being fucking radicalized by school, like I feel like I have a decent reason for concern at some point. You know, she's 2, so not much concern currently, but in
I
the
think
future,
there has to be a way where we could teach history and say, hey man, like we got a pretty dark history in this country.
Yeah,
however,
for sure.
However, you know, we're also not going to say that everything is systematically racist and you can't get ahead and it just sucks for you and it's a zero-sum game. Like,
I just don't want my kid to
gotta
be
bring
like
back-
7 and confronting her whiteness or whatever the fuck.
True, yeah.
I don't want Robin DiAngelo to be speaking at her school.
I agree.
This is kind of where I'm at.
I agree.
I don't know. Shit. What else should we talk about?
So they said we should take questions from the chat. Not sure if you guys do that here. Chat's going pretty crazy though.
I'm very open to that.
Are we?
Super chats? Drop some
You know,
super
we
chats.
got 11 minutes till Monday show, unless you want to push.
We
that.
did say that we were going to give ourselves an extra half hour if we wanted, but yeah, I don't know. I can't stop thinking about Tim Pool being on the Kanye West jet and just that.
I heard they were live streaming together.
Somebody just messaged me and said that apparently Ye walked out of the
No.
Timcast interview with 20 minutes.
Can we
in.
see that?
Shut
Can we
the
react to
fuck
that?
up. It's probably not a good idea for copyright reasons, but
What if you played at 1.25
wait, there is a
speed?
clip. There's a clip of him walking out.
If there's a clip, we should react.
If you
to
go to YouTube and type fucking Tim Pool walkout and it comes up, then for sure we need to
it's
watch
definitely
it.
on Twitter. You can play it at 1.25 speed to avoid the copyright. I learned
that
that
idea.
from my situation with Vlad.
I mean, either way, we're probably just gonna we're gonna appeal it either way. But I feel like I would have already seen it mentioned in the chat if that actually existed. But who
Adam, when
knows?
are we gonna get you to interview some Christian rappers, man?
Who you got?
Lecrae.
Lecrae is. I mean,
I
that's
follow
a
him.
given.
Should I talk to him?
You should talk to him. No big deal. Indie Tribe. I'm Rescued. Andy Mineo. I went back and read the message I sent you in 2018, and
I didn't reread it, but I saw that it exists.
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying, like, man, like, I think it'd be interesting if you interviewed some different people. And
Do you revere DC Talk? Because they're my memory from childhood. I used to just hear about them. I was like, those are Christian rappers. Like,
Bro, he still makes music.
oh, it's just one guy.
It's gosh, I forgot his name. but he
Not
still
only
makes
that
music.
though, like there's a lot of rappers that are Christian.
Amazing.
Like that aren't necessarily
find it?
in the genre of Christian rap. Like one of my favorite things in hip hop are when hardcore gangster rappers make God songs. Like for example, Scarface.
Oh, yeah.
Has some of the best Jesus records ever. They'll make fucking Destiny want to go to church, bro. I swear to
Scarface
God.
got some bangers.
A
so-
real true sinner.
Okay, here we go. Can we react to this?
Yeah. Put us in the corner.
Can we hear it?
Are we gonna get to hear it?
It might take some.
Finagling.
I don't know.
Oh, here goes Nick. There's your buddy
I
Nick.
see
Yeah,
Nick.
I
Why
missed
is he all of a sudden wearing like a blue
2018.
hoodie?
Because
What do you mean
Kanye's
it's not?
dressed.
He's been rocking
What
a
do I
fucking
mean, like,
a suit for like
okay,
his
so
whole
how
adult
about-
life, and then all of a sudden he starts hanging out with Kanye,
leaving?
and he's just wearing athleisure.
Are you afraid of the press?
Kanye stylizing your
man's-
boy.
Well,
He's,
we
uh,
didn't get to hear anything there, but we
I'll
did
say
see
it right
Kanye.
now.
I guess.
Wow.
What happened?
You guys,
He walked out.
Tim
you
Pool's
guys want
beanie
to bring
was
that stuff
blocking
up?
most of it.
And then
How-
we're not gonna-
How interesting.
Oh,
I
we had.
think they've been extremely unfair.
Here we go.
I
Who
think.
was they though? We can't say they as,
corporate
can we?
press. I'm not using the. I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking
It is
about
them, though, isn't it? I mean, because
No.
and because when you think about it, consider it.
Does he mean Jews?
2018.
Yes.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about? Are you leaving?
Oh no! He
So,
just
so
left.
Tim Pool is too anti-Semitic for
I'll say
Kanye.
No, not anti-Semitic.
Not
enough.
anti-Semitic enough.
Wow.
Oh,
What'd you guys think of the
Wow.
whole? That's crazy.
Oh, poor Tim. Oh, dude, he probably saw the money bags walking out of his fucking studio.
What the fuck?
What'd you guys think of the Balenciaga thing? Did you guys already talk about that? With the kids
Yeah,
in
I was
bondage?
actually thinking about asking Destiny that as well because I wasn't really sure what to think
It
of it.
looked like some stupid
I think
shit.
Ye might have dodged a bullet with that one. Do you guys see the follow up on like the books that they were posted and some of the weird stuff in the books and Kim dressed the exact same way?
The thing that came out today there with their head designer with the two
dressing
red babies.
Kim just like this stuff that they dressed the babies in.
Okay, hold on. Did we think that they were like trying to send coded pedophilic messages?
That's
through
what I'm
fucking
saying.
Abercrombie?
Like,
no
what do people
fucking
think
shot.
that they actually were doing that?
I don't necessarily think that, although I feel like a lot of times people play off the assumption that people are like using that symbolism. Like, for example, no, listen to me. Listen. I'm not saying that it's like pro adrenochrome or anything like that. What I'm saying,
some weird
it's like,
stuff, man.
well, it is weird for sure. But like when everybody was like, Jay Z's in the Illuminati, and then all of a sudden he had to Run This Town video, which had like Illuminati imagery all through it and all that, kind of like just to fuck with people.
I think they're like, let's try to sneak some pedo shit in. Just to see
No.
if anybody notices
I don't think they're I think they're like playing with the satanic imagery, which kind of is one tick away from pedophilic imagery.
I think the sheer incompetence to let something like that slide and then to have books on the wall with weirdo imagery is just out of this world. So to even just take it on a very superficial level, that's just gross negligence
For
on
a
whoever the marketing
brand
is.
to do that, knowing that the right wing would just like if Destiny or I were consultants for Balenciaga and they had ran that by us, we would have been able to basically predict exactly like what Mike Cernovich's tweets about it would be like. It just the response is super predictable, so I'm not sure why they took that leap if they were going to immediately retract it. You know?
Yeah.
Sure, but the thing is that like first of all, it's not like there was a paper and it was like child porn good, right? It was like a particular Supreme Court case, and I think you had to look it up because it had to do with child porn. Like it's not like it was literally written right there. Like we love child porn. I don't know. Like I just like there are of all the possible worlds where shit happened. Whenever shit like that happens and people are like, oh, I think there's like, so they all got together in the back room. None of this leaks, by the way, because apparently it's the best secretive pedophile society in the world. And they all are like, okay, well, we're pedos and we want to signal to other pedos. So maybe in this like advertisement that's paid for with like all this outside funding and everything, let's try to sneak like the most sneakiest fucking pedophilia. It's like no shot. It's out of this world. There's no way. Dude,
I'm not saying all of that, Destiny. I'm just saying the fact that this sheer degree of incompetence happened with a brand as big as Balenciaga is nuts. And I think they're deserving of everything.
When we say sheer degree of incompetence, let's play this, okay? Let's say the conservatives had never freaked the fuck out, emptying their load on their fucking keyboards when somebody looked up what Supreme Court case this is. Is anybody anywhere across the world being negatively affected by this? Is anybody really looking up the words in a piece of paper in a Balenciaga and then typing them into their computer and seeing what the case is about and then like liking child porn?
No. I don't think it's them liking child porn. I think it's being okay with platforming creatives and designers that are into some weirdo stuff.
Well, it's definitely like whether or not it's pro pedophilic, it's definitely like satanic imagery. We could all
agree. Is it satanic? It was just the
mean,
words of a Supreme Court.
You got to see the images, bro. You got to look at here. I'll pull it up for you because now I'm
because they have like kids holding like a teddy bear and the teddy bear's wearing bondage.
That's
shit,
a whole
right?
other thing too, which is fucking.
I agree, it's kind of weird, but I also just don't ascribe the kind of evil
weird.
to it that a lot of people seem eager to.
No. It's the stuff Kim Kardashian was wearing in the ads.
It's definitely creepy.
Bro.
No, but did you see the other thing? The picture of the bitch who's one of the head designers for Balenciaga wearing all red, holding the red babies.
I saw that, yeah.
Now swipe, and you guys can see.
That don't look a little satanic to you?
Swipe, and
that
you can
look
see
like
Kim in the same outfit.
Like a cover, an album cover for one of the metal bands you used to jack back in the day?
Well, let me see. I want to see it.
So swipe back, you'll see. So this is trending right now with Kim Kardashian. The stuff they dressed her in is out of one of the books that was in the ad, and that's straight out of the weirdo imagery.
So what? She's supposed to look like these satanic drawings to start it
the
off?
The satanic drawings were in the book, in the ads. Like they had these books in the ads. So yeah, you guys could go look this stuff up. It's pretty crazy. But
here's what I'm saying: if Democrats had fucking 3 kids, little girls on stage singing about like some fucking candidate like Trump did with those 3 girls, I think people would be overanalyzing the fuck out of it. But because it was Republican, nobody gave a fuck. I feel like there's selective.
That's true too, though.
I feel like there's selective analysis that goes on.
Selective
where people are
outrage
looking
for
really
sure.
hard for fucking.
But I would say this is a political thing.
What if Trump was sniffing a little girl's hair?
They would go crazy with that.
I mean, what if Trump was paying porn stars to be hushed while he was fucking them behind his fucking third wife's back, right?
you go.
Like, I mean, what?
he wouldn't get my vote.
But we all know it's like a pretty obvious conservative playbook that they basically just try to take everything on the left or any of their ideological opponents, which Balenciaga officially is because they deserted Kanye, and then they try to conflate whatever they're doing with pedophilia, and just because it's the most toxic thing to be associated with. And this is a fucking layup because it's kind of in your face, creepy and weird, and just seems totally tone deaf. And I don't blame the conservatives for fucking doing this because it's so obvious that this is their playbook. But people like Balenciaga shouldn't be making this fucking easy on them.
Yeah, they
Yes.
they definitely like you said, tone deaf. The timing is crazy because a lot of other brands, high end luxury brands and designers have been toying with this imagery for a long fucking time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They're
Here's
not
the issue
first
too.
ones.
Is it like they just did this now as they abandoned Kanye, or have like higher end luxury brands, which to a normie like me, I don't understand half the fucking shit they're showcasing. Have they always been engaging in like really off the wall, really pushing the boundaries, like crazy fucking imagery?
Absolutely.
have.
Because
I'm
that's
willing
what
to bet-
art is, and a lot of
Yeah,
high
absolutely.
fashion is basically just like co-opting a lot of shit that's going on in
But
high
now
art.
that they're political opponents, now it's satanic imagery and not just like artists being, doing wacky shit.
A few years removed from it, I'll admit that when the whole thing happened about the Gucci turtleneck that had the fucking face on it
Yeah.
that kind of looked like blackface,
Yeah.
that I kind of felt like that was a stretch. That to me, that like did not seem like an attempt for them to do like a coded anti-black thing.
Or what about when H&M had the coolest monkey in the jungle and then
And they had a black kid modeling it.
That's a bit much,
tone
no?
deaf.
Yeah.
But I don't really see what is inherently racist about the existence of monkeys and like a shirt referencing monkeys. Like I have a 2-year-old. Trust me, she loves monkeys. She says the word monkey all the time. She points at Teletubbies and calls them monkeys because she hasn't figured out that they're called Teletubbies yet.
tone deaf
It's just
to a very, very like
they shouldn't have had a black kid wearing it in the catalog. But,
even-
if they hadn't made that decision, then I don't think we ever would have heard about it.
Yeah,
No,
and even at that
we wouldn't
case,
have.
right? Like a black kid jumping, like you said, like kids talk about like monkeys and shit, right?
Right.
It reminded me when people are like, we need to rename monkeypox because it's racist. And it's like, what the fuck does it say about you if you think monkeypox and you think black people? Like,
Right.
Well, that's,
why would that
that's-
even be where your
that's
mind
insane.
goes?
Yeah, that's
you know?
a racist thought in
And
and
it's
of
like,
itself.
well, yeah, but that's kind of what you're like, oh, a kid like no monkeys in the jungle. Like, I don't know, I would see a kid fucking wearing some fucking monkey shit. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, black, it's an ape. Like Jesus, that's just like some, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like
A
people.
little Freudian slip.
Yeah, people run to like these crazy places. Like, bro, maybe, dude, and even I like I remember ContraPoints brings this up in a video where I see like an ad, I see like a picture, and you have like some woman and her child, and it's like protecting our future, and it's a white woman and a white child, and I'm thinking like, this is a fucking Nazi ad.
Right. You
But
could
it's
take-
not. It's just a white person and a white kid, and I'm like, what the fuck am I even thinking anymore? And I feel like people have to fucking chill. You need to bring the temperature way down a lot of shit.
And I have a lot of examples of the same exact type of shit. Like there is a hip hop ad and it was 2 white kids' faces and it said, "This is our culture." And I thought I had the same fucking thought. Now, with that being said, Balenciaga having an ad with little kids and teddy bears with S&M gear on is fucking sus. Let's keep it a stack.
I guess I wish that conservatives had this outrage for fucking pageants, which is conservative culture.
That shit's fucking sus, too.
And that's
That's
million,
sus, too,
but that
bro.
is a million times more sus, and they have been fucking silent on it. And that's why when I look at you, this is why, here's an issue that I have. When we talk about educating kids, we talk about all these things, okay? This is a huge issue that I have. Is a lot of the criticism doesn't feel like it comes from a place of compassion, right? And I think that is probably the single most important thing when it comes to criticizing somebody. If a friend comes up to you and they're like, bro, like, you're doing some wild shit, you need to, like, figure your shit out, right? If it feels like it's coming from a place of compassion, you're more likely to listen to it. Whereas if somebody's like, bro, you're a fucking moron, right? Like, you're not writing the advice off because it's bad advice. You might be a fucking moron, but if it feels like it's coming from a hateful place, you're not going to listen. And when I see the selective outrage for certain things, and I don't see it in places where it would be more worthwhile. That's not to say that you have to be mad at everything at once, but like pageantry is really weird. And there's been reality TV shows about pageantry, and nobody has fucking said anything about it. But now a couple Balenciaga ads come out after Ye gets dropped for some weird shit, and now all of a sudden conservatives that you're supposed to convince me care about kids being objectified sexually. I just don't buy it. I don't think they really give a fuck about it.
Well, and from an outside perspective, they're both fucked up, and it's not one
Yeah.
or the other. There's like it's not.
No, but that's the problem. Is you can't say that you care about it now when you never cared about it before. I don't believe you care about it. I think it's a political win. I think that if the ad came out and it was a Trump ad, I think those people would be rushing to defend it. That's the issue, right? Is it like
you really think that?
Absolutely. Here's a prediction that I know is fucking true. If Trump would have won the re-election, 95% of conservatives would have had the Trump vaccine in their body. Guaranteed. Because it would have been Trump's achievement. He pushed it through. He's the one that pushed for the warp speed shit on the research. He's the one that pushed to sell a lot of those contracts ahead of time, which was good on Trump. He did it, and he even wanted to take credit for the vaccine after the election season.
a lot of anti-vaxxers that are historically super right-wing consider him a bootlicker for even.
Now they do, but I think if you would have won the election, I bet conservatives would have gotten vaccinated because it just becomes a political partisan issue based on your political identity, and it's fucking annoying because there are a lot of good conversations that can happen, but they all just get held captive by whatever people's ideological leanings are, which is frustrating. And then none of the criticisms feel like they come from a place of compassion. It just comes from a place of like, I fucking hate these people.
And there's no objectivity. At that point.
Even fuck objectivity.
Yeah,
Even if it's completely subjective. I just wish there was like there are conversations to be had. I have very strong feelings about how people should be spoken to as minors about trans issues. I think there's a huge epidemic of trans trendiness, trans trenders that exist, especially in college campuses, especially with women, right? But I have a lot of compassion for trans people. I support trans people. I support minors getting hormones if there's the proper barriers in place for it, right? You shouldn't be able to walk in at 14 and go, I feel a little bit weird. Can I have a dick, right? You shouldn't be able to, it shouldn't be that easy, right? But the problem is when conservatives come at this and criticize it, it's like, I hate trans people. I don't want any fucking messaging for these people at all. It's fucking disgusting. I don't believe it. It's all unnatural. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't feel like your criticism is coming from a place of care or concern. It's just a political sledgehammer that you're using to attack the other side. And children just happen to be like the people getting hit in the middle, which is what bothers me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you talked about earlier about like, should we be talking to kids about gay and trans and shit or whatever? And I agree that like those conversations are hard, but holy fuck, to a 5th or 6th grader that is starting to go through puberty and realizes they're fucking gay, to not have anybody communicating anything about that to them at all when they're in the fucking locker room and they're getting weird feelings when all of their friends are starting to talk about girls and they don't have those feelings and nobody in society speaks to them. Like class or school might be the only place where somebody, because the parents might not even realize, right? Class or school might be the only place where the kid can hear that message. So to remove that completely and say, well, parents will figure it out, when a lot of parents don't have any conversations with their children about sex, feels to me like a concern that's coming out of an ideological leaning and not a compassion for the children.
No, and that education should be normalized, but at a certain point when it becomes over accommodating to those lifestyles, especially.
I agree, that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, have you looked at the stats of the number of Gen Z kids identifying as LGBTQIA?
It's high, but there's a problem there.
1
too.
out of 5.
Yeah, but the problem
that's
is
doubled
that
every single
But the
generation.
problem is in that trans category, there's a new fucking thing called non-binary, and that's where like 98% of like the identification is coming from. It's not so people say like,
It's
oh
trendy
my God.
now, though. There's a social contagion
But I just
to
want to
it.
be clear, there is a social contagion for it, but it's not. It's not people in 5th grade getting vaginas. It's people in college that are like, I'm non-binary and my pronouns are Zer.
Sure,
It's them, right?
sure.
And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying like that's a phase we need to deal with it. But people like, dude, if you spend time researching something, if I put out a 10-minute video on a topic, I can speak for 2 hours about it because not every piece of knowledge I have is going to show up in the video.
Sure.
You have to do a lot of background research. When you make a whole fucking documentary about trans issues and trans kids, and you get put on Joe Rogan and he says, "How many kids do you think are on hormones?" and you say millions.
Yeah, that was an L for Walsh.
Yeah, but it's not just an L in that moment. It showed that he didn't do a single ounce of research for the entire
To see how
documentary.
impactful that was.
Yeah, because if you think of something,
fair.
that's like, if I ask you like how many homeless people are in LA, and you're like, I don't know, maybe like 5 million. What the fuck kind of number? What do you even know what the fucking population of LA is?
I think the number is a great pushback on your part. I think the issue becomes they really are giving kids medication that's designed to chemically castrate people. That is happening.
Puberty
now.
blockers not a chemical castration, to be fair. Right?
It's the same stuff that they give to chemically castrate criminals. This is happening. This has been confirmed. I can show you clips of it.
There are drugs that can delay the onset of puberty, but to pretend that's the same thing of people being mandated to take drugs to make them impotent.
I'm saying
is
it's the same drug.
That doesn't matter though. You can take the same drug for a lot of different things.
Okay, so
you're trying to say that it's a drug used for one thing, and you want to bring the moral weight of that being used for another thing. Like,
no, I'm not trying to bring
Ketamines for cats.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like what is that? Doesn't mean anything.
I'm saying that kids that can't consent to sex, that can't drive, that can't drink, are making life-altering decisions, even if it just postpones puberty. That's pretty gnarly, man. And if it's a social
kid
contagion,
might know if they're 13 or 14.
yeah, or they might be highly influenced by the kids around them in TikTok.
It's possible, but that's why you have like either parents that know, school counselors that know, or therapists
But
that are
parents
trained
don't
to
always
do it.
know because that's like a trendy thing for a lot of parents now.
What do you do for the trans woman then that just went through puberty as a man and now she's fucking 6'2" with the broadest fucking shoulders in the world? You just say, well, fuck you. Sorry, you didn't have the opportunity to have treatment.
Yeah, I can't speak to that situation. That's not my fight. I'm saying specifically with kids.
But that
there's
is the fight.
legit-
That's the issue.
That's the trans issue. But there's kids that can't give consent that are making life-altering decisions by a thing that seems to be a social contagion. If we're looking at the numbers,
Sure.
doubling every population.
But
1
then
out of 5 Gen Zers identify as
sure.
LGBTQIA.
Firstly,
That's kind of wild.
Okay, sure. Firstly, kids do consent to sex with each other. They start fucking 13, 14, 15.
As far as I know, that's still illegal.
A 15-year-old and a 15-year-old having sex is not
Yes.
illegal.
I'm pretty sure if we could fact
I'm
check
100%.
that. It was when I was in high school.
It was not.
It was when I was in high school.
It wasn't.
Okay, let's look it up.
In the United States?
In the United States, in California.
Shit.
No.
First
Wait,
I've
I
heard
could be
about
wrong.
it.
I could be wrong.
Hold on.
But let's
I'm gonna
not
meet
get
you
in the
middle.
weeds. Let's not get in the weeds.
To send nude pictures is illegal. That's illegal. But to have
Sure.
sex, children have sex with children. I say children, like teenagers.
Yeah, I don't think so.
If they're gonna do it, that's probably who they should do it with.
Yeah, so they already are making those decisions. And then two, children also make a lot of insanely life-altering decisions, like fucking going to college. Like the older I get,
that's stupid too.
the more wild it is to me that at 18 you're asking, dude, what do you want to do for the rest
and
of
you're
your
going
life?
hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah,
That's dumb
but
too.
I'm just saying that, like, and there are also things that children are going to know. Like a 17-year-old is going to know if they're gay or not.
Okay.
Do you agree? If
For
or do you
sure.
believe a
Sure.
17-year-old is
For
gonna right? So why wouldn't a 17-year-old start to be clued in on? I agree that not every 17-year-old that thinks they're trans is probably trans. That's true. But if you are trans, you're gonna know by 17.
There definitely has to be a standardized like system put into place to
with a lot of critical pushback.
With
If a
a
kid
lot.
comes in and they say, I feel trans, like step one is like, let's talk about your life and see what's going on here, right? It shouldn't be like all gender affirming care, like, oh yeah, like let's see what drugs we can get you on immediately. Let's give you all the dresses, the therapies, or blah, blah, blah. There should be critical conversations happening. I agree 100%.
And on the other side of the spectrum, I don't want kids killing themselves because they're
What do you
Yeah.
What do you make of the kids that have detransitioned that have
be
completely
back.
been ostracized by the trans community?
It sucks, but it's like everybody just becomes a political tool. That's the issue, though, right? Detransitioners aren't liked by the trans community because they see them as a threat to the massive gender affirming care, and conservatives like detransitioners because they use them as a weapon against trans people. It's shitty, but
But it's
I
still
mean,
a community out there, and they're being suppressed, right?
Yeah, but there's communities like that. Oh, look at the black conservative community. That's how Candace Owens even got to Ye in the first place, right? Is we're leaving the plantation. Like Democrats expect all black people to think this one thing, and they suppress everybody that's not.
I don't
right?
think
That's
there's
an
anything
issue
wrong
that-
with being a black conservative in the same way I don't think there's anything wrong with detransitioning.
Sure, I
and
know, but
wanting
I'm just saying
to
that like
share your
there's
voice.
always going to be minority. I don't want to call them token figures, but there's always going to be minorities like that that are going to be used as weapons to attack the entirety.
As far as I know,
this.
there's a pretty big group right now in the UK that are looking at detransitioning, and there's been lawsuits, at least two that I've heard of. One in the UK that's a viral story, and one in Australia.
Yeah, sure, there might be
against the
detransitioners.
doctors that they feel like she did not properly give them care
Which is
when they
good,
were
and that's
teenagers.
fine. I think that's good.
So
There
you're
should be
for
critical-
detransitioning kids suing doctors that helped them transition.
If there was an improper method that was followed, or if they were improperly pushing them in a certain direction, then like anything you would do with a child and a doctor, yeah, of course there should be legal.
I think it's the
repercussions.
tricky part is improper. This is all new terrain. We don't know what we're doing.
Sure, of course it is, yeah.
We're just walking in darkness trying to figure it out.
And that's the entire history of human medicine and psychology is walking through darkness and trying to forge a new path, right?
Sure, but like we look back at lobotomies and we go, yeah, that's pretty terrible that we
No,
did
they
that.
weren't. Why do you think that?
You don't think we look back at lobotomies today and think that was stupid?
No,
that we
of
did
course
that to
not.
people? Wait, hold on. You think lobotomies were good?
Absolutely.
Really?
There was a point in human history where there were certain diseases, there were issues of the mind that had no treatment whatsoever. And if you had some of these issues, they locked you in a fucking room and they threw away the key. You couldn't fucking do anything. Now, for a lot of people, they discovered that if you split a part of the brain up here in a surgery called a lobotomy, that they could actually alleviate the symptoms for a lot of these people. Now, there were a lot of negative side effects, and these negative side effects were severe, and they affected a huge group of people. But lobotomies were better than nothing. But that's the history of human medicine. From lobotomies, we grew to learn other techniques. We don't do lobotomies anymore because we have drug therapy. But like people would look at things like electroshock therapy and they'd say that's horrible. We still do electroshock therapy. It works for depression, for treatment-resistant depression. Like there are a lot of things in human history that they seem kind of bad, but that's just because we have better alternatives to what those existed at the time. But if you look up research, where did lobotomies come from? Why did we do them? It's because there were non-treatable conditions related to certain severe mental health problems
They did
that
it for
had
bipolar,
no treatment.
right?
What?
They did it for bipolar, right?
Not just like I feel sad some days and happy for other days, but there was no treatment whatsoever. I highly encourage everybody because people always bring up lobotomies. Go look up the history of lobotomies. It was better than nothing. That's the problem. Look it up. Look at the history. I super recommend it.
So what
Sorry.
you're saying is teaching kids about this stuff now, potentially misdiagnosing them, potentially getting them started too early, irreversible stuff. They'll never have an orgasm. They'll potentially never have kids. You think that's better than nothing?
I think that there has to be a risk assessment. There always has to
There'll
be
be
a
more
risk
caution.
assessment.
Can we agree on that? Can we get there needs to be more
It
caution?
feels like
about-
right now, yeah, because it's way too ideological from the teacher side, and teachers already are going to have an ideological leaning towards the left, and schools are already administration going to have an ideological leaning towards the left. So yeah, but this is also the reason why, and I blame conservatives for this, why they need to stop being so fucking crazy about these conversations, because I want them in those rooms having those conversations. I want a conservative in the room saying, "Hey, listen, I don't hate trans people, but maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious on some of the conversations that are happening because that's an invaluable voice that needs to be there. But instead, all those conservatives are on TV shows saying all trans ideology is hateful. They're trying to fucking give chemical castrating drugs to our children, and they just hate us and they hate our children. They're trying to destroy our kids. And it's like, okay, well,
Isn't that a bit of a caricature though? Like,
no,
I don't think
absolutely
I don't
not.
think. I don't think
the
everyone.
pedo shit is brought up so much for trans
Yeah, I'm not speaking
people.
on the pedo stuff.
But
I'm
that
saying-
is the mainstream narrative. Look at the libs of TikTok again on Twitter. Look at DeSantis banning using the Medicaid hammer, the state initiative to get rid of treatment for any like trans children or whatever. Like it is the mainstream position to think that all of it is bad. But when you have that position, now you're not in the room having the reasonable conversation.
I don't know. I guess I just don't see it as a binary. All of it is bad. I think it's like, hey, we're overcorrecting for actual kids that were hurting and actual kids that were struggling, and now we've overcorrected and just opened up the floodgates.
Sure,
and now
I
anything goes.
agree with you. I think a lot of the trans shit, especially, dude, that's why I'm fucking banned from Twitch. I was streaming there for 11 fucking years, and I think I got banned over trans issues because I said that some of it goes too far, 100%. So I agree with you, but again, I don't feel like the criticism comes from a place of compassion. Sometimes it feels like it's just hatred for like that left leaning ideology.
I would agree that there are definitely conservatives that are ideological that aren't coming from a place of compassion. I think that's a fair point.
Well, gentlemen.
Sorry, hi.
No, it's been good. It was great.
That
Glad we got to have this
Red Bull kicked
conversation.
in, huh?
No, my high wore off, so now I'm back in the zone. Okay.
He's crossfaded now.
The Red Bull kicked in, huh?
Look, they know. He's no longer high. The weed wore off. LOL.
I don't smoke very much at all. You're fucking huffing next to me all fucking day, and I'm a little bit.
Yeah, no, my bad.
No, it's all good. You're fine.
I ordered a Red Bull for you.
It's all good. I gotta chill for an hour.
It's like the casino, you know?
Yeah.
Got to keep you in business.
My mom was a blackjack dealer, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Legendary. That's
Iconic.
something I sometimes wish that I was able to do something like that with my life. Get a lot of good human interaction in there, you know?
Do you have a cutoff point for you in terms of success and everything you got going? Is there like a number you're going after?
I don't feel all that comfortable yet.
You don't?
So, I don't know.
I feel like you always want more.
Yeah.
It feels weird because like were you ever poor as a person?
Yeah, as a kid, for
Like
sure.
I would, yeah. I mean, growing up, I would always think that like, God damn, dude, if I could get a job earning like 75,000 a year, that would be so far above what
me
I could
too,
ever
for
accomplish.
sure.
Yeah, but then like once you start hitting higher and higher numbers, and then every now and then I'll look at like my monthly income, like this is insane. But you always want to push for more. It's just like the human drive to like you acclimate and then you want more and more and more.
My dad
always.
had a friend who gave me a job doing landscaping for $20 an hour, and I felt like
Oh
I was
my
the
God.
richest fucking kid in the world in high school in like '99 because I was getting $20 an hour. I just felt like I was like outlandishly rich at that moment in my
Pretty
life.
good money at 99.
Yeah.
Dude, when in 2008, I was working at the casino and I was doing $22.50 an hour for overtime because I was like I was working a ton, and I got on Poker Stars. I was the richest motherfucker, and this is in Nebraska.
I
okay?
felt like I was printing money
Yeah.
doing landscaping at that time.
My
in
rent
life.
is like $900 a month. I'm making fucking multi-$1,000 biweekly paychecks. Like you better believe I'm loading up the Joker Stars account. We're going.
So
fucking
it kind of
hard.
becomes just a game. Like, how much can I do?
But I don't know. It's weird because okay, you could kind of look at your life as I'm just a content creator, so I'm just going to make as much content as possible, do as many podcasts and interviews, whatever. I could do that, and then it's also kind of like I could try to be this like businessman. I could like create products, promote products, try to like build a gigantic business or whatever. You could be like Mr. Beast with it, you know? And it's kind of like that's the struggle that I have kind of at this point is like, well, how much am I really supposed to expect of myself? Like to what extent do I want to like really put time into trying to turn this into a crazy business versus am I just okay with just being a person who does content all the time, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a good tension that we as creatives have, like making something that's great or like making frequency and dropping a lot of content about interesting stuff that you probably be doing this anyway. We'd probably be having conversations like this anyway.
You said you're married with 2 kids?
2 kids, yes, sir.
So a question for both of you, because I have no answer here because I'm a horribly obsessed person. How the fuck do you guys balance out your work shit, knowing that if there was 100 hours in the day, you could still work sun up to sundown?
I try to just think of it as like, okay, I'm going to take Saturday and Sunday to hang out with my kid, and I'm going to see my kid like in the morning during breakfast. You know, sometimes I don't have to come to work till like 1 or 2 at times, so it's like try to just get kid time in the morning. But I also have to like force myself out of this like sappy, child-loving mentality because it's like it's just impractical for me. It's like in reality is that I need to spend a shitload of time here, and that's like
Yeah, but that's
you know?
still
That's
in
the-
you. You're datum 22, bro.
Well, and I was
Like,
gonna say
through
the
and
reality
through.
though is you don't
That's
need
good.
to spend that time. That's because
but I
you
try to
could
hold
work.
myself to that standard, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm just curious how you how do you
Yeah.
balance out, especially you as a growing person. I'm sure you'd see there's a million ways that you could dump more time into like your
so
stuff. Yeah.
so we have an 8-year-old who just turned 8. His name's Levi, and we have
I'm sorry,
we have my
religious
niece. Yes, your son's name's Levi.
No. You're just the religion. Oh, actually, I guess it is. And it's not Levi. It's Daniel, religious names. But
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
He just laughed at him like,
No, your son's name is Levi. It's like, of course it is. And then we also have another child named David. It's like, okay, no, I'm just kidding. But go ahead.
This
Or
is kid's
Solomon
name.
or whatever.
This is
right?
psycho right here.
No,
We
sorry, go
and
ahead.
then we have our niece.
you.
We have our niece.
Put your
who's-
sunglasses back on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have our niece who's 6, and then my daughter's about 19 months.
Okay.
And so her name is Zoe Grace. So it's dope. So what I do is I just try to be home in the mornings and hang out and be there for breakfast. I do about 10:30 to 6:30 every day, and then I'm usually home to do like Bible study, prayer time every night. And then I try to have like we travel a lot. Like I took my son to a trip to South Florida, just me and him. We're doing Big Bear stuff. So I try to work in those times, but I just break it down into like non-negotiables. Like non-negotiable, I'm gonna go do bedtime with my kids no matter what.
Jesus, okay.
And so like with tonight being an exception, like they know like I'm up here with you guys and stuff like that. So just those simple non-negotiables. It's just like fitness or anything else. Like if I just stick to the meal plan and go to the gym, eventually I'll have the results I want. And I just build my life out in a bunch of every day we stream regardless on what the topic is. Every day there's uploads regardless on what's
I'm just
popping.
constantly conflicted by like, am I spending enough time with my kid? Am I like spending too much time with my kid? Am I sacrificing too much by taking the weekends off when I could be doing all these other things? And like the other day we came in and did an interview on a Saturday, and I'm feeling like a little guilty at that time of like, fuck, I'm like only hanging out with my kid in full like one day this week, and that feels kind of shitty. But then at the same time, when I look at like truly obsessive, successful people in business, a lot of the times they seem like people who are pretty comfortable having bullshit ass relationships with their kids, which I'm not trying to use as like justification for it, but I do try to like give myself a pass on like being away from her for long periods of time, because it's like the reality is that the hours that you put in as an entrepreneur are like the most important thing, and sometimes you just can't get away from the fact that you got to put the fucking hours in.
no,
you know?
and also I urge all the people out there that try to be like, oh, Adam does this and that, and he doesn't have any redeemable qualities, and try to just like talk down on you as a human being.
Damn,
Wow.
who's saying that?
Who
I don't
is
think
saying
anybody's saying
God
that.
damn.
For real?
He's in the Reddit, so he knows.
Oh man, yeah,
No,
that's your
not-
account.
I mean, look, like you have your detractors and naysayers.
I'm sure they got to be out there.
But regardless, I would urge any of them, I would point them to the direction of you as a father who's nothing short of an inspiration. Like, you're an incredible father, and it says a lot about you as a person. And you being someone that I know pretty well at this point, and who doesn't like to show emotion or vulnerability that's kind of just like intrinsic to who you are as a man, like that is like the crack in your armor, but in the best way possible right there.
I'm not against showing emotion or vulnerability. I just like to be careful with how I ration it out.
I think you
Yeah,
do.
but there's no, like with her, it's like,
Oh yeah.
I think
spilling.
Jesus said, like, what is it worth to gain the world and lose your soul? And so I think that's the tension that you're feeling. There's this innate thing in you to be a present father, and that's beautiful. And I think I think the macro question is like, what do you think 50 years from now you're going to care about? When you're on your deathbed, like, is it like, dang, I wish I would have grew no jumper from, I don't know, what you guys do?
You guys could add 50 million subs.
Yeah,
but-
from 20 million to 200 million.
In
Like,
comparison, though, let's say I had like had a kid at 28 and then I never did any of this shit. I would feel pretty fucking terrible about that, because in reality, it's just like anybody could have a kid, and like not everybody could like create a fucking
Jesus.
media company that's like as big as this. Like I feel like this is like my responsibility to myself. And the reality is that my kid's life is going to be fundamentally different because I built something before I had a kid.
yeah.
a kid's essentially a breathing fuck trophy. Let's be real.
Jesus
Like,
Christ!
Whoa.
Oh my God!
What, you were, how old when you had your first kid?
2 years ago, so 37, I guess.
37.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I had my first son at 30, and then quit my job 6 months later and pursued music independently. And my wife was the one that actually was like, you need to quit your job at the church and just do music full time. And it was because we built the foundation, and my first child was the springboard to get me to build a media company. But at the end of the day, I think of macro, like what's the macro idea of all this? Like, what does this all mean?
I also feel very naive when it comes to being a parent, because my kid is only 2, and it's like I have conversations with people whose kids are like 10 or 8 or 18, or they're like out of the house and shit. And I just realized like how through the ringer so many people I'm cool with have been when it comes to child rearing, and so it's like for me, I'm very much like in the infancy of it, and so my perspective on it is like I don't even know what it's like for my kid to go to school all day. You know, like I haven't even had that fucking experience yet, so I am very like naive in terms of what I think being a parent is.
The trippy part though is this moment from like 3 to 5. I
Yeah.
don't know if you would co-sign this. Goes by so fast, and then when I look back at videos, I do feel that like, dude, I was on tour. I was like really trying to get it and hustling and on the Gary V grind.
How old is
right?
your kid now?
He's 8 now.
I feel
so
like-
there is like a guilt and a shame that I wrestle with, feeling like I wasn't more present, you know. And so, how many hours a week do you spend? I'm sorry, how many hours do you spend here?
I try to be here like 40 hours a week.
Yeah, I think
But
that seems.
I'm also
healthy.
like working from my phone, working at home a shitload too, so I
Yeah.
can do a lot when I'm
but
at
you're
home,
always
so
it's
I don't-
always on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
realistically.
Bro,
I was gonna say,
have
how-
to like answer this fool's work emails at like fucking 8 in the morning.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't,
like,
when I
yeah.
send you an email at midnight, it doesn't mean I expect you to answer me at midnight.
Just saying though, but that shows you're grinding it out.
But my girl says that to me. She'll be like, "Oh, don't text them this late." I'm like, I'm not expecting them to respond. They can respond tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I guess that's
In theory,
maybe that's not obvious to everybody. Maybe some people feel like they have to respond at night. What are you about to say?
I don't remember. Fuck.
Me neither.
some of us just go hard.
Oh, I do remember because you mentioned the 3 to 5 going by quickly. I feel like maybe you're feeling this, especially being in advanced years. Every year you get older, it feels like they start to slip by pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't even know if it's the kid getting older or if it's just me.
Your perception of time.
It feels like holy shit, it's another year. Like I'm almost 34 and I feel like I just turned 32 and I don't even know where. Yeah, but I also think the COVID shit fucked with my time a lot too. Dude, there were so many times where I'm talking to my wife. It's like, oh shit, do you remember that one girl or whatever we hung out with like 2 or 3 months ago? And she's like, bro, that was in 2020. That was like 2 years ago. And I was like, are you sure? The COVID time fucked with my head a lot for time shit. So yeah.
Did the COVID like make your kid more introverted?
The vaccine did.
By then, so Drew, the 25-point IQ drop fucked him. I moved from, so my kid lives in Omaha, Nebraska. And I moved when I was 30, so 3 years ago, so right before all the COVID stuff. But for him, he has a lot of friends in the neighborhood, and he likes playing on his iPad. So for him, it was like a fucking dream thing because he just got to run outside and play, and then mess around on his iPad and shit.
So he's not your 11-year-old's not with you now.
No, not right now. I live in Omaha. I'll fly. I just visited him actually last week. But usually whenever I'm flying around, because I do these shows so much, I usually stop by, hang out for a day or two, and then sometimes he'll come down and stay with me in Florida for a while.
Oh, that's cool. So you see him pretty regularly.
Yeah. I mean, living with him was fun, but fuck, being in Omaha fucking sucks. And there's just like nothing career-wise there. And then
That's not a very inspiring place.
yeah, and I can't move him because he's got like his whole family and his friends and
Yeah.
everything there, and his mom obviously doesn't want to move. So yeah.
Like my girl took my kid on vacation to like Italy and France for 3 weeks, and it was like part practical because she was looking at wedding venues and shit like that. But you know, I turned it down. I was just like, reality is I just have to work. I have to fucking do this content. I have to be involved with the business and shit. And while they were gone, I just felt like if I had gone, it would have just been this like fundamentally just silly decision for me to have made because it's just so much more valuable for me to be spending my time working right now. And yeah, I would have loved to like be around and just like see her having those experiences overseas and everything. But at the same time, I would just feel like this is not as much as I would enjoy it, it's not enough of a use of my fucking time right now. Like I just have such an opportunity in front of me that I just have to try to like seize on a daily basis, and that going away for 3 weeks is just like I can't fucking justify it no matter how much of a great experience it would have been.
I just went to Israel for a week and a half without my family, and that was really hard. But it was the same thing. It's like you're away and you feel guilty for being away, but then when you're with them, you feel guilty for not working as hard, and it's like this tension. But it is the same thing, like being gone. But I feel like in hindsight, I should have been more present. That's the biggest takeaway is like be more present.
I think it's hard because like you'll always have that feeling, but then it's hard to know like what could have happened otherwise, right? Like it might have been because now you're saying that you feel like you should have been more present, but there might have been times where you were more present and maybe your career actually doesn't get off at all for the YouTube stuff, right? And then it's hard to say like, what did I miss out on? So it's like life is always like a series of what ifs.
Yeah. Do you
feel,
and I'm gonna pay you a compliment, but do you feel like you creating more personalities is allowing you to scale No Jumper? Because it seems like you were very intentional on that, and that content is able to be created without Adam having to be present and touch everything.
I mean, it took a long time to kind of get that off the ground, but that definitely is how I look at it. Is that like early on, I kind of saw No Jumper as like, okay, this isn't just me making content. Like even though it took us a long time to really have people on the channel creating content consistently, but I was just like kind of realized early on that like this channel is more about like a certain interest group and a certain niche audience as opposed to just people who are obsessed with me. Like the Joe Rogan podcast, if you ever put a show on that fucking platform that wasn't Joe Rogan based, I don't think it would work. And I kind of always felt like No Jumper was just had like a bigger possibility to be more of like an overall business. So I mean,
we were watching like the Sharp interview on the way up here,
and I saw Sharp in the chat. Shout out to him. I love that he's a mod. I love seeing the wrench next to his name.
What is the Monday show? What is FGG?
Back on Fig is probably what you're referring to because they're online. Yeah, Back on Fig.
They all think the Monday show, like, since it was addressed, the Monday show starts soon, guys.
It's coming out momentarily. But they normally go on live at 6, but it got pushed back a little bit because of this. But then Back on Fig is our boy T Rell, who's live streaming right now as well. The guy who was here earlier.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what's up. Man, Adam, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I reached out to you years ago, and it's wild to be here.
It's funny to think of you as a replacement for Reza Islam, but at the end of the day,
Well,
I think you are a worthy opponent.
You're not. You're a replacement for Nick Fuentes, really.
Really, that is
really?
true too.
Oh,
And we didn't even talk about how you feel about him ducking the fade and deciding that he didn't want to debate you because he's so concerned about his new role as a blue hoodie wearing Kanye.
And out of a show that Ye just walked out on too. So
Look, at least this guy's had sex with a girl before. Like,
well, we don't know that he's turning against Nick. We only know that he was a little bit offended by Beanie Man, aka Tim Pool. So.
I thought you were like the Jamaican singer.
No, that's what
But I do think of that when I see Tim Pool sometimes.
I tried to debate
Girl,
Nick,
damn
but
sugar.
they wouldn't get back to me.
Tim Pool?
No, Nick. I tried to debate Nick, but they wouldn't get back to
I am the only mainstream journalist that he trusts.
me. Really?
It would appear so, because I believe that he's still like open to doing an interview. Although I need to like do some coaching with Destiny before I even know how to approach that. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to ask him about besides like how did you become a blue hoodie wearing Kanye intern?
Did you go down the rabbit hole of like the IQ stuff that he's on and like the
God,
race?
yeah.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, did you do that with him? Because I feel like you.
it wasn't with him, but I've debated. He's not even like a level like 100 race realist. He's like a level 20. There's like other guys on the internet. There's a guy called Alternate Hypothesis, Alt Hype, and there's another guy called Sean Last who does some stuff. But yeah, there's some people that spend it's the only thing they debate is like IQ and that shit and race realism and stuff. So you can go really far down the rabbit hole.
Shit, Alternate Hypothesis. I'm sure he's a blast at parties with a name like that.
Oh wow.
The alternate hypothesis is that black people suck because of their genes and their genetic. That's basically the alternate.
That's so sad, man. That people view other humans that way.
Oh.
Yeah. Adam, you should get more Christians on.
Oh yeah?
Christian
Yeah,
rappers.
I was
Throw me some recommendations.
I will.
Okay,
I'll make
I
a
was
whole
going to
list.
ask you if you've heard of the Christian battle rappers. Like
Of course.
A-Ward.
A-Ward, that's
Loso.
the homie. Yeah,
That's a good
Loso,
friend of mine.
Loso,
A-Ward, yeah.
my man
Loso,
Street Hymns, Amazing Saga.
All those are my people.
A-Ward is.
If I was a
A-Ward's
battle
phenomenal.
rapper and they put me up against a Christian rapper, I would show up in full Baphomet gear. Like I would get like a Gwar,
feel like there's been
like
moments
a Gwar
like that,
suit.
right?
I'd
There's
be
some weird
dressed up like
moments.
Gwar. I would borrow their suits.
That's amazing. But to be honest with you, A-Ward is not tripping in the slightest, and that fool is a cold killer in the name of Jesus.
People are
I would
saying
clearly-
A-Ward
yeah.
is top 5 right now.
I would
Yeah, he's
stand no
amazing.
Like
chance.
top 5 battle rappers, period.
He's
And it's a
amazing.
Christian dude.
I got some unreleased A-Ward footage. Maybe.
Oh my God.
We could
What a flex.
a battle. We could maybe drop on the No Jumper channel. Who knows? But
Yeah, there's a huge community, and I think you'd appreciate it because you know what SoundCloud rap was, and then this is like the antithesis of that, with basically kind of creating with one arm tied behind your back, because you can't talk about killing people, smoking, dope and effing hoes, and so you're creating.
He doesn't even
art.
cuss. A-Ward
Yeah,
don't
no,
cuss.
no profanity.
But he's like competing against. He debatably beat Geechee, or like had a like
Oh, I gotta watch
they battled.
that.
He's really fucking good.
Yeah, but there's a great
Like-
Christian rap scene. KB, Lecrae, all those guys, they do some really good work.
Okay, I'm gonna tap in. That's my new racket.
It would make my day.
New subgenre.
Do we have Christian drill rappers?
Christian drill. I was about to say.
There's a few.
What about
gotta be,
Satan with
right?
the pole?
There's a few.
smoking that Satan pack.
Smoking other religious faiths. Wow. All right, guys, the Monday show is up next. Thank you very, very much to Destiny for his time. Thank you. Tell us what your channel is before they get a chance to link it in the description.
Ruslan KD on all platforms. The second channel is Bless God Studios.
Right.
Ruslan KD or Bless God Studios. Thank you, Adam.
And shout out to my man Lush One
Come on, baby.
and T Rell, even though he
What's
left.
going on?
Yeah. All right. Destiny Sledge Lords is dropping later this week, potentially as well. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. We will be back momentarily with the Monday show.
Come on. Suspect gonna be there.
Yep.
I brought you guys gifts.
Appreciate it.